legendary warrior who protected his country, now kneeling humiliatingly on the ground, bowing his head to beg forgiveness from this family. Because his daughter Minji got into a fight with her classmate Huili, teacher informed old Jin that this was their third fight already. Moreover, Huili's father held considerable power and influence in this area. To prevent the situation from escalating, old Jin could only endure this humiliation. Minji couldn't stand seeing her father being so weak and cowardly. She ran away, with old Jin hurrying after her. He asked her caringly if she was hungry and wanted to go home for dinner, but she remained silent, walking forward without looking back. The more she thought about it, the more wrong she felt. It clearly wasn't her fault, yet he knelt down to beg their forgiveness. Crying, she said, "If you're so powerless, you shouldn't have brought me into this world." Then she slowly disappeared from old Jin's sight. But how could this young girl know that for her sake? Old Jin had once held the highest commander of country H hostage, threatening that, no matter what, they must let him retire from service. In the end, he only got his wish by unconditionally agreeing to do something for them. Minji, who intended to find her classmate, was cornered by Huili on the way. The two exchanged a glance before starting to fight. Soon after, Huili's delinquent friends appeared. One of them immediately kicked Minji, sending her flying. Walking up to her, they grabbed her hair and began viciously punching her face. Huili, unable to contain her anger, picked up a stone and rushed forward, violently smashing it against Minji's head. Even the thugs were frightened. This girl was truly vicious. Coming to their senses, they threatened the onlookers not to take photos or call the police or face consequences. Looking at the unconscious Minji on the ground, the thugs hurriedly contacted their boss for help. But just as the call connected, Huili snatched the phone, arrogantly declaring her father's name, telling them to send someone who could handle the aftermath. Soon, the cleanup crew arrived. They put Minji in the trunk, then left the scene with Huili and her friend. Meanwhile, old Jin was at home alone preparing dinner, hoping his daughter would return to eat. As he waited, old Jin fell asleep at the table. Suddenly, he woke from his dream, thinking he heard his daughter calling for help. Checking the time and seeing his daughter still hadn't returned, old Jin went out to the street. He saw a crowd of people whispering among themselves, so he walked over. From a distance, he saw bloodstains on the ground. Suddenly, he spotted a hair tie, realizing it was Huili's. Had they fought again? Old Jin quickly called Minji's classmate Huisong, learning that his daughter wasn't with him. A sense of foreboding rose in his heart. Just then, old Jin happened to run into Huili and her thug friends chatting, so he approached them like a ghost from behind, asking if they had seen his daughter Minji. The thug grabbed his collar and claimed ignorance, telling him to get lost. Old Jin held up the hair accessory and asked Huili, "This is yours, right?" Seeing this, Huili trembled in fear, thinking she'd been found out. The thug, seeing the situation about to be exposed, took off his shirt revealing full-body tattoos, threatening him to leave immediately. Old Jin remained motionless where he stood. The thug grew annoyed and rushed forward, tearing open old Jin's clothes, only to see his body covered in knife wounds and bullet scars. The two were terrified, breaking out in cold sweat. Old Jin, not wanting to waste time, knocked the thug to the ground with one punch. Old Jin exploded at this moment, then used the hair tie to strangle his neck, demanding to know his daughter's whereabouts. Following the thug's leads, he traced his way to where the gang boss Urguzi was. At that moment, Urguzi was dealing with someone who hadn't repaid his debt, even suggesting taking the man's daughter as payment. If not, he'd have his kidneys harvested. This cowardly man, to save his own kidneys, could only watch helplessly as his daughter was taken away by the arrogant Urguzi. At this time, old Jin politely rang the doorbell. Seeing no response from inside, he walked right in. The underling who came to send him away happened to run into him. Old Jin ignored him and took him out immediately. Inside, Urguzi heard the commotion outside and sensed something was wrong. He waved to his fat underling, who immediately understood. Grabbing a baseball bat, he swung it with all his might as the door opened. But old Jin was prepared, using that thug as a shield to dodge the blow. Then with one palm strike, he sent the fat man flying. Taking out a prepared rope, he immediately strung up the 300-pound man, fiercely demanding, "Where is Minji?" But the fat man looked confused. "What? Who's Minji?" Seeing him still playing dumb, old Jin yanked the rope hard. The fat man turned to his boss for help while in agony, only to see the boss trying to escape. Old Jin hurried to stop him but was too late. Urguzi, who had jumped out the window, now only wished his parents had given him 2 more legs. Before he could run, he tripped on something and fell face first. Getting up, Urguzi was dumbfounded seeing the steel wire mesh. Before he could react, old Jin had pulled him back inside with the rope. After a beating, Urguzi revealed they communicated through an app, that the chat history would be deleted after conversations ended. Old Jin asked how he had contacted them just now, but Urguzi remained silent. Seeing this, old Jin immediately started beating him, then kicked him flying from behind, turning back to open the briefcase, throwing out all the documents inside, only to find a gun inside. He quickly loaded the magazine and attaching the silencer, walking while saying, "Those who lose parents are called orphans. Those who lose husbands are called widows. Only parents who lose children have no specific name, because they're already too miserable." Then he aimed at Urguzi's private parts. "You've exhausted my patience." With a bang, Urguzi became a eunuch. Old Jin ignored Urguzi's screams, slowly collecting the scattered documents. After gathering everything, he turned and said fiercely, "If I weren't convinced Minji was still alive, you'd all be dead." Just as old Jin was about to pick up Urguzi's phone and leave, the phone suddenly rang. Messages started popping up. However, the latest message made old Jin completely break down. The man who would give up everything for his daughter learned that she was dead. At this moment, his tears falling from his dry eyes. Still clinging to hope, old Jin took the phone to Urguzi's face, demanding to know what happened, but he doesn't know. Old Jin snapped in anger and grabbed his throat, grimly urging him, "Just say what you know, get to the point." But just then, the previous debtor suddenly rushed at old Jin with a knife. Urguzi urged the debtor to stab again, saying he'd have his debt, but the knife didn't hit old Jin, yet it successfully wore away his last patience. Just as he was about to kill Urguzi, the police arrived. They even mistook him for the knife knife-wielding suspect, telling him to put down the knife. Old Jin felt extremely frustrated but could only surrender. Everyone was taken to the police station to give statements. The thugs kept pushing the blame onto him. Old Jin remained silent, showing no interest in arguing with them. Seeing Old Jin refusing to speak, the captain prepared to investigate his identity using fingerprints, but the screen immediately displayed a red block. Unable to get results, the captain turned back helplessly to continue questioning Old Jin, only to see the enraged fat man kick him down. Other officers immediately restrained the fat man. Unexpectedly, relying on his weight advantage, the fat man still tried to kick Old Jin. At this moment, two burly men came up to the fat man with sinister smiles. "Kid, you're quite active. Want to play with us?" The fat man was terrified and immediately became docile. Just then, the phone on the desk suddenly rang. Seeing it was from a suspect, the captain picked up the phone to check, reading out the caller's ID. Hearing this, Old Jin's heart trembled, his pupils dilating. Could his daughter still be alive? Hope rekindled in his heart. Excited to stand up and grab the phone, the officers tried to calm him down, but were surprised to find his handcuffs already unlocked, leaving them dumbfounded. The captain, who was about to answer the phone, turned back wanting to ask something. But in that brief moment, a dozen people were already lying on the ground. Before the captain could react, Old Jin was already behind him, pinning him firmly against the wall, grimly warning him not to make a sound. Then answering the phone, "Hello, is this Minji?" But the phone was hung up as soon as it connected. Calling back only got a busy tone. Calling again, the phone was turned off. With no choice, he had to leave the police station for now. Old Jin came to a taekwondo gym, lost in thought watching the lively children. Old Chang noticed him then, telling the children to take a break, then came to sit beside him and said, "Long time no see. You must be here for something. What happened?" Old Jin lowered his head dejectedly and said, "My daughter is dead." Hearing this, he exclaimed, "What did you say?" He took out his phone and said, "It's still uncertain, but at the police station, she called again. I answered, but no one spoke. Then the phone was turned off. I know I should throw away the phone now, but I'm afraid she'll call again." Shortly after he left, people from the National Special Action Group arrived at the police station, led by a director codenamed Fei Shui. As soon as he arrived, he slapped the police chief, telling him to prepare to be fired. Then his subordinate told him Code 66's identity was discovered here, and they had already located his current position. A group of people quickly arrived at the taekwondo gym. Meanwhile, Old Jin was still hesitating whether to ask his old friend for help. Old Cheng spoke up directly. "Remember when you saved Tai Dong? He really almost lost his life then. I understand the feeling of almost losing a child. Consider this repaying your favor." After they decided, they prepared to let the children leave first. But just as they led Old Jin to the stairwell, they saw Fei Shui was playing with a little boy. Old Cheng decisively kicked him, sending him tumbling down the stairs, catching all the scattered rice cakes in midair, putting them back in the box and returning it to the little boy, gently patting his head, telling him to go home early. The gym was closing early today. The kicked Fei Shui suddenly launched a sneak attack, which Old Jin easily blocked. He glared at him fiercely. "There are still children here." Fei Shui grinned menacingly. "Code 66, I've been looking for you." Old Jin ignored him and threw him away. Beside him, Old Cheng used his big face as a springboard, kicking away the approaching subordinates with 10 kicks in 1 second. After dealing with them, they quickly fled with Old Jin. Arriving at the basement, they started up the long-sealed yellow base vehicle. After many years, Old Jin skillfully operated the equipment, infiltrating the base station. He quickly located his daughter's phone location, though it was quite far. When they arrived at their destination, they were stunned. Had they found the wrong place? Before their eyes was a high school, with delinquents standing at the entrance. The middle-aged duo prepared to teach them a lesson. Seeing the two approach, a small leader came forward trying to drive them away, but the two continued walking inside without stopping, treating the thugs like thin air. The thug leader, realizing what happened, reached for Old Jin's shoulder. Old Jin didn't tolerate it, immediately executing a shoulder throw, with the thug pinned under his foot. Old Jin expressionlessly asked about Minji's whereabouts. The other thugs immediately rushed forward to save their boss. Unexpectedly, Old Jin sent them all flying with 1 punch each. Never having seen someone who could send people flying, the thugs panicked. They had planned to overwhelm Old Jin with numbers, but didn't expect 1 punch could send 4 people flying. After dealing with the thugs blocking him, Old Jin headed straight for the academic affairs office. He trusted Old Chen would handle the thugs outside. Walking into the building, Old Jin became One Punch Man, taking down all thugs in his path, leaving only one to guide him. But the corridor to the academic affairs office was blocked by an overconfident man. The man immediately launched a rushing punch at Old Jin, but was blocked with just a wave of his hand. Pulling back, the man started spinning in the air, then received a precise punch to the face. Arriving at the academic affairs office, Old Jin kicked open the door, startling the thugs inside, who thought the police had come. But it turned out to be a middle-aged uncle. 2 fat guys arrogantly asked, "Who are you? Are you a teacher here?" Old Jin glared at them menacingly without answering, searching for something instead, finally focusing his gaze on the phone held by the only pink-haired thug sitting there. Recognizing it as his daughter's phone, he immediately took out all the thugs in his way, coming to stand before the pink-haired thug, pointing at the pink phone on his chest, saying, "Where did you get that phone?" The pink-haired thug probably hadn't realized how dangerous the man before him was. Holding the phone, showing the lock screen photo, he stuck out his agile tongue to lick it provocatively. "Oh right, she was that one from last night. Super intense." Old Jin, already immersed in grief, completely exploded, violently grabbing the pink-haired thug's hair. Punching the pink-haired thug was unrecognizable, finally sending him flying several meters with one punch. But this couldn't quell the rage in Old Jin's heart. He picked up a pen and placed it between the thug's fingers, raising his size 45 foot over the pink-haired thug's hand. He stomped down hard. Seeing the pink-haired thug still cursing, Old Jin prepared to continue, but was stopped by Old Cheng. He said, "Hit him anymore and he'll die." Old Jin finally suppressed his anger and said, "So have you seen my daughter?" The pink-haired thug finally became honest. Earlier, Subordinates had just submitted a new batch of phones for the pink-haired thug to inspect. As it happened, the pink-haired thug immediately took a liking to Minji's. Opening her phone, preparing to take a look, he was surprised when checking the call history. There were only calls from Dad, as they were mocking the phone's owner. The pink-haired thug accidentally pressed the screen, dialing the number, then quickly hanging up when he realized. Old Jin felt like he must have misheard, asking the pink-haired thug to repeat his previous sentence. The pink-haired thug said, her call history only had calls from Dad. Hearing this, Old Jin was shocked. His daughter didn't have a single friend. The pink-haired thug continued, well, there was one. On a social app, someone called Huili, though calling them friends might be stretching it. Old Jin was stunned at this point. In his impression, she should have been Minji's best friend. His hands trembled as he opened their chat history. When he saw their conversations, he was shocked, speechless. This person was either celebrating birthdays or borrowing money, and the main reason was always Huili saying, we're friends, and friends should help each other. The naive Minji thought she truly considered her a friend, not knowing she was just treating her like a fool. After reading the chat history, Old Jin clenched his fist tightly, deeply regretting that he knew nothing. He only knew how to give his daughter the best things, regretting not noticing earlier how his daughter felt at school. How much pain must she have been in? At this point, Old Chang grabbed his hand and said, I understand your pain, but now isn't the time for regret. Pull yourself together and find Minji to apologize. As a father, I understand your hardship. You hide all your sorrows and difficulties inside. Even so, we won't be easily defeated. Hearing this, Old Jin bit down painfully on his teeth, grabbed the groaning pink-haired thug from the ground and asked, so where'd you get this phone? The pink-haired thug quickly confessed he got it from a homeless man. Getting the address, they quickly located the homeless man. Old Jin showed his daughter's phone, asking where he had stolen it from. The homeless man certainly denied being a thief. Old Jin immediately grabbed his hand, saying he would take him to the police. The homeless man panicked and yanked his hand away. He honestly confessed that he found it in a garbage bin. Last night, while resting by the roadside, he saw a thug get out of a car, suspiciously throwing a package into a garbage bin. After throwing it, a people in the car telling him to go to the incinerator later to dispose of the body. Thinking they didn't want it anymore, he picked up the package. Opening it, he found a phone and wallet inside, happily thinking it was his lucky day. The homeless man wanted to continue speaking, but seeing Old Jin turn away, he asked if he was listening. At this moment, veins were bulging on his face as he suppressed his rage. He knew those people in the car were the ones who moved Minji's body. Turning back to ask him, what kind of car was that guy driving? Do you remember the license plate? But the homeless man said he couldn't remember. Old Jin had no patience left at this point, grabbing his collar fiercely. The homeless man seemed frightened by Old Jin's demeanor, quickly saying the guy had a crew cut, drove a white car. Old Jin wanted to ask for more information, but Old Chang said, okay, let's go, this is all we need to know. Just as the two were about to leave, the homeless man called them back and said, I'm wanting some compensation. This information is important to you. Asking for payment isn't unreasonable, right? Old Chang walked while reaching into his pocket, pulling out a coin, then forcefully bending it. Is this payment enough? Seeing the bent coin, the homeless man hurriedly said no payment was needed. Meanwhile, Minji, who had been put in the trunk, was taken to a dock by that group and thrown directly into a cold storage container. The arrogant gold-toothed man didn't know disaster was about to strike him. He was still thinking of using Huili's murder to take revenge on her high-ranking father, because her father had previously pulled out all his teeth, hence his gold teeth now. Just then, a dock security guard discovered them, asking who they were and what they were doing here, but was immediately dealt with by gold-toothed man's underling, who also put his body in the cold storage, but they didn't know Minji woke up after they left. Back in their car, Old Jin and Old Chang used the base vehicle's equipment to hack into surrounding surveillance. Using the homeless man's face, they quickly located last night's footage. The information of the short-haired man who threw the package was also found, but unexpectedly, this car was rented by these people. They could only track their location by searching the car's information, but because the vehicle was moving, loading would take some time. Just as the results were about to appear, suddenly a white car crashed directly into them, but the location had finished loading. Old Jin quickly memorized the address. The people in the car that hit them were also clearly dazed. It took a while before they got out, never having seen such annoying people. Fei Shui held the gun at the base vehicle, calling out, Code 66, I know you're not dead, get out now. At this point, Old Jin was also angered by him. Anyone stopping him from finding his daughter must die. Fortunately, Old Chang pulled him back in time, saying that person was a public servant. Killing him would cause a commotion. I'll hold him off. You escape from the back. Fei Shui grew impatient. Code 66, even if I really shoot, it's fine. You understand? It's been authorized. Before he finished speaking, Old Chang crawled out of the car. Seeing only him come out, he immediately asked why Code 66 hadn't got off, but Old Chang ignored him, only raising his hands in surrender. Fei Shui grew angry at this point. Bastard, I asked you where Code 66 is. As soon as he finished speaking, the car behind Old Chang exploded. Fei Shui was a bit shocked. What's up? Behind him, flames shot skyward as the smoke and fire cover. Old Jin jumped directly off the bridge. Hearing the splash, Old Chang seemed to receive a signal, running straight at Fei Shui. Fei Shui knew they were playing tricks, threatening to shoot if Old Chang came closer. Don't think he wouldn't shoot ordinary citizens. But how could he know Old Chang wasn't an ordinary citizen? Just as Fei Shui fired, Old Chang dodged and grabbed his gun arm, then executed a sidekick, sending him flying several meters. Old Chang didn't expect this guy would really shoot, and the fallen Fei Shui was truly tough, getting up and firing several shots at him. But Old Chang's movements were also extraordinary, dodging them all with several quick moves, even doing a 360-degree mid-air spin to get behind Fei Shui, then launched a kick. But unfortunately, Fei Shui dodged it, then kicked the gun from his hand. Without his gun, Fei Shui pulled out a knife to fight Old Chang, but he was no match for Old Chang, only able to take a passive beating. Seeing his late arriving subordinates, Fei Shui finally felt relieved. But seeing the pose Old Chang took, Fei Shui was confused confused. What was this guy planning? Indeed, Old Chang was about to use his ultimate move. Seeing Old Chang's kick approach, Fei Shui thought, he can't kick me from this distance, only to see Old Chang spin 4 consecutive times in the air. This spiral kick landed right on Fei Shui's face, leaving all the arriving subordinates dumbfounded. Then Old Chang took Fei Shui with him as he jumped into the river. Meanwhile, Old Jin had finally found the white car that transported Minji's body. Looking at the trail of blood on the ground, could Old Jin make it in time to find his daughter in the cold storage? This arrogant man never imagined that Minji, whom he had thrown into cold storage thinking she was dead, actually hadn't died and crawled out of the compression bag herself. Looking at the temperature gauge, it was already minus 30 degrees. She hurriedly banged on the door, crying for help, but no one responded to her. The disappointed Minji curled up in a corner, in the cold storage. She couldn't help but think of her father. Suddenly a figure appeared outside, opening the door from the outside. Hearing the movement, Minji didn't dare make a sound, secretly peering toward the door to see who had come. Seeing that familiar profile, tears welled up in her eyes, just about to call out dad, when she realized it was a stranger on the phone who walked in. Minji heard him mention Zhu Kangkai, saying something about his own daughter committing murder. Frightened, she quickly shrank back into the corner, tightly covering her mouth to avoid making any sound. Gold Tooth Man on the phone also noticed something wrong. Seeing footprints all over the ground, he was confused. Suddenly, a figure rushed out and knocked him. It was that security guard who wasn't quite dead. Gold Tooth Man recognized the old man, then recovered and pulled out his knife, stabbing him dozens of times, finally sending him to his grave. Minji, seeing the dropped phone and the security guard falling from stab wounds, couldn't stop her tears from flowing, feeling she was surely done for. The not quite dead security guard also noticed Minji at this point, using his last breath to move the phone, so that when Gold Tooth Man came to pick it up, he wouldn't discover Minji hiding there. Picking up the phone, Gold Tooth Man kept complaining about his subordinates' incompetence. I just came to take a photo and ran into this. Need to take a good photo to threaten Chairman Zhu, otherwise that bastard won't be satisfied. Just then Gold Tooth Man's phone suddenly rang. It was Chairman Zhu calling. He went to the entrance to answer. Chairman Zhu laughed, saying, "Old friend, how have you been? I hear my daughter caused trouble and you're handling it. Whatever your conditions, just name them." Hearing his arrogant tone, the previously smiling Gold Tooth Man immediately flew into a rage. "Bastard, prepare 2 billion in cash and come to the dock within an hour alone, no police or assistance. Especially not that planning director. Understand? And don't forget to prepare yourself some dentures when you come." Not waiting for a response, he hung up, looking at his daughter's worried expression. Chairman Zhu smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, leave it to Dad. We're not an ordinary family. You should know the ocean can't be wetted by rain." Then he turned with a grim face, ordering the planning director to prepare 500 million in cash, and also prepare a pair of pliers. After making his threats, Gold Tooth Man felt extremely satisfied. Then he went outside in the rain to cool down. But just as he turned to go over, he saw Minji through the door crack. The cigarette fell from his shocked mouth. Minji seized the chance to quickly wedge the door with an iron pick. Gold Tooth Man, a step too late, desperately pushed the door from outside, cursing, "Damn, running into 2 resurrections today." Seeing he couldn't push it open, he quickly called his subordinates. But just as the man's phone rang, Old Jin suddenly appeared outside their door. Immediately, he recognized the man who had thrown away his daughter's phone and wallet. After going through countless hardships, Old Jin finally found the person who stole his daughter's phone. Old Jin approached them with a grim face. He took out his daughter's phone and asked, "Where is the owner of this phone?" The big oaf ignored the question and grabbed Old Jin's head, asking, "Who are you?" Old Jin immediately beat him into a pulp. Seeing how strong he was, the crew cut man frantically fled outside. Old Jin pursued him relentlessly, until to the edge of an elevated platform. The crew cut man stopped hurriedly and explained to Old Jin, "We were just helping with transportation, not the killers. The mastermind is Zhu Kangkai from Zhu Ying Construction." Hearing this name, Old Jin was instantly filled with rage. Just as he was about to ask about his daughter's body, the crew cut man jumped off. He tried to use a steel cable to escape, but he underestimated the pain from the friction on his palms and let go. As a result, he died. On the other side, seeing that neither the big oaf nor his partner answered their phones, Golden Tooth Man cursed their ancestors back to 18 generations in anger. Just then he received a call, thinking it was from the big oaf, but it turned out to be from his arriving subordinates. Golden Tooth Man ordered them to go directly to the office to find the big oaf, saying they might be in trouble. Then he told Kang Ming to come to the freezer. Arriving at the office, they found it in shambles and immediately called to report. Hearing that neither man was there, Golden Tooth Man told them to search the surrounding area. At this time, the big oaf, dragging his injured body, hid in a car, thinking he could escape. Suddenly a fist came crashing through the car window. Old Jin's terrifying face appeared outside, ordering him to get out. The big oaf remained smug, saying, "I'm not stupid. Try to open the door and get me out if you can, you bastard." Did he think this would stump Old Jin? Old Jin found a piece of wire, fiddled with it briefly, and opened the car's door. Seeing this, the big oaf screamed in fear and quickly said the person was in the freezer. Upon hearing this, Old Jin said, "What?" The big oaf hastily replied, "The phone's owner is in the freezer." Chairman Zhu said to dump her in the deep sea. Just as Old Jin was about to ask about the freezer's location, he was ambushed from behind by arriving subordinates and hit with a steel pipe. Looking at the dented pipe, the subordinates were dumbfounded. How was he not knocked out? Old Jin turned around and quickly dealt with these men. Seeing the situation turn bad, the big oaf hurriedly escaped from the other side of the car. He yanked the truck driver from his seat and tried to escape. Unexpectedly, Old Jin caught up with him, his powerful legs launching toward him. Unable to see the road, the big oaf drove straight into the sea. Old Jin pulled him up to the surface, continuing to demand the freezer's location. Meanwhile, Golden Tooth Man was unaware of the danger approaching him, crouching at the door, constantly trying to coax Minji to open it. Though Minji was somewhat naive, she wasn't stupid. She'd rather freeze to death inside than open the door. At this time, old Jin also dragged the big oaf to the freezer. Thinking would die here, Minji burst into tears. Golden Tooth Man stopped trying to persuade her. Just then, he turned and saw the big oaf stumbling towards him, looking at this swollen face before him. Golden Tooth Man was surprised at what he had gone through and asked why he hadn't answered his calls. The big oaf's tears mixed with rain as he was about to complain to his boss. Golden Tooth Man viciously interrupted him, asking, "Did you conspire with Chairman Zhu?" He stabbed him in the thigh from behind. "You bastard! Have you ever seen me get fooled before?" Then looking at old Jin holding the black rope. "Who are you? Are you also sent by Chairman Zhu?" Old Jin ignored his questions and asked through suppressed rage, "Where is Minji?" Golden Tooth Man wondered who Minji was. Seeing him dodge the question, old Jin prepared to beat him first, but he was suddenly knocked flying by a rushing figure. Before old Jin could react, a high kick followed. Faced with his fierce attacks, he could only defend passively, but every move was aimed at vital points. Old Jin decided to stop holding back. Golden Tooth Man, thinking Kang Ming had the upper hand, immediately shouted for him to teach this guy a lesson. But seeing Kang Ming's broken fingers, Golden Tooth Man was struck speechless. Seeing this person was Golden Tooth Man's accomplice, old Jin took off his shirt ready to get serious. Meanwhile, Chairman Zhu's group was racing towards them. Zhu Kenkai knew Golden Tooth Man must have backup to be so bold. Moreover, there had been recent urban legends about someone taking orphans, training them into emotionless killer monsters, with several formidable ones already on the society. Thinking of this, Chairman Zhu issued orders, telling the planning director to clear obstacles first. Kang Ming's one such monster. Seeing him reattach his broken finger, thinking this man was Chairman Zhu, Golden Tooth Man quickly explained this wasn't him, he was the bad man who bullied Daddy. Old Jin, realizing this kid was the son, immediately rushed forward to grapple with him. If you want to talk about monsters, old Jin was their ancestor, more like a prehistoric beast. To break free, old Jin deliberately dislocated his own arm, just to land a punch on his face. Then he reattached his dislocated arm, and continued throwing iron fists at him. Suddenly, old Jin's two-finger strike was caught by Kang Ming, who seemed intent on revenge for his broken fingers. With a crack, old Jin seemed to feel no pain, immediately stepping forward to lock one of his legs tightly. Seeing him still struggling, old Jin warned, "Keep resisting and your foot will really break." Just then, Golden Tooth Man suddenly kicked desperately at old Jin, and scolded, "Kang Ming, didn't Daddy tell you, if you're about to lose, even if you have to bite his neck, bite him to death?" After hearing this, old Jin gave him a flying kick, but at the crucial moment, Kang Ming rose to pounce at him, standing in front of Golden Tooth Man saying, "I will kill him," then taking out a dagger, assuming a desperate fighting stance. Old Jin flexed his recently dislocated arm. "Need to deal with him quickly, and leave. Since he's about Minji's age, I'll spare his life." The great battle was about to begin. Kang Ming kept stabbing at old Jin, but each thrust was dodged. He moved in close and spun behind him, firmly trapping Kang Ming, leaving him unable to move. Minji, trapped in the freezer, was nearly frozen to death, because she knew that once she opened the door, what awaited her would be a cold knife. At this moment, Minji's thoughts were all about her father, who had knelt down in humiliation for her sake, and told her, "Minji, parents' dignity is built upon their children. You are my pride. That's right, just look at who I am." She decided to fight to the death. While outside, old Jin, still grappling with Kang Ming, said grimly, "I don't know your situation, but in this world, no father would sacrifice their own child, unless they're beasts." Actually, Golden Tooth Man wasn't Kang Ming's biological father. He had bought him from human traffickers. The seller told Golden Tooth Man, "Just say you're his father and he'll listen to you," because Kang Ming was just a child who needed family warmth. So whatever Golden Tooth Man said, he would follow unconditionally. He bit old Jin's thigh, recalling when he had overheard Golden Tooth Man talking with his subordinates. He only treated him as a beast, not as a human. Tears flowed uncontrollably as he slowly released his bite. Old Jin, seeing him like this, threw him aside. Glancing back at him, he sighed and limped towards the freezer, but Kang Ming stood up again, charging at him like a madman. Old Jin stopped being gentle, sending him flying with one punch, saying, "If my daughter were still alive, someone like you who prevents me from saving people would already be dead." But Kang Ming roared, "Kill me or Daddy will finish me off anyway." Old Jin grabbed his head, raising his fist, looking at his young face, said, "Is he your real father? A real father would never want to kill you. Real family would never do such things. The reason I'm not killing you is because you're about my daughter's age." With that, he turned and left, leaving Kang Ming stunned. Thinking back to every crisis, Golden Tooth Man only cared about his own escape, leaving him behind as a shield. He seemed to understand something about the meaning of family, but it was all too late. The arriving Nan director had been killed. Meanwhile, Golden Tooth Man guarding the freezer, not knowing where the two had gone. Standing in the rain, he was getting impatient. Suddenly, he heard a clang from the freezer behind him and was somewhat startled. Coming to his senses, he tried turning the door handle. Surprisingly, it could be opened. Cautiously peering inside to check the situation, he found she had removed the things blocking the door. Looking at the covered corpse, he couldn't help but smirk, then taking out his dagger and approaching the corpse, stabbing while saying, "I'm not stupid." But when he realized something was wrong and was about to lift the compression bag, holding the frozen salted fish, Minji smashed it hard against his head. Looking at the fallen Golden Tooth Man, Minji quipped, "You talk too much? Don't you know whose daughter I am?" When old Jin went through countless hardships to reach the freezer, only to find a single strand of his daughter's hair, old Jin immediately grabbed the unconscious Golden Tooth Man and demanded Minji's whereabouts. Seeing he was unconscious, he gave him a hard slap, but couldn't wake him up, and as he was about to slap again, he noticed the bloody salted fish nearby. He quickly released Golden Tooth Man and stood up, wondering if there had been internal fighting. But but looking at one corpse and one unconscious person. Something felt off. He turned to observe. Suddenly he discovered writing in the corner. Moving closer, he recognized the familiar handwriting as Minji's. At this point, he began trembling. Minji was still alive. Had been alive all along, so who was trying to hide the crime? He turned to look at Golden Tooth Man, thinking of Chairman Zhu, the crew-cut man and the youth mentioned. He couldn't help but rage, but the urgent matter now was finding Minji. She shouldn't be far, must be nearby. Sensing old Jin walking away, Golden Tooth Man suddenly opened his eyes. He had been pretending to be unconscious, still complaining about how Kong Ming let this madman in, but just as he was about to leave, the door slowly closed. It was the big oaf. Their eyes met briefly. Then he closed the door. Golden Tooth Man frantically banged on it, asking him to open, but the big oaf ignored him, using his 300-pound body to block the door. Golden Tooth Man started pleading, "Don't be like this, it was all a misunderstanding." The big oaf didn't believe his lies. "You can freeze to death in there," making Golden Tooth Man kick the door in rage. He damned the big oaf's entire family tree. Just then the door opened. He immediately started dancing with joy, but seeing the men in black outside, his face turned ashen. It was the planning director. He immediately said, "Please open your mouth." Seeing Golden Tooth Man not responding, he kicked him flying, then viciously told him, "Open your mouth." Meanwhile outside, old Jin ran while shouting, "Minji!" At this time Minji seemed to hear her father's call and stopped, but looking back there was no one around. Must have misheard. How could father appear here? However, the rain was too loud. Old Jin's calls had no effect. Facing a dead end ahead, he jumped straight onto the containers, running frantically searching for Minji. Suddenly he seemed to spot a figure. Stopping to look, it was indeed Minji, whom he had been desperately seeking. Old Jin's excited calls became stuttered, but the rain was too loud. Minji, climbing up to the road, couldn't hear the calls behind her. Then seeing a car driving by, Minji immediately shouted for help, but the people in the car thought she was a scammer. Not only did they not stop, but splashed her with muddy water, then drove away, leaving Minji dumbfounded. Old Jin finally climbed up, but the road was empty. Minji had already gotten into a passing car, but she regretted it as soon as she got on. It turned out to be Chairman Zhu's car. Looking at this girl who delivered herself, Chairman Zhu couldn't help but smile slightly, saying, "Interesting. Clean her up and send her to the room when we get back, and tell Nan Director to return after dealing with that group." At this moment, old Jin knew there was no time to hesitate, immediately dialing someone's number. On the other end was a man in military uniform. "I'm calling only to confirm one thing. Has my killing license expired?" Old Jin, who was running, suddenly heard someone calling him from behind. It was old Cheng. He excitedly told old Cheng, "Minji is alive," but old Cheng interrupted him. "Let's leave here first. They're coming." Old Jin wondered who. Of course it's Fei Shu. He had taken away Fei Shui's wallet, exchanged it with an elderly person for a motorcycle, and left a note. Fei Shui was furious, immediately leading his subordinates to continue the pursuit. Meanwhile, Chairman Zhu, just out of the shower, his subordinate immediately reported. Nan Director had finished dealing with the freezer situation and was heading here, but he didn't care about this, directly ordering his subordinate to bring that girl to his office. Looking at this girl before him, Chairman Zhu asked, "You seem to have fallen asleep as soon as you got in the car. You've been through a lot, haven't you?" But Minji claimed she had some memory loss, only remembering waking up in the freezer. Seeing her pretend to have amnesia, Chairman Zhu didn't expose her, asked if she remembered what happened yesterday. Minji glanced at a photo nearby, thought for a moment, and said she couldn't remember. Minji, thinking she could get away with it, didn't expect the topic to turn to Hui Li. Chairman Zhu stood up and came to her side, and said, "Stop pretending. My daughter wanted to kill you. What do you think I should do?" Minji was terrified, said, "When did you figure it out?" Chairman Zhu whispered in her ear, "From when you pretended to sleep in the car. I was feeling a bit reluctant since you're Hui Li's classmate, but since you're pretending to have amnesia, you must know quite a bit." Then he ordered his subordinates to have Director Han kill her. "She's Hui Li's friend. Let her die painlessly." Seeing the approaching man, Minji kept begging for mercy. Director Han grabbed her, telling her not to move, otherwise hitting anywhere but the artery will be more painful. Minji cried in despair, shouting loudly for her father. At this crucial moment, the doorbell suddenly rang. It was actually Fei Shu. They had accessed satellite surveillance, deducing code 66 must be looking for his daughter, so they simply captured his daughter as bait. Seeing subordinates still ringing the doorbell, Fei Shu raged and said, "Just ram the car in." The villa's guards immediately surrounded them, berating these uninvited guests. "This is private property. Get out now." Fei Shu arrogantly fired a shot in the air and said, "We're sent by the state, please make way," then kicked open someone's front door to search. Upstairs, Chairman Zhu had already seen the situation from the window, ordered subordinates to take the girl to the basement. The arrogant Fei Shu directly approached Chairman Zhu. "Are you Zhu Kangshai from Zhu Ying Construction?" After confirming his identity, he took out his work ID. "We're from the State Special Operations Bureau, currently looking for a suspect, and that suspect's daughter has been traced here." He was about to light a cigarette to continue, but was yanked away by Chairman Zhu, thrown to the ground. "You say you're from Special Operations. Are you a section chief or bureau chief?" "I'm close with your deputy minister." Before he could finish, Fei Shui sneered, "How can you stay so calm, you bastard? The Special Operations Bureau has broken in and you're not feeling guilty." Just then, searching subordinates reported finding no one. Hearing this, Fei Shui seemed to have expected it. "Just wait, they're already on their way." Then looked smugly at Chairman Zhu and said, "Chairman Zhu, you seem to know about our Special Operations Bureau. Have you heard of the 6-Star King? They're heading here now. You understand what I mean? You're doomed. Whatever you're hiding, we'll find it all." Fei Shui didn't know that the 6-Star King had just reached the entrance, only to be blocked by the arriving planning director. The reckless 6-Star King arrogantly told him to move aside, but were sent flying by one punch from the planning director. Then 5 people immediately came to help. In less than a few minutes, they were all lying on the ground. At this time, Fei Shui still looked fearless. Hearing the door open behind him, thinking the 6-Star King had arrived, he waved indicating they were here, but found them being carried in. Fei Shui was so shocked he stuttered. Chairman Zhu gloated, Are these the 6-star king you were waiting for? Meanwhile, old Jin and his companion had also found the villa. Confirming Minji was inside, old Chang asked how to rescue her. Old Jin remained silent for a moment, then asked what else could they do. Then grabbed some soil, smeared it on his face. Looking fierce, he said, "No matter how we act, the result will be the same. Let's follow the usual procedure." Just as they were about to move, old Chang suddenly noticed something and held him back. The two saw a figure from afar, running quickly towards the back of the villa. It was Fei Shui's 6-star king. While the typically arrogant Fei Shui couldn't stand his mockery, grabbed his clothes wanting to teach him a lesson, but was interrupted by his subordinate, who anxiously said the search warrant request was cancelled, and the deputy minister was calling. As soon as Fei Shui answered, the other party told him to return first, then berated him harshly, making Fei Shui's face turn red with bulging veins. He smashed the phone to the ground. Seeing this, Chairman Zhu started mocking him again. Is that all? Unable to take the mockery, Fei Shui kicked his desk over, continuing to curse profusely. After venting, Fei Shui put his face close to his and said, "Just wait and see, I'll eventually stop you from being so arrogant, understand? You arrogant fatty." Back in the car, he immediately relaxed. Actually, his previous fierceness was all an act. To create an opportunity for the 6-star team to get the girl out, learning their mission was complete, Fei Shui immediately ordered his subordinates to reverse slowly, don't rush, until they saw someone hurriedly running to Chairman Zhu. Then he urged to leave quickly. Chairman Zhu hadn't expected to be tricked. At this time, the planning director also realized. No wonder they were so weak, falling with one hit. The escaping Fei Shu was quite pleased. Stupid fools, I have said that they're good at finding things. The naive Minji still thought they were good people, just said thank you. Unexpectedly, the two men suddenly looked at her like wolves. The man who saved her suddenly grabbed her throat, until the girl passed out. Only then did he release his hands. Fei Shui praised him at this point. The others in the cars should learn from you. As an operative rather than direct confrontation, completing the mission is most important. Must act quietly and stealthily from behind. Not knowing old Jin had already climbed onto one of their cars, quietly dealing with two people in the back seat. Seeing the white-haired man in front turning around, he kicked toward him, then quickly used the seatbelt to strangle the two unconscious. Seeing the car in front swerving like a drunk driver, the car behind immediately reported to Fei Shui. Perhaps due to the distance, he couldn't hear clearly what his subordinate was saying. Having controlled the entire car, old Jin pursued Fei Shui at high speed, then used the radio to speak to him. Fei Shui was stunned hearing the voice inside. Old Jin didn't waste words with him. If my daughter loses even one hair, prepare to die. Fei Shui sneered. So, it's code 66. Your era is over. What can you do to me? Besides, I've already reached headquarters. You better hurry, I'll wait with your daughter. Don't forget to bring a gift. Hearing this, old Jin said gravely, "It seems you like gifts. Wait for your big surprise then." Hearing this, Fei Shui thought the other must have gone mad. He immediately ordered his subordinates to seal the entrances and increase patrols. Take that girl to the underground interrogation room. Fei Shui's face twisted in anticipation of the gift, not knowing old Chang had already sneaked in by clinging under their car. Minji, taken to the interrogation room, was awakened by 2 slaps. Coming to her senses, she struggled and asked why she was handcuffed. Fei Shui told her directly, "Your father is a spy, and a famous one at that." Hearing this, Minji was shocked that her father was so capable. Fei Shui continued to frighten her. "Your father has caused serious trouble this time. Though unclear why, after staying quiet for 19 years, why did he suddenly explode? You know Zhu Ying construction, right? It seems related to them. Do you know why?" At this point, Minji remembered his daughter, said she had fought with his daughter. Hearing this, Fei Shui was speechless, then erupted in anger. So Code 66 did all this just because of a children's quarrel? Unforgivable. The girl suddenly learned that the father who raised her was actually H country's most capable spy, causing trouble everywhere to find her. Minji wanted to ask more about her father, but Fei Shui turned off the microphone, turned to his subordinates and said darkly, "Tell the people outside if they see Code 66, pretend to accidentally shoot him. He's dangerous. I'll take responsibility." Before finishing, someone came to notify Fei Shui, "Chief, the deputy minister wants to see you. Seems angry about the search warrant." Hearing this, Fei Shui was angry and walked out of the control room as soon as he left. A figure emerged. Minji spotted it and almost cried out. The man noticed her reaction, turned to look but saw nothing. Feeling fooled, he immediately slammed the table in rage, looking menacingly at Minji. "Don't think nonsense. No one will help you here." Though finding nothing, he still cautiously told those above that he was going to check outside. Went outside looking around, feeling Minji must have seen something. Finding nothing unusual, he prepared to return. Just as he swiped the door open, old Chang, hiding above, came down with a leg strike, knocking him unconscious, then walked into the interrogation room, looking at the stunned girl before him. Smiling kindly said, "Sorry to keep you waiting. I'll take you to your father." Then the two started running, carefully avoiding various patrol guards, but were eventually discovered. Both sides made eye contact. Just as they were about to speak, old Chang immediately delivered a flying kick, taking one down, then quickly dealt with the remaining 2, but the fighting still attracted other patrol guards. With Minji beside him to protect her from harm, old Chang could only continue running with her. Suddenly 3 figures darted out and attacked old Chang. To protect Minji, his face was cut with a bloody gash. The 3 smugly mocked old Chang, "Is this the legendary figure? How disappointing." Then they immediately reported the situation to Fei Shu, while being scolded by the deputy minister. Hearing this news, news, he immediately brought people over, smugly greeting old Cheng. The deputy minister behind him resentfully said, "Anyone who didn't know better would think you are the deputy minister." Fei Shui didn't waste words with old Cheng, ordered his subordinates to kill him. Just keep the girl alive. Old Cheng didn't surrender. While fighting them, he still protected Minji's safety. The observing subordinates, watching old Cheng handle things with ease, suggested to Fei Shui that they might need to hurt the girl to deal with him. Fei Shui's lips curled up. Do what you need to. A hostage minus a finger is still a hostage. Hearing this, the subordinates understood. In just a moment, they had subdued both of them. But then Fei Shui maliciously suggested to his subordinates, even missing an eye wouldn't matter. Perhaps in the moment before death, time seems to slow down, allowing one to see things usually invisible. Minji suddenly noticed there were wires behind this person. Just then, a steel cable wrapped around the deputy minister's neck. The choking sensation made him quickly said, "Stop." When people are in dangerous situations, they always first catch sight of their family members. Old Jin grimly shouted downward, telling everyone not to move, unless they wanted to see their deputy minister's head roll, but Fei Shui couldn't stand someone being more arrogant than him, instantly cocking his gun, planning to order his subordinates to kill the newcomers. Old Jin didn't go easy either, forcefully pulling the steel wire, threatening Ma Jihao to have his men lower their weapons. Sensing the presence of death, he immediately ordered his men to put down their guns, making Fei Shui's 300 pounds of flesh tremble with anger. Everyone looked at each other hesitantly, then all put down their weapons. Fei Shui wanted to stop them, but Ma Jihao ordered him to put down his weapon too. With no choice, Fei Shui reluctantly complied. But even so, he still defiantly said, "Code 66, do you think you can just walk out of the Special Operations Bureau's front door like this?" Since old Jin dared to come, he had naturally planned everything. Before coming, he had already contacted another old friend. Just as the standoff between both sides reached a stalemate, an explosion suddenly rang out, the powerful blast sending Fei Shui flying. A man wearing a custom t-shirt walked out of the smoke laughing. It was Park Jin-cheol, known as the war hero. At this moment, old Cheng took the opportunity to kick away the people surrounding them one by one. In the blink of an eye, he ran to the exit that Park Jin-cheol had blasted open. Meanwhile, Fei Shui's vitality was truly tenacious. Still not dead, he angrily ordered his men to pick up guns and chase. Seeing this, Park Jin-cheol directly threw a grenade, destroying the weapons on the ground, making Fei Shui gnash his teeth in anger. Seeing should go now, old Jin hold Ma Jihao captive, slowly approached the entrance, asked Park Jin-cheol if the car was ready, saying he had confirmed the escape route. But Park Jin-cheol innocently said, "I didn't prepare anything. Seeing you guys so urgent, I just ran over with weapons." Hearing this, both of them were stunned. At this moment, Fei Shui couldn't stand them just running away, directly shooting Ma Jihao dead, glared viciously at old Jin and said, "Code 66, I have one bullet left, just enough to kill you." Then turned around fiercely to command his subordinates. "What are you waiting for? Get them!" The few subordinates who received the order instantly charged toward old Jin, but these men didn't even last one round before being taken down, leaving Fei Shui stunned in place. Old Jin thought keeping people behind to chase them would only make escaping more difficult, might as well finish them off. Looking at the three towering figures blocking his path, Minji's heart instantly surged with hot blood, a deeply reassuring feeling welling up from the bottom of her heart. Never provoke middle-aged men wearing glasses, because they might be able to take on 10 people at once. Fei Shui's men continued to provoke the former kings of this place. Old Jin suddenly appeared in front of him. His taekwondo move was fluent, leaving the people watching dumbfounded. Old Jin showed no mercy, taking them down one by one. Minji saw her father being this impressive for the first time, shocked with her mouth hanging open. Park Jin-cheol recognized Minji at this time, smiling and greeting her. Then, like a chatterbox, while shooting down incoming knives, he chatted with her about studies. The enemies coming at him were like little chicks being casually crushed, and old Cheng's leg techniques were still as brutal as ever. As his men fell one after another, Fei Shui finally realized he might have provoked the wrong people, until all his subordinates behind him had fallen. He knew it was too late to regret now, facing this middle-aged man wearing glasses before him. He couldn't muster any spirit to resist, could only let old Jin take the car keys from his pocket. The overwhelming defeat completely crushed this 300-pound fat man's arrogant spirit. At this time, Minji looked back at Fei Shui, actually feeling a bit sorry for him. Old Jin then held Minji's hand, leading everyone to directly leave this place. Just as Fei Shui was standing dejectedly in place, the phone of Ma Jihao, whom he had killed, suddenly rang. It was actually a call from Zhu Kangkai. After answering the phone, Fei Shui directly told them about the situation with the three men, although knowing how formidable the three were. The planning director still didn't take them seriously. The group sped out of the Special Operations Bureau in Fei Shui's car. Old Jin saw them still persistently shooting to intercept, so he asked Park Jin-cheol for weapons. He fired 2 shots behind him. Old Jin still showed mercy, not hitting their vital points. As Park Jin-cheol accelerated outward, old Jin breathed a sigh of relief, finally safely escaped, and after experiencing this life-and-death crisis, the father and daughter looked at each other. Old Jin tightly hugged his daughter, repeatedly saying sorry, regretting putting his daughter in danger and not being able to rescue her earlier. Hearing this, Minji couldn't help but shed tears. At this moment, a truck suddenly crashed toward them, interrupting the father and daughter's mutual comfort. Park Jin-cheol desperately turned the steering wheel to avoid the car from flying off the road. But when they steadied the car, old Cheng looked outside and sensed something was wrong. Somehow they had been surrounded by 4 trucks. Then the truck in front slowly opened its cargo door. Standing inside was the planning director, just as he gave an order through his earpiece. The truck behind directly pushed their car toward the front truck's cargo area. But at this time, Park Jin-cheol excitedly whistled, thinking of how the planning director had acted so cool. He laughed until tears came out, saying, "Kids are really funny. He seems to have plans and preparations. Let's see how they perform. I'll give you some time. Let's see how many minutes you can last." Just as old Jin and the others' car was pushed into the cargo area, Nan director and his men put on gas masks. Then large amounts of gas began coming out of the cargo area's vents. Old Cheng instantly realized it was sleeping gas. Old Jin immediately told Minji not to panic. Just treat it like going to sleep. With Dad here, everything will be fine. A moment later, Nan director checked the time, estimating they should have passed out by now. The man came to the car, hearing Park Jin-cheol snoring from the driver's seat, believing they were asleep. After confirming Minji's identity, he prepared to take action. Apparently, they planned to make it look like old Jin and the others had been driving drunk and had taken large amounts of drugs. After the injections, they would hand it over to the cleanup team to handle the aftermath. Unexpectedly, the injection team went into the car but didn't come out. When they went to check, they found the people inside had been knocked out. Before he could react, he was kicked flying. Then the car suddenly started and crashed forward, followed by rapidly reversing, bursting out of the cargo area, landing steadily on the ground. Seeing this, Nan director quickly notified the cars behind to surround them. Old Jin looked at his sleeping daughter in the back seat, vowing to never let his daughter fall into danger again, then crashed through the truck beside them, directly drove up to Nan director, raised his hand gesturing for him to look behind. Nan director was stunned at first, but seemed to sense something, suddenly turned his head to look back, only to find Park Jin-cheol and old Cheng had somehow appeared behind him. Then Park Jin-cheol shouted for him to stand at attention, but before he could finish, he was punched flying by Nan director. Old Cheng was stunned seeing this, but seeing his incoming fist, he finally reacted and quickly dodged. Though Nan director's attacks were fierce, he couldn't land a single hit on old Cheng, and was caught by old Cheng, who took the chance to kick at his head, but was easily caught by Nan director, who immediately tripped his other foot, lifted him up and slammed him hard onto the ground, then secretly took out a finger blade, rapidly attacking old Cheng. Though he tried his best to dodge, he couldn't avoid getting injured. Finally, he found an opportunity to knock away Nan director's finger blade, but was caught and severely beaten. At this point, old Cheng felt his whole body go numb. Seeing Nan director catch the blade in midair, he thought, this is bad, lost too much blood earlier. Sure enough, facing Nan director's relentless attacks, old Cheng had no strength to defend, blood splashing everywhere. Nan director seized the chance to end the fight. Luckily, old Cheng desperately blocked with his hands. The two were locked in a stalemate at the edge of the truck. Old Cheng glanced at Park Jin-cheol, lying motionless on the ground, wondering when did this guy become so weak. Unexpectedly, this moment of distraction gave Nan director his chance, almost knocking him off the truck. Nan director proudly stepped on his hand and said, "Were you just looking at your friend? Sorry, but he's dead from me hitting his philtrum. As for you, let's just say you died in a car accident." Then repeatedly stomped on old Cheng's hand. Old Jin, seeing his brother in danger, prepared to go rescue him. Old Cheng saw his intention, roaring for him not to come. Quickly take Minji and leave. Just as Nan director was about to stomp old Cheng off, Park Jin-cheol suddenly appeared behind Nan director. Sensing danger, he instantly threw a punch backward, but was easily caught by old Cheng. When he saw Park Jin-cheol's current state, he was immediately stunned. Park Jin-cheol was actually still sleeping, not only snoring, but sleep talking. That's right, when they released the sleeping gas, Park Jin-cheol didn't try to hold his breath but actively inhaled it, planning to resist with willpower, but still fell asleep in the end. However, the boundary between human instinct for sleep and maintaining consciousness made his spirit fiercely wrestle between two thoughts, causing Park Jin-cheol to now be in REM sleep. Nan director was thoroughly annoyed by his state, instantly throwing punches non-stop, but they were all blocked by Park Jin-cheol, seeing Park Jin-cheol only defending and not actively attacking. Noticing this, Nan director immediately pulled out a dagger, stabbing toward Park Jin-cheol's chest. Unexpectedly, he was punched in the face by Park Jin-cheol. Blood immediately spurted from his nose. The powerful impact sent him flying several meters. That's right, this primitive beast had finally awakened. At this time, Nan director was still coughing blood, thinking this guy's strength is incredible. Seeing Park Jin-cheol walking toward him with anger, Nan director struggled to his feet, saying this is all an illusion, then immediately took up a fighting stance. Seeing this, Park Jin-cheol directly waved him over and said, "Come on, little guy, I'll fight you seriously." Nan director charged forward fiercely, instantly throwing several punches, all easily blocked by Park Jin-cheol. Park Jin-cheol caught his opening, heavily punching Nan director in the chest, making his eyes roll back. Flying several meters away, Park Jin-cheol didn't give him time to breathe, jumping high, knee striking forcefully toward him, but unfortunately was dodged. Nan director quickly retreated, keeping a safe distance from Park Jin-cheol. At this time, he finally realized the terror of the man before him. The CPC technique of suppressing opponents within 30 meters was completely useless. Just as he was stunned, old Cheng appeared behind him, directly gave him a punch, followed by Park Jin-cheol adding another punch, sending him flying, then walking to him saying, "Have you thought about how you want to die?" Facing Park Jin-cheol, this human tank, Nan director's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts about how to escape, just as he suddenly got up, running toward the outside of the truck, thinking while there's life there's hope, but when he about to jump off, he saw old Jin chasing in the car behind. That look seemed to be warning him he'd better not jump, or he'd end up as meat paste. Fortunately, Park Jin-cheol grabbed him, but what awaited him was endless torment. Park Jin-cheol violently slammed him onto the ground, then grabbed his head, repeatedly making it kiss the cargo area, until it left an impression. Suddenly, the vehicle seemed to arrive and stop. Park Jin-cheol stuck his head out to look, seeing a group of men in black leisurely fishing. Old Jin also got out of the car at this time, grimly telling the two to watch Minji for him, walking straight toward the fishing man. Sitting there was Zhu Kangkai of Zhu Ying Construction. Just as Old Jin slowly walked toward them, a subordinate said someone was coming. Old Zhu continued fishing leisurely, thinking Nan director had arrived. Unexpectedly, it wasn't. He immediately stood up. It looked like something went wrong. Seeing the situation, the subordinate volunteered to stop Old Jin, wanting to make a cool entrance. But Old Jin didn't want to waste time, directly kicked him flying. Other tough guys immediately went to help, but were all punched flying by Old Jin. Seeing his men fall one after another, Zhu Kangkai was somewhat stunned. Old Jin walked up to him and said, "Zhu Kangkai, let's talk. You must have a lot to say to me. We're both fathers. Don't you feel ashamed?" But Zhu Kangkai seemed to play dumb, staring at Old Jin with bright eyes. "At first, Nan director lost contact with me. I thought it was bad signal. But now it seems he must have been killed by you guys. Unbelievable. Heard you're from Special Forces KS 992. But Old Jin was speechless and said, "You don't seem to understand the situation." But Zhu Kangkai said, "You're the one who doesn't understand. Despite how good you are at fighting, do you dare lay hands on me? Hit me, come on." That's right, Old Jin didn't dare hit him. He just wanted to resolve things quickly, then live peacefully. Seeing his expression, Zhu Kangkai confidently offered an annual salary of millions for Old Jin to join him, also stating that in H country, people without money and power can only at the mercy of others. Although we met this way. Looking at his hand, Old Jin hesitated. He remembered his wife's dying words, promising her to take good care of Minji. But now finding his daughter's attacker, he didn't dare act. Old Jin seemed to figure something out at this time. Walked up to Zhu Kangkai and said, "Do you dare have a man-to-man duel with me? You make the rules, I'll let you move first." Hearing this, Zhu Kangkai became angry and said, "Giving you a chance, but you don't know to cherish it." Then punched Old Jin in the face. Sure, Old Jin wouldn't dare fight back. He pointed at his head and mocked, "Hit me, bastard. If you dare hit me, be prepared for the result that follows. I can make you and your daughter disappear from this world." Hearing this, Old Jin didn't hesitate, directly punching him in the face. His wife's words kept echoing in his mind. "You must take good care of Minji, protect her. You asked earlier which unit I'm from. I'm from the Special Operations Bureau, codename Code 66. At this time, Hui Li still didn't know her father was getting beaten, could only anxiously wait at home. Old Jin looking at Zhu Kangkai lying in the water like a dead dog, afraid he'd drown, grabbed him up, throwing him heavily onto the shore, glaring at him fiercely, "Stop playing dead, stand up." Realizing what happened, Zhu Kangkai immediately felt a surge of humiliation, couldn't help but clench his fists, throwing a punch at Old Jin, saying, "From childhood to now I have never been beaten by others." Before he could finish speaking, Old Jin directly sent him flying with a punch, because he knew, whether he fought back or not, the man before him wouldn't spare his father and daughter. So Old Jin went all out. Feeling his dignity trampled, Zhu Kangkai immediately took out his phone, roaring at Old Jin, "Know what this phone is worth? In H country I don't rely on fists, but connections. Eye contact, any one of them could make you die without a burial place." Hearing Zhu Kangkai's boasting, Old Jin ignored it, instead took out his phone, dialing someone's number, asking if they could dissolve Zhu Ying Construction. The voice on the other end confidently replied, "This can be done." Zhu Kangkai heard this too, directly stunned, even thinking Old Jin had conspired with others to fool him. But the next second he found someone calling him, seeming to realize something, wanted to hang up and avoid it. But Old Jin told him to answer the phone, said, "Didn't you always think you had supreme power? Today let you see there's always someone higher, always someone stronger." Answering the phone, Zhu Kangkai immediately fell to his knees, pale as death, unable to believe the fact that someone could easily take away everything he had. Angrily punched Old Jin in the face and said, "It's impossible." Old Jin, of course, wouldn't go easy on him now. While beating him, he thanked him, "Thanks to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made up my mind to call that person. To protect Minji, I'll do anything." Minji had woken up by this time, seeing her father like this for the first time. Tears couldn't help but flow down. Old Cheng asked her, "Do you hate your father like this?" Minji recalled how her father always avoided answering when she asked about his past, even thought it was because he didn't love her. But now it seemed things weren't as she had thought. Park Jin came over to tease Minji. "Are these tears of apology and gratitude for your father? Don't cry, I will tell you a secret. How about that? It's about your father." Minji became interested, but Old Cheng said, "You're planning to tell about what happened before, right? She's still a child." Park Jin Cheol said, "She's an adult now. It's fine for her to know," leaving Minji completely puzzled. "You must be very curious how we became friends with your father. You'll probably be shocked when you hear it. We were all legendary figures in the past. Actually, Old Jin isn't from H country but from CX country, due to a war intelligence error that caused all his teammates to die. Only he survived, being captured and brought to H country. That day in Old Jin's middle school class, a military officer suddenly came, under the pretense of recruiting social sports team members, asked students good at sports to raise their hands. With such a good opportunity, the classmates all eagerly volunteered. But then this officer said there was only one, letting them compete for it. Until finally, only one person stood in class, Park Yongguang. As they were about to leave, the officer glimpsed a student at Park Yongguang's feet, firmly biting his pant leg. This was Old Jin. The officer, seeing he had the determination of a warrior, recruited him too. Just when asking Old Jin's name, found him staring intently at himself. He immediately stomped on his face repeatedly. Actually, this was all a scam, but it was too late. They were taken to an island, receiving devil's training. The first lesson upon arriving was to forget their own names, only needing to remember their number, and Old Jin's code was 66. Park Yongguang, who came with him, was 73. Every day's lesson was getting beaten until they forgot their names. After about a month, they finally forgot their own names. However, what followed was training beyond life and death, hands tied and thrown in water to practice holding breath. Real combat with cold weapons. Losers not only had no dinner, but also got beaten by instructors. This life worse than death left Old Jin seeing no hope. That day, Park Yongguang handed a rice ball to him, but old Jin thought he was pitying a beggar, told him to get lost. Park Yong-gwang said that wasn't his intention, because we're classmates. Just this one sentence brought a glimmer of light to old Jin's dark world. After 3 years of devil's training, they finally had to go to the battlefield for real combat. A 3-day mission. Old Jin was nervous, while Park Yong-gwang was quite relaxed, thinking once they survived and returned they'd be free, then go home and start a family. Old Jin dejectedly said, "Start a family? I can't even remember my name. So not dream about it, tomorrow the operation begins." But just then Park Yong-gwang suddenly said, "Your surname is Jin." Hearing this familiar yet strange surname, old Jin was stunned. Old Jin was surprised how he remembered. Park Yong-gwang said, "The first day when we were beaten, though I forgot my name. Somehow I couldn't forget your surname, strange." That night, old Jin couldn't sleep. His surname kept echoing in his mind. He seemed to have found a reason to live. The next night, they prepared to raid a stronghold, but couldn't contact their connection person. With no choice, they had to attack first, but inside they only found a signal jammer. When they realized they'd been tricked, it was too late. There was a flash of white light, followed by a boom. His teammates all fell before him. He was spared only because he entered late. The dying Park Yong-gwang asked old Jin where his leg went. Looking at his severed leg, old Jin couldn't help but cry. Just then the radio suddenly transmitted, "Mission aborted. If anyone still alive commit suicide. Absolutely cannot leak intelligence." Park Yong-gwang grabbed old Jin close and he said, "Don't die. This is my first and last request. Don't listen to that guy. No matter what happens, you must live." After saying this, Park Yong-gwang died. Old Jin, who survived, was captured. Old Jin was taken to a secret base for questioning. Learning he had no family and had forgotten his name, plus received over 3 years of training, the commander suddenly became interested, wanting to test old Jin's skills. Asked how about sparring with an H-country elite. Old Jin looked back, saw a long-haired trendy man. This was a rock star wasted on the military, saying in a weird tone, "Rock stars don't fight casually." The commander was speechless too, reminding Park Jin-cheol, "You're a soldier, show some image, spare his life." But Park Jin-cheol said he couldn't. "In battle, either you die or I die. If you want to live, give it your all." Hearing his words, old Jin stayed silent, instead recalling Park Yong-gwang's dying words. "No matter what happens, you must live. And before the mission started, hope you definitely won't forget me. If even you forget me, no one will remember me." Old Jin promised he wouldn't forget. "These 3 years we were together every day. I'm code 66. You're code 73. Old Jin now had a way in his heart to not forget him. Directly said Park Jin-cheol wasn't worthy to take his life because his only friend asked him to live. Park Jin-cheol said, "Tell me your name. I don't kill nameless ghosts." Old Jin took his stance saying code 66. After a fierce battle between the two, even turning the commander's office into ruins, they couldn't overcome each other. The commander complained, "Couldn't you fight outside?" But Park Jin-cheol said, "Let's stop here. I don't want to fight with this guy anymore." The commander was confused, asking how strong was he. Park Jin-cheol said, "I left him several openings but he didn't take the bait. Keep fighting and it's not clear who would win or lose. As for strength, he's definitely strong." As soon as he came in, this guy saw all the angles of everything, and instinctively imprinted all the environment needed for battle in his mind. Am I right, code 66? Though I don't know the reason. But if you're determined not to forget, then persist to the end because that's loyalty. Seeing Park Jin-cheol finally leave, the commander slowly stood up, recalling Park Jin-cheol's words, meaning, "Let this guy live?" Old Jin expressionlessly said, "I'm captured now. If you want to deal with me, do it quickly." But the commander said, "H country doesn't kill people casually. What needs to be dealt with now is your future life. Live normally like others. If you're willing, I can teach you." The commander was a very kind person. He taught old Jin how to live in H country, just as old Jin had lived peacefully in H country for 2 years. That day, the general had old Jin go to CX to execute a mission, saying this was his chance to be recognized as a true H country person. After completing the mission, he would adopt him as his godson. However, this mission made old Jin clearly realize he was unwelcome by both sides. Soon they arrived at where the target was. It turned out this bald man was about to order artillery strikes on H country when his subordinate brought the document for the chief to sign. A gunshot rang out. His head was blown off. Getting the evidence documents, old Jin immediately called for his teammates to leave, but his teammate pointed his gun at him. Sensing danger, old Jin demanded what he meant, only to hear him said, "Sorry, because someone doesn't want you to return alive." It turned out after old Jin and others left, an officer came to report to the general. The president expressed deep concerns about organizing personnel from CX, so the general ordered those executing the mission together to leave code 66 there permanently. Soon, CX soldiers who heard the gunshots rushed over, but the scene before them left their mouths hanging open in shock. They saw old Jin standing there alone, emanating killing intent. Yes, he had killed all the teammates who tried to kill him. Feeling people approach but not moving to act, old Jin looked back at them and said, "Why are you standing there? Come arrest me already." Old Jin was tired of this world and gave up resisting. He wanted to go see code 73. At that moment, someone walked in and mentioned his former unit number in CX and his training code, code 66. Old Jin looked up at the person before him. It was the military officer who had tricked him into joining the unit. He ordered his subordinates to release old Jin. He took him to a room. Seeing old Jin stare silently at the food before him, he asked if he had gotten too used to H country's food and no longer liked CX's. Old Jin then questioned him, being inexplicably taken away and forced to forget their names. But why abandon us? At the very least, we were human too. After hearing his complaints, the officer said, "How much of of H country's emotional propaganda have you absorbed? Yes, abandoning you was cruel, but I had no choice at the time. The higher-ups wouldn't let me order a rescue, so I'm sorry for what happened to you. You know, in the military we must follow orders. I apologize again, just rest well these few days. You can move freely as long as you don't leave this town. Old Jin walked through the small town, experiencing what it felt like to live like a normal person. He found it ironic that CX was the one that gave him his first taste of freedom, and it was here that he met the most important woman in his life, who was Minji's mother. That encounter quickly led them to fall in love. After dating for a short while, they confirmed their feelings for each other. However, some people just can't stand seeing others live happy and peaceful lives. That day, the lieutenant general came to find old Jin with weapons and equipment, wanting him to kill someone, and scolding Jin for getting involved with a town girl. Old Jin directly refused, expressing his desire to live a peaceful life. The lieutenant general hinted, "Your presence here seems to have spread. I tried to stop it, but someone seems to have noticed your existence and wants to kill that girl and you. I can't help it." Hearing this, Old Jin immediately agreed, but insisted that the girl's safety must be guaranteed. Seeing Old Jin take the bait, he immediately pulled out the target's photo and said, "The leader wanted to push his eldest son as his successor, which made many people very unhappy. So you are the best candidate for this mission." Meanwhile, in H country, Park Jin Cheol also received an assassination mission. H country didn't want this person to become the successor because he was not only a warmonger, but also a nuclear development advocate. For H country's peace, this person must be eliminated. Unexpectedly, Old Cheng also received this mission. Because of one assassination mission, 3 men were about to meet. Old Jin arrived at a luxury hotel because the lieutenant general told him that the heir would stay here for some time. So Old Jin came to the hotel early to prepare. He wanted to book a room below the targets but found it was already occupied. It turned out to be Park Jin Cheol, who had already installed listening devices. With no choice, he could only book a room above the target. However, coincidentally, the room above had also been occupied an hour ago. It was Old Cheng who was constantly adjusting his listening equipment. Realizing something was wrong, Old Jin directly booked the heir's room. The staff told him, "Sir, this room must be vacated within a week." Old Jin readily agreed. After all, those above and below would be checking out. Park Jin Cheol heard familiar sounds from upstairs but couldn't remember who it was. Old Jin lay on the bed, constantly muttering to himself, taunting those above and below. Finally saying, "I'm hungry. I'm going to eat something at the bar restaurant next door." Meanwhile, Park Jin Cheol and Old Cheng both heard this and prepared to meet this person. In the restaurant, Old Jin sat alone waiting for something. Soon someone pulled out the chair opposite him. Park Jin Cheol, disguised as a singer, ordered a meal from the waiter. Old Jin recognized him and questioned why he was there. Park Jin Cheol countered, "Code 66, I should be asking why you're here." Old Jin found his appearance quite displeasing, said, "Be honest, I don't want to hear your nonsense." While Park Jin Cheol said, "Isn't it impolite to point a gun at me?" Yes, Old Jin had his gun aimed at him. He said, "You're here on a mission, right? And put away those things you're wearing." Park Jin Cheol, that madman, revealed the various grenades he was wearing. With no choice, both put away their weapons, exchanging words to probe each other. Suddenly, a commotion attracted their attention. They saw Old Cheng standing in the middle of the hall wearing some kind of ceremonial outfit. Old Cheng also noticed the two who didn't fit in with the place. Must be that guy from downstairs in the hotel. Thus, the 3 men had their first encounter. Old Jin spoke first. "How rare. I meet 2 H country people here." Old Cheng poured himself a drink and said, "Your provocation at the hotel was too obvious." But Park Jin Cheol said, "First, the most important thing today is not to attract attention." Immediately, both Old Jin and Old Cheng turned to look at him and said, "Your outfit makes it hard not to notice." Park Jin Cheol squeezed out a few tears with frustration and said, "You in the white ceremonial robe, also strange." Old Cheng then got straight to the point, "I'm here to assassinate heir Jin Xiaopan. This is something I must do. I hope you two won't interfere." After hearing this, Park Jin Cheol also stated his target was Jin Xiaopan. "Although I don't know who you're taking orders from, I'm executing a national mission. I don't care if you try to stop me, because neither of you is my match." Then he kept boasting about how great he was, leaving Old Jin and Old Cheng speechless. Then Old Cheng started laughing non-stop, finally suddenly splitting the table in half with one strike, attracting everyone's attention. Old Cheng stared fiercely at Park Jin Cheol. "You long-haired soldier are quite interesting." Park Jin Cheol was also said angrily, "Didn't I just say to avoid attention-drawing behavior?" Then the two started fighting, trading kicks and punches. Old Jin recalled what the lieutenant general had told him. "If someone's interference causes the mission to fail, we're dead. You and me and that woman." He immediately stopped them. "Are H country people always this impulsive? Are you treating this mission as a joke? This is about assassinating someone who's about to become a head of state. Are you taking it too lightly? Have you thought about how your behavior might interfere with someone who's prepared to risk their life? Since you want to decide who gets to assassinate him first, come with me." These 3 men's thoughts were always surprisingly similar. Just as they were about to go out for a proper fight, they found themselves surrounded by thugs holding weapons. They stared at them fiercely and asked, "Who are you? Why are you causing trouble on someone else's turf?" Seeing the hostile attitude, the 3 were stunned for a moment. Then they acted simultaneously. Soon they had the group lying all over the place. The 3 wanted to continue their second battle, but suddenly police sirens were heard. Someone had called the police, but when the officers came in and saw the scene, they were so shocked their mouths wouldn't close. Old Jin, who had been hiding in the hotel for 3 days, suddenly appeared in the lobby, because today Jin Xiaopan would check into the hotel. Old Cheng also came out then, spotting Old Jin. He sat right next to him and said, "Did you also hide for 3 days before coming out?" Although it's unfortunate, we all think alike. But Old Jin was quite disgusted, said, said, "Don't sit next to me wearing that weird outfit, it's too conspicuous." Old Cheng replied, "Why not chat with me? That way we won't look suspicious." And an even stranger person has come out. They saw Park Jin-cheol standing in the lobby was surveying something. Then this scene appeared on the lobby's sofa. Old Jin, stuck in the middle, was somewhat speechless. He said, "Do you still want to execute the mission?" Old Cheng got serious then. "Honestly, let me kill him. I have reasons why I must execute this mission. Actually, you don't care who kills him, right? As long as the mission goal is achieved." Hearing his words, Old Jin recalled what the lieutenant general had said. "You must personally cut his throat, otherwise I'll have no grounds to protect that woman." Thinking of this, Old Jin stood up and refused Old Cheng. "Sorry, I must kill him personally. Don't interfere, or I'll take you out first." At this moment, a group of men in black walked in from outside, interrupting Old Cheng, who wanted to continue arguing. Hearing they were here to check into room 1406, they all looked inside. The staff kept apologizing, explaining that the room's guest hadn't checked out yet. Suddenly, one of them felt someone watching them. Looking back but finding no suspicious people. Actually, Old Jin and the others had already hidden behind the sofa door. Upon learning their reserved room was taken, the leader felt something was off and told those around him to add more security personnel. Old Jin's trio also heard this, although they didn't communicate with each other. But they all knew that executing the mission alone would be very difficult now, because this group had become suspicious and increased security. The original plan wouldn't work anymore, so now the three had no choice but to work together, temporarily. Back in their room, the three divided the work clearly. Soon Jin Xiaopan's location was confirmed, and they agreed to meet at that door together at 2 a.m. tomorrow. Old Cheng expressed his concern then. "The main issue now is the security personnel. We don't know their capabilities," Park Jin-cheol said overconfidently. "With the three of us in action, won't we handle them easily?" Old Jin didn't waste words, just repeated the time, reminding the other two not to be late. However, the three men arrived 3 hours early at the destination, clearly all wanting to execute the mission alone. Old Cheng spoke first. "It's only 11 o'clock. Park Jin-cheol immediately said he drank too much water during the day and came out to pee. Old Jin stared at the two of them and thought, country people really aren't honest. The three didn't waste more words, heading straight for the hotel. Meeting security who came to stop them, without a word, they killed them directly. But then, Old Jin suddenly noticed that guy Park Jin-cheol run to the entrance alone, telling the security inside that there were strange people causing trouble outside. Seeing the inside security rush out, he took the chance to run inside, making Old Jin and Old Cheng angry. Seeing them about to pull out their guns, Old Jin quickly shot them first, while Park Jin-cheol inside hadn't had time to feel smug. He was knocked down by a big guy's punch, mocking him. "Are you a man or a woman?" Old Cheng also met a tough opponent then, being forced to constantly dodge. Moreover, the opponent recognized him. "Are you Cheng Hanju? I've heard of you." Old Cheng was somewhat surprised. "Am I that famous in CX?" Meanwhile, Old Jin had quietly crawled into the ventilation duct. If the blueprint was correct, Jin Xiaopan should be in the room below. But just then, Old Jin suddenly saw a familiar figure. He even doubted his eyes were playing tricks on him. Why would she be here? The woman also noticed him then. They looked at each other. The woman smiled and called out to him, "Code 66. But Old Jin quietly asked what she was doing here. The woman called him down and said, "You must have many questions in your mind now." The security nearby also heard the commotion from the woman's direction. Just as they were about to walk over, they were rewarded with a bullet. Then Old Jin came down from the ventilation, asking the woman with tears what was going on. "You should explain this to me, right? My mind is very confused now." Just then a voice came. "What explanation do you need? This woman is just a puppet. Have you heard of actors? She approached you just to use you. We were used too. In other words, the people behind you used you and that woman to plan a coup." Old Jin understood everything then. So the lieutenant general had been setting him up all along, arranging a well-trained performance group throughout the town, tricking him for over half a year without anyone knowing, and using the woman to tame him to do things for her. Old Baek interrupted his thoughts then. "Lin Yujin, that guy is code 73, right?" She obediently answered the man, "Yes." Then Old Baek pulled out his gun and aimed at her. "Now that it's confirmed, we don't need you anymore." The woman still obediently replied, "Okay." Old Jin, seeing this, immediately hugged the woman and dodged that bullet. At this moment, Lin Yujin's cold heart seemed to start melting. Old Jin also didn't know why. Seeing her in danger, he couldn't help wanting to protect her. Maybe because they were both abandoned, pitiful people. Old Baek was surprised and said, "You can't save her, you can live, but she must die." Old Jin calmly replied, "Then what if I kill all of you? Can we live?" Hearing this, Old Baek understood his meaning and said, "Then let's see if you have that ability." The man's strength was enough to easily lift a cow, but now he was easily lifted by someone else. Old Cheng was still constantly fighting with his opponent and gradually falling behind. Old Lee knew he was some national taekwondo champion. He had seen him on TV, mocking Old Cheng that it was just for show. In real combat, it was completely useless. Anyone with solid basics could easily suppress the opponent. Let Old Cheng see a real spinning kick, constantly kicking at him, while Old Cheng could only defend passively because the opponent's attacks were too fierce. Suddenly, Old Cheng failed to dodge, was kicked flying to the wall, making Old Lee said proudly, "Is this the strength of a national champion?" Old Cheng struggled to stand up, not responding to his mockery. The reason Old Lee mocked him like this was because his son had once seen Old Cheng's competition on TV, thought it was cool and liked it, even asked Dad who would win if he fought the person on TV. Old Lee smiled and told his son, Of course it would be Dad. So he wanted to defeat Old Chang and go home to brag to his son. At the crucial moment, both men jumped high, but Old Chang was much higher than him. Looking down at him high enough, "Is that how you do a spinning kick?" Old Chang stepped on him, using his body spinning 4 times in the air, kicking him hard to the ground. "My basics are much stronger than yours. Go tell your son, you can't defeat me." Then he came to the hotel entrance, just to see Park Jin-cheol holding up someone bigger than himself. Old Wen couldn't believe it himself. His 300-pound self could one day be lifted high. Then Park Jin-cheol roared, "Rock and roll forever!" and slammed Old Wen hard to the ground. At this moment, he only felt like his cervical and spine were about to break, but it wasn't a big problem. He did a backflip and stood up, even shocking Park Jin-cheol for a moment. This big guy's vitality is really tough. Old Wen said, "You gave me a whole new experience today. Should I return the favor?" With that, he threw a heavy punch at Park Jin-cheol. Old Wen, who wanted to mock a few words, saw Park Jin-cheol directly counterattack with a punch. This punch caught him off guard. Then the two started trading hard blows. Old Chang took the chance to sneak upstairs. While on Old Jin's side, Old Baek directly aimed his gun at him. "You think we in the security bureau are useless? Think I wouldn't dare kill you because I spared your life? Don't overestimate yourself." Speaking, he shot at Old Jin's heart. "I was going to capture you alive, but since you want to die, I'll grant your wish." Then he fired 2 more shots. "You can take all the blame here." Poor fellow, abandoned again after being used. Then Old Baek handed the gun to Lin Yu-jin. "Your mission is over. Code 66 is dead. Commit suicide. It's time to show your loyalty." Lin Yu-jin took his gun directly after hearing this, pointing it at herself, saying, "I unconditionally obey the orders." But suddenly she started crying and said, "I truly loved him, and I never disobeyed orders." With that, she pulled the trigger, yet felt no pain. Old Baek suddenly started applauding then. "You passed the test. Your loyalty has been confirmed. You were just used by Li Yinglin. Let's go." As luck would have it, just as they were leaving, they met Old Chang, who was coming upstairs looking for the target, thinking he was just a civilian. But Old Chang couldn't help speaking up. "Room 302 is a trap." Old Baek didn't hesitate to shoot at him. "From your accent, you're from H country. Who sent you?" Old Chang shouted at him. "Why are only you two coming out? Where's that guy?" Old Baek kept shooting while answering. "Code 66, what's your relationship with him? Were you also sent by Li Yinglin?" Hearing his answer, Old Chang pondered, "Did that guy die?" The man who had been shot 3 times in the chest appeared unharmed behind Old Baek. It turned out that before this, Park Jin-cheol had specially prepared bulletproof vests for both of them. Old Jin had originally complained it was too heavy and didn't want to wear it, but couldn't resist Park Jin-cheol's constant nagging. Had no choice but to put on the bulletproof vest, thanks to Old Jin wearing it, or he would have died. He grabbed Old Baek's gun hand, quickly emptying the bullets inside, saying to him, "Now do you think we can live?" Then kicked him flying several meters away. "Once my only friend died in front of me. After that I was in a daze for a long time before moving on. So now I don't want to lose anything important, you know? She is my woman. No matter what happens, I will always protect her." Hearing Old Jin's words, Old Baek couldn't help laughing and said, "You really are a naive guy. Don't you know the performance? Team members have no sympathy. They receive training from childhood, living their whole lives under others' control. Although I don't understand love, she absolutely won't fall in love with you. And don't you know I'm stalling for time? They're coming soon." Then taking advantage of Old Jin's momentary distraction, grabbed his collar and kicked him flying. "What a foolish guy. I advise you to surrender. You can suffer less torture." While Park Jin-cheol was constantly getting beaten, suddenly, he was sent flying by Old Wen's punch, crashing hard into the wall, but still muttering, "Rock and roll, love, peace." Old Wen walked to him saying, "I'm a very petty person. Now I'll return the surprise you gave me." Then grabbed Park Jin-cheol's head and slammed it hard on the ground, and the men with long hair, until he was beaten unconscious. His mouth was still muttering about rock and roll, and in his unconscious state, he actually dreamed of his idol, Queen Band. Park Jin-cheol excitedly called out to his idol, but the idol roared at him. "The long hair that symbolizes rock is being insulted. The future of H country rock depends on you. If you lose, rock history will regress." Just then, Park Jin-cheol miraculously stood up, tying up his beautiful hair, saying, "The march of H country rock starts from me." Old Wen said, "Brat, what nonsense are you talking about? Want me to break your legs?" Park Jin-cheol didn't waste words with him, directly rewarded him with a punch. Park Jin-cheol with his hair tied up seemed like a completely different person, instantly suppressing Old Wen. At this moment, he realized he was about to be eliminated. Facing Park Jin-cheol's iron fists, he didn't know how to defend, was directly defeated by Park Jin-cheol, but he hadn't been proud for 3 seconds when he felt many footsteps coming from outside. Looking back, he found the hall was already full of security personnel. Suddenly, he seemed to discover something else, immediately ran upstairs, shouting to Old Jin and the other, "What did you do?" making Old Baek completely confused. It turned out downstairs another group of thugs was facing off with the security personnel. The leader was Big Dummy, whom Old Jin and others had beaten at the restaurant. It turned out that before coming, Old Chang had given them a call, telling them if they wanted revenge to come to this hotel. The original plan was to create chaos to cover things up, and it actually came in handy. Just escape during the chaos later. Now just need to deal with this guy. "Can you do it, Code 66? Old Jin asked curiously. "How do you know this name?" But Code 66 is already in the past. The man's overconfidence cost him his life, thinking emotionless actors wouldn't develop real feelings. Under Old Jin and the others' joint attack, Old Baek took a heavy punch when he wasn't paying attention, crashed hard into the wall, while Park Jin-cheol wanted to go beat him. Unexpectedly was dodged by this guy. Old Baek even grabbed the opportunity to lift him up, then slammed him hard to the ground, knocking Park Jin-cheol unconscious, making Old Jin and the others stunned. "Looks like this security bureau guy has some skills." Old Baek looked down at them and said, "You've successfully angered me. I'm going to be serious." furious. Then he charged fiercely at the two. He fought back and forth with them, but as time passed gradually showed signs of losing. Then hurriedly turned back to shout at Lin Yujin, telling her to quickly pick up the gun on the ground, load the magazine, find a chance to kill these two. She obediently bent down to pick up the gun. Seeing Lin Yujin with the gun, old Jin and the other were stunned, while old Bake shouted at her to shoot. A gunshot rang out. All three stood still. Old Bake's face full of questions. Never thought this woman would shoot at him. It turned out earlier, after old Jin was shot and fell, she noticed old Jin wasn't dead, but had passed out, and noticed he seemed to be counting something. Went forward to check his pulse. Deceived old Bake that he was dead. Only when old Bake handed her the gun asking her to commit suicide did she understand what old Jin's fingers were counting. It was the remaining bullets. So she unhesitatingly shot. Old Bake held his bleeding neck looking at her in disbelief. And didn't I say? I never disobeyed orders. Didn't you order me to fall in love with this man? So I followed your orders and truly fell in love with him. How many women wouldn't be moved by a man willing to give his life for them? Women crazy about love are very frightening. Then Lin Yujin walked to old Jin and others. Park Jin Cheol had also woken up by now, but just then several people heard police sirens from outside. The fighting here had been too noisy, attracting the police, but when old Jin said to leave here, Lin Yujin said, "You guys go, with me you might not be able to escape. I was very happy during the time we spent together, but please forget me, you must live on well." Old Jin couldn't believe what she said, while the two men looked at each other, seeming to decide something. Then old Cheng choked old Jin, ignoring his roars, saying, "Do you know what will happen to you if you stay?" Old Cheng said, "I don't know your relationship, but have to take him back, so goodbye." Lin Yujin heard his words, first stunned, then smiled and answered, "Then I'll leave him to you." Soon old Cheng carried old Jin out of the hotel, saying, "You can scold me when you wake up, but my judgment is definitely right. You'd do the same if it were me, I'm sorry." Just then, Park Jin Cheol carrying Yujin caught up with old Cheng said, "Hey, why are you pretending to faint?" Yujin closed her eyes answering him, "Romance, okay, don't talk to me." Seeing this, old Cheng said, "Why did you bring her out?" Park Jin Cheol said one more person wasn't a big problem. He said he knew a good place for washing baths, money, identity, could wash everything clean. Many rich people liked going there. Heard the owner was from H country. Seeing old Cheng come here keeping going down, Park Jin Cheol was curious. Is this really the way to the pawn shop? Old Cheng turned to answer him, "I'm not sure either, and really can't stand those two lovebirds behind." Park Jin Cheol deeply agreed. Just as old Cheng wanted to say something, a woman suddenly ran out crying, saying, "Too much, hateful Ping Jian." Hearing this name, old Cheng confirmed he hadn't found the wrong place. The most lecherous lecher in here. Seeing their appearance, the old lecher knew business was coming. Can you believe this old pervert is already 72 years old? Just as old Cheng brought them to meet old Zhao, old Jin had some doubts about whether this person was really that capable. Looking at the person before him, old Cheng was also uncertain, as he too had come based on hearsay. Old Zhao noticed them at this moment. "Wow, are you the ones who caused trouble in CX country? It's all over the news, failed assassination of CX's successor. How did you think of coming here? If I report you, I could make quite a fortune." Old Cheng replied, "If you wanted to call the police, you wouldn't have let us in. I heard you're a laundering expert." Suddenly old Zhao choked on that small tomato. Old Park mocked him, "You are quite fragile." Before he could finish speaking, he was kicked by one of his subordinates. Meanwhile, old Jin and his companion were also attacked. After a while, old Zhao recovered, only to find his subordinates had been subdued by them instantly. "You guys are quite strong." Old Cheng said, "No time left, old man. Hurry up and launder for us." Hearing this, old Zhao said irritatedly, "Is it okay to be so impolite just because you have no time, little brother?" Then he leaped forward, landing steadily in front of him. Old Cheng couldn't believe this distance. He said, "I hate two types of people in my life. First are those who come to me for favors without money. Second are those who have no money and no manners." Old Park wanted to argue with him, but old Zhao kept ordering more wine to be brought. "Come on, little ones, let me see how much you can drink." Tianwai Pawn Shop is a place where people from all over the world come to launder things. No matter what it is, they can help you clean it here, but it has a peculiar rule. If you can outdrink the owner Zhao Pingjin, also known as Old Zhao, he will provide his services for free. The high service fees make many people tempted, but in 50 years, no one has ever been able to outdrink him. Yet old Jin didn't believe this, he went first. Ignoring old Cheng's advice, this was nothing compared to the training he'd received before. "I could walk out of a pile of corpses, passing out from this bit of alcohol is impossible." However, after just 2 drinks, he collapsed directly on the ground. Old Park said, "Useless fellow, well, someone who's barely lived in society, how could he handle alcohol? I'm next." Then both men started drinking from the bottles. Unexpectedly, old Park was truly fierce at drinking. Soon they had finished 3 boxes of wine, everyone was cheering them on. Only old Cheng knew his current state, he had reached his limit, now purely running on willpower. Looking at that old man, his face hadn't changed at all. The outcome was clear, need to stop him. Old Park also noticed their intentions, told them not to come over. "This is a battle between men, I'd rather drink myself to death than admit defeat." While old Zhao got more excited as he drank, "Haven't met such a spirited young man in a long time. Bring all the wine up here." Soon the alcohol they drank piled up like mountains. Old Park was seen lying on his leg. The waiter came to old Zhao's side to tell him the shop was out of wine. Hearing this, old Park struggled to get up again. saying he could still continue drinking, but was knocked unconscious by old Chang with one strike. The outcome is decided. Let's get back to business. This is a pawn shop, right? Surely we can pawn something for washing. Old Zhao said, indeed you can, but what will you pawn? Champion Cheng Hanju. Old Cheng was curious how he knew him. Old Zhao continually said, I was your fan back then. But how did someone as famous as you get involved in this kind of thing? Actually, the reason old Cheng rushed to complete this mission was that he had no choice. That day, two people suddenly came to forcefully recruit him into the military. You can refuse, but the country needs you. I advise you not to try to escape. However, if you can kill CX's successor, Jin Xiaopan, I'll use my authority to exempt you from service. So this caused tomorrow's star to have no choice but to embark on this path of no return. At this moment, old Zhao, being a fan of old Cheng, decided to help him and the long-haired soldier once, but not old Jin and his woman. Hearing this, old Cheng said if those two weren't included, then it would be meaningless. The reason we came was to help those two. Excluding them would make coming here completely pointless. Just as old Zhao was about to express his difficulties, he was interrupted by old Cheng. Hey woman, turn around. Then old Cheng knelt before old Zhao, willing to sacrifice his dignity for friends he barely knew. If you're going to help, please help them this once. I beg you to help them. Senior Zhao, I'll stake my knees on this, is that okay? Faced with this sudden, honorific and grand gesture, old Zhao was curious. What's Champion Cheng's relationship with this guy? Why do so much for him? Yeah, actually, he didn't need to do this. They haven't known each other long. But when he thought about how old Jin and Yu Jin met, he couldn't help but want to help this iron-blooded yet tender-hearted man. So please help me this once. He's my friend. A friend with many stories. Old Zhao was silent for a while, thinking, Champion Cheng is so cool to go to such lengths for a friend. Not bad. I'm starting to like you. I'll help this time, but next time use something else as collateral. Soon, old Zhao arranged a boat and new identities for them. At this time, old Park watched old Cheng enjoying the sea breeze on deck, saying, why don't you come inside? Aren't you cold? Although the ending was slightly imperfect. Didn't things work out smoothly? Come in and rest a bit. Old Cheng remained silent hearing his words. Old Jin was seen sitting there lost in thought, missing someone. It turned out that before this, old Zhao had made a phone call to someone, requesting them to arrange an identity for old Jin. But after hearing this, the other party flew into a rage, refusing old Zhao's request. Do you know if that guy lives? All our plans here will be ruined, and North-South relations will have big problems. Old Zhao didn't care. Hee. I know you also arranged people to assassinate Jin Xiaopan. But don't just look at the surface, look at the bigger picture. North-South relations haven't been good for a long time. It's like a marriage, constantly having cold wars. Let's not mention past things. Lao Kui replied, that's not necessarily true, so what are you trying to say? Old Zhao sneered, you absolutely cannot unify. Haven't you always dreamed of making your North Branch work group elite? If you use this guy well, it should be possible. At this time, old Jin heard he had to go back to H country, wanted to refuse, but was stopped by old Park. Lao Kui, use your brain, think about which is more beneficial. This is someone who dared to assassinate CX's successor. If this kind of person returns to CX, and they send him to kill H country's president, can you stop him? I guarantee it will be beneficial to you if he goes over. I could actually arrange for him to go to CX. But considering our old friendship, I thought of you first. As long as I speak up, this guy won't die. After hearing this, Lao Kui immediately agreed, but there's one condition. Seeing he still dared to set conditions, old Zhao said angrily, it's me who should set conditions. $2 million non-negotiable. This is someone I personally guarantee. It's settled then. Transfer the money to the usual place. This shocked old Jin and the others, realizing this person would never lose out when it came to benefits. After hanging up the phone, old Zhao let out a sigh. You all heard that, right? I've arranged for you to go to H country, live there after laundering your identity. You'll take the same boat as Champion Cheng and long hair. I'll arrange another boat for this woman in a few days, because her identity is special. After hearing this, old Jin wanted to argue with him excitedly, but was pulled back by Yu Jin, telling him not to be impulsive. Old Zhao also told him not to worry. Just tell me your address once you get there. I'll send her over, understand? Before leaving, the woman gave him a pocket watch, telling him she would definitely come to get it back. You must keep it safe, understand? But he didn't know this would be the last time he ever saw Yu Jin. The three men also formed a deep friendship through this experience. Until that day, 10 years later. A soldier frantically called out, Senior is back. Then all members were seen lined up in 2 rows, welcoming someone's arrival. Respectfully saluting him, you've worked hard, while old Jin returned directly to the director's office to report the mission results. Hearing Director Zhang's praise, he felt no joy, only complete emptiness. In these 10 years, old Jin had used every means, but couldn't find any trace of her. Every time he asked the pawn shop, he only got no comment in response. After listening to Director Zhang's bunch of high-sounding words, old Jin prepared to leave. According to the agreement, mission complete, you let me go out. I need to go somewhere. Because that pocket watch was broken, he wanted to get it fixed. But the watch repairman here said, can't fix it, because it's not produced in this country. Some parts can't be found. Why not just replace everything except the photo? Just as old Jin was begging this old repairman to definitely fix it, his wife happened to bring water over. Seeing the photo in the watch, she praised how pretty this girl was, but she looks just like Yu Jin, that girl who does charity work next door, gentle and kind. I really want her as my daughter-in-law. Hearing this, old Jin couldn't help but tremble. Early the next morning, he came to this charity food distribution point. Looking at the busy woman before him, old Jin came to her with a tray, asked her if they provide food here every day, while the busy Yu Jin casually replied, not looking up at the man before her, but as old Jin kept asking, will you be here tomorrow? And the day after tomorrow as well? Yu Jin finally realized something was wrong, said, I'll come every day, will you always be here? Finally looking up at the man before her, Yu Jin was stunned. Old Jin cried, "I've finally found you." Back at the residence, Old Jin couldn't help but want to release these 10+ years of longing for her. She was somewhat shy, struggling to push Old Jin away. "It's been too long. Can we turn off the lights?" Then came their passionate encounter. Afterwards, Old Jin stared somewhat absent-mindedly at the potted plant on the table. Yu Jin came out after showering at this time, telling him it's honeysuckle, its flower language is sacrificial love. Hearing this, Old Jin asked, "How have you been all these years? Why didn't you come find me?" Yu Jin first said to him, "I'm sorry." Actually, after Old Zhao sent them away, she asked Old Zhao to send her somewhere else. Continuing to follow, Old Jin would only continue to burden him. She didn't want to become a burden to her loved one. "Please help me, Senior Zhao. So I made this selfish decision, I'm sorry." Hearing this, Old Jin held her tight. "I should be the one saying sorry for not finding you earlier and let you waited so long." Then kept blaming himself. This feeling made Yu Jin very secure, feeling it wasn't in vain to wait for this subordinate. This night Old Jin felt very happy, making up for the past 10 years. However, early the next morning, when Old Jin returned to the base, he was handcuffed. It turned out they had already learned about everything that happened to Old Jin yesterday. "Weren't you warned not to contact ordinary people?" And to protect Yu Jin, he could only lie that last night was just a one-night stand. But he didn't believe it, feeling Old Jin was hiding something, like he was covering for that woman. At this time, someone nearby told him, "Leader, we've already sent people to that woman's house, but she seems to have run away, and we can't find any identity information about her." Hearing this, Old Jin was also suddenly stunned. The man saw his expression, thinking he clearly didn't know either, reluctantly believed him. "But you should remember, we're monitoring you all the time. This time it's been so long. We relaxed our vigilance on you. There won't be a next time." And because of this encounter, Old Jin was punished, indefinitely waiting for deployment on an island in the West Sea. Old Jin, whose life freedom was controlled, suddenly learned that the woman he had been thinking of day and night was now in mortal danger. Just now, Old Jin received a phone call. It was from Old Zhao, whom he hadn't contacted in over 10 years, telling him Yu Jin was pregnant, now in the delivery room. "Luckily, I'm in H country. You better hurry over here." Just as he was about to give him the address, a nurse rushed out of the delivery room. "Guardian, please come sign for surgery. The mother is hemorrhaging severely. Her life is in danger." Old Jin also heard this news through the phone. When he rushed to the hospital, he only saw a crying newborn. His beloved woman had passed away. The nurse came over to tell Old Jin Yu Jin's last words, "Name the child Minji. Although our meeting was driven by interests, I truly loved you so much. I hope you forget the past and live well as Minji's father. Guard this child's life well. You must put in all your effort for this child." So Old Jin went directly back to the base, held Director Zhang at gunpoint, forcing them to let him retire. Faced with everyone's encirclement and persuasion, he had no reaction, single-mindedly wanting to retire and go home to take care of his daughter. Director Zhang also tried to calm him down and said, "Wasn't she just your one-night stand? We can't even be sure if that child is yours." Hearing this, Old Jin fired a shot, directly scaring him into wedding. "Let him retire. Let him retire. This guy's already crazy. Quickly agree to him. He's a madman." Suddenly, a soldier came to report the situation. The president suddenly lost contact. The people around him also couldn't be contacted. "You better make a decision quickly. It's really when it rains, it pours. No choice, can only do this. Sergeant Jin, we can let you retire, but you need to help us do one more thing." Old Jin agreed without even asking what it was. They said, "The president can't be contacted now. Something happened on the way to talks. Still not sure of their purpose. Now gathering team members. Must rescue the president within 12 hours. Any mistake will face war between the two countries. Can you do this?" Old Jin hesitated for a moment, then agreed and said, "Just find him within 12 hours. That military officer hurriedly responded, "That's right, starting now." But Old Jin's next words shocked him greatly. "Give me 3 hours, that's enough. But don't forget what you said about letting me retire." Meanwhile in CX, the current leader was flying into a rage, because he suddenly learned his wife's nephew, Jin Zhengshan, had kidnapped H country's president, and it happened to be during North-South talks. They could only use radical faction actions as an excuse to explain externally, but still needed to quickly find Jin Zhengshan's whereabouts and have a good talk with H country. While on Jin Zhengshan's side, his subordinates all thought he'd gone too far. He didn't think so, feeling Jin Xiaopan was no longer the warmonger he used to be. Multiple North-South talks, he had been brainwashed. Even talking about accepting humanitarian aid, protecting CX country through peace. Really talking nonsense. Now Comrade Jin Xiaopan might be angry. After this is over, he'll understand my good intentions. We can use this to demand more benefits from H country. Jin Xiaopan's side was still discussing countermeasures. Jin Zhengshan, this idiot. So what should we do now? Li Yinglan suggested. H country might target the chairman over this. Please stay in Fengwo number special chamber for a while. As long as you're in this special chamber, no one can find the chairman, comrade. However, they didn't know someone had already come to find them. Then asked them for Jin Xiaopan's address. Old Jin planned to take him hostage to exchange with the kidnapping group, because he knew being kidnapped on the way to talks, it could only be CX's doing. After hearing Old Jin's plan, this military officer broke out in cold sweat, reminding him, "What you're about to do has nothing to do with our government. This is completely your personal action as someone from CX Special Forces." Soon Old Jin arrived at a secret CX base. Guards at the gate saw someone approaching, immediately came forward to inquire. Old Jin was prepared, took out pre-forged fake credentials, said he had important matters to report to the chairman. After speaking, just walked in through the opening door, not caring about the two stunned people. The soldier who came to his senses was about to stop him, but was immediately pulled back by his companion. Are you crazy? Didn't you see his ID shows? He's from Section 50. That's the Armed Force Section 51, established 10 years ago after Dandelion disappeared. The people in there have great power. They can execute you immediately if they think you're a reactionary. Old Jin had counted on this point when forging that unit's credentials, and before coming, he had called someone for help. Zhao Pingjian wanted him to help make a phone call, tell Jin Xiaopan's confidant that they had an insider. Already knew that person was hidden in Fenguo number CX country would know this soon. After hearing this, old Zhao very readily agreed, because he felt guilty about Yu Jin's death, was thinking of helping old Jin. The confidant who received the intelligence immediately told old Li, even exaggerated saying CX country might attack, telling him to quickly evacuate the chairman. Old Li originally thought he was talking nonsense, but learning this was news from old Zhao immediately broke out in cold sweat, prepared to personally take Jin Xiaopan to the 6th channel. Little did they know old Jin had already arrived here, ready to set up a trap waiting for them to take the bait. But at this time, patrol soldiers inside discovered old Jin. Although he reported he was from Section 51, they still found him suspicious, wanted to report his identity information to verify with superiors. When they opened old Jin's backpack and found something wrong, old Jin took the initiative to strike, sending one flying, then followed with a kick to deal with the second one, but was still held at gunpoint by the last person. Meanwhile, Jin Xiaopan's side had also arrived at the 6th channel. He chose to believe old Zhao's intelligence this time, but not long after entering the channel, they found something wrong up ahead. Their own people were fighting each other, and something seemed to be laid on the ground. Immediately ordered, don't mind it, step on the gas and charge through. Just as they were about to crash, old Jin quickly dove aside, hooked up the rope. However, this could only hinder the car momentarily. Mainly the broken rope got caught in the tires, making the vehicle lose control and crash to the side, leaving old Li dazed and confused. Then old Jin pulled out his gun and shot a hole in the car window, smashed the glass with one punch, held the gun threatening everyone inside to get out. The man's expression at this time was like he had eaten excrement, because subordinates told him comrade Jin Xiaopan had been kidnapped. Realizing his plan was about to fail, the man collapsed kneeling on the ground, crying loudly. Similarly, learning the news, old Zhang and the others on H country's side were very shocked. Then subordinates said CX's side was already in complete chaos, and that person was now heading towards Linjin River with the hostage, because their chairman was in the car. CX's people had no way to deal with him, didn't dare to shoot, afraid something would happen to Chairman Comrade could only keep following behind, while Jin Xiaopan had lived half his life never thinking he would one day be kidnapped. You know us inside out, must not be some small figure, but old Jin didn't respond to him, just drove by himself, angering Jin Xiaopan into cursing. H country also made the decision to cover for old Jin, because things had already blown up, there was no turning back. Suddenly someone walked into the command room, pointed at old Zhang and started cursing, "Did you fuck agree to this crazy plan?" Then gave him a big slap and said, "What are you doing now? Who gave you the authority to do this? If it causes war, can you take responsibility?" But old Zhang's next words stunned him. The president was kidnapped. We had no choice. As commander, I don't think I did anything wrong. They crossed the line first. If we don't strike back, they'll think we're pushovers, to be pushed around at will. Seeing he dared to argue, old Wu was about to give him another slap. A soldier suddenly reported, "The people who kidnapped the president contacted us." Old Wu immediately stepped forward to answer. Unexpectedly, Jin Jingshan directly started cursing, "H country dogs, are you crazy? Actually daring to kidnap the great leader, comrade? Quickly release him, or we'll bomb your H country." Seeing there was no sound from the other side, quickly agree. "Otherwise I'll leave a hole in your president's head." Old Wu was about to persuade the other party not to be impulsive, but the headset was snatched by old Zhang, ignoring the stunned old Wu. "Hey kidnappers, who do you think you are? Don't think about using the president to threaten us. Worst case, we all die together. If you dare leave a hole in his head, we'll tear Jin Xiaopan to pieces. If you understand the situation now, then immediately return the president to us. Only giving you 1 hour to consider, because the person who kidnapped him is also a madman. If it takes too long, we can't control him." While on Linjin Bridge, north and south sides were in a standoff. Both brought large forces and set up defense lines at the National Gate. Soon old Jin drove through. Unable to shoot, they immediately lowered the barriers and tire spikes. Old Jin didn't care and drove straight ahead. As the tires deflated, the car skidded, directly crashed through the bridge's iron railings. The car almost fell off, scaring CX's people half to death, while H countryside was thinking about quickly going forward to bring them over. Unexpectedly, old Jin immediately called for them to stop. "Don't come over. I place bombs in my car. Before H country receives the president, I absolutely won't let go of your chairman." Hearing this, Jin Xiaopan still calmly tried to persuade old Jin to let him go. "You should know CX's capabilities. Your identity should have been investigated clearly. Our soldiers will find your family. Why are you doing this? Money? If it's money. However much you want, I'll give you that much. I quite admire your spirit and courage." But old Jin told him with a gloomy face, "If it was money, I wouldn't have gotten into this mess at all. But this matter involves my family." However, CX's people had already found old Jin's daughter's hospital, wanted to trick the hospital people saying they were the child's relatives wanting to take her, but were unexpectedly refused. The result was predictable. They also didn't want to waste more time. Just then, a man walked in. It was old Cheng. Old Jin had specially notified this old friend to help take his daughter. Old Jin knew deeply that even if the mission was completed, the other side wouldn't let him get away completely, to be able to live and return to take care of his daughter. Old Jin was prepared for a fight to the death, because he believed old Cheng would definitely bring Minji out safely, while the crowd still flipping through birth records. Seeing someone come in, originally wanted to politely ask old Cheng to leave, but unexpectedly were directly sent flying by his punch. "Sorry, I'm here to find a child, we'll leave soon." While at this time Jin Zhengshan still had that scared to death expression, his mouth continuously spewing profanities, because CX's people were constantly urging him to hurry. That car hanging on the bridge edge couldn't hold much longer, so no choice, he could only speed in reverse all the way. And the originally very calm Jin Xiaopan, learning old Jin had made such a big scene just for family, was somewhat angry. "When this is over, you better be mentally prepared." Hearing his threatening words, old Jin didn't pay attention to him from participating in this crazy action. He had already prepared for the worst. Old Cheng also didn't let him down, arrived at the hospital in time and found Minji, looking at this cute little one in his arms. Old Cheng couldn't help but sigh. Really looks like her mother. Look at this smile, I should have had a daughter too. Just as old Cheng had just left, another figure appeared at the hospital. The person lying on the ground struggled to raise their head to tell him the baby had already been taken away. After hearing this, the man just grabbed his neck. "Tell me the person's characteristics and which direction they went." Meanwhile, Jin Zhengshan finally brought people to H countryside, crying and sniveling, saying this was all my personal action, nothing to do with others. Quickly release Jin Xiaopan. Old Jin also received orders to release people at the same time, but he didn't listen. Instead turned to look at Jin Xiaopan. "Can you swim?" Without waiting for his answer, just stepped on the gas. The car immediately plunged rapidly towards the river. The north and south people were so shocked their mouths couldn't close, frozen in place. Old Wu was so angry he threw his earpiece. It's over. Now everything's over, they released people but we didn't." Suddenly a soldier beside interrupted his thoughts, told him an aircraft appeared in the airspace at the scene, and it was our military aircraft. That's right, when a brother's in trouble, how could old Park be missing? Then directly jumped down from the aircraft. 5 years ago, he had absolutely no interest in getting promoted. Until a woman appeared in his life, he even thought about what to name their future children. He greeted her with deep affection. Unexpectedly, she looked down on him for his low rank and disliked men with long hair. This completely crushed old Park. He was determined to let his superiors assign him to a place where he could advance quickly. "I must surpass this woman." And so old Park was sent to Somalia on a mission. Who would have thought he'd end up unifying northern Somalia on his own? Falling into the water, he searched everywhere for old Jin. He quickly spotted him swimming towards the shore with Jin Xiaopan. The CX soldiers on the bridge, seeing someone jump from an H country helicopter, immediately opened fire at old Park in the water. H country's side, seeing this, retaliated with gunfire. Old Jin, focused only on escaping, didn't know old Park was right behind him. Watching old Jin's figure getting further away, old Park could only keep accelerating. Missing this chance would be unthinkable. Suddenly a bullet hit his thigh. This slowed him down even more. Looking at old Jin's distant figure, he silently prayed, "O Sea of Somalia, please grant me strength." But he felt himself getting slower. Damn. Old Jin desperately tried to save their leader. Yet these people now wanted to abandon him, just because old Jin's existence had become a diplomatic issue. They then ordered their subordinates to erase his identity information. After reaching shore, old Jin left Jin Xiaopan aside and departed. He knew the pursuers would arrive soon. They found the chairman thankfully uninjured, but they weren't satisfied with just that. They continued ordering the pursuit of old Jin. They planted explosives in all the underground passages. With one command, all passages were destroyed, showing their determination to catch old Jin. Old Jin looked back at the direction of the explosion. It's over. The escape routes were destroyed faster than expected. The pursuers must be very strong. Suddenly a gunshot rang out. Old Jin was unfortunately shot in the shoulder, just as they were about to continue shooting. Old Jin had vanished from their sight. Then they found their teammates, lying on the ground while searching. Frightened, he froze in place. Old Jin also took the chance to try to finish him off. But just then, another shot hit his arm. It was the Section 51 team arriving after hearing the commotion. The white-haired leader urged old Jin to surrender, saying he was surrounded. "I heard you impersonated someone from our Section 51. Then you must know our capabilities, but there's something you might not know. Compared to pursuit and combat skills, we're even better at interrogation." Suddenly a voice from behind interrupted them. "You guys run so fast I almost couldn't catch up." Everyone turned around in surprise. Old Jin was also surprised. This guy's timing was perfect. Since he couldn't contact old Park, he had asked old Chen to notify this guy. If things went wrong, he would be his final trump card. The white-haired leader immediately turned to ask who this sudden intruder was. Unexpectedly, he crazily tore off his shirt, saying, "You can call me the final trump card." Then he threw a flash grenade at the white-haired leader, nearly blinding all the Section 51 members. While old Park acted completely unfazed, he kept throwing grenades while walking to old Jin to catch up. Unexpectedly, the white-haired leader endured the intense light and shot them. Old Park didn't go easy on him either, immediately rewarding him with a grenade. Following the explosion, only he and old Jin were left standing in the smoke. He kept muttering to those lying on the ground, even waking up the white-haired leader. What is this guy saying? During their escape, old Jin told him he had prepared a glider. "The underground passages are all destroyed and I can't swim now. We can only escape with that. I hid it by the river." But old Park frantically waved in refusal. "We can't escape with that." Then he spotted a rubber boat. "This is better, but where's the motor?" Of course old Jin had hidden that too. He had made 2 backup plans. But just as they finished installing the motor, they heard pursuers approaching. Old Jin hurriedly urged him to get on the boat, but old Park remained unmoved. "I have heard about your situation. You must survive and return." Then before old Jin could react, he kicked the rubber boat several meters away. Facing old Jin's screams, old Park smiled and saluted him. "You go back, I promise I'll make it back back alive. After saying this, he turned back with grenades in hand. Facing countless enemies charging at him, he showed no fear. To survive in desperate situations, one must put their life on the line to grasp that slim chance of survival. This was the truth he learned from 5 years of fighting in Somalia. Watching the flames soaring on the shore, old Jin was stunned, lost in thought. That's the story of us and your dad. Surprising, isn't it, little Minji? After hearing this, Minji seemed doubtful, her face full of skepticism. Seeing her expression, old Park said, "You can ask your dad if you don't believe me. So you should be good to your dad, okay? For him, you are the fruit of their love, incredibly precious. And because of this incident, your dad seems to have contacted that old man. Who knows what price he'll make your dad pay? He might have to suffer a bit for now." Just then, the police finally arrived. Seeing the scene below, they were shocked, speechless. They immediately drew their guns and ordered everyone to raise their hands, but old Chen and his companion ignored them. Instead, they turned to look at Minji. "To your father, you are his entire world." Then old Jin came up and tightly embraced his daughter. "I'm sorry I messed things up. You might have to transfer schools." Hearing this, Minji burst into tears. "Dad, are you stupid? Is that important right now? I never want to leave Dad again. Promise me, no matter what happens, don't leave me." The situation concluded with this father-daughter reunion. Old Jin would now embark on a new journey. After that incident, father and daughter lived busy lives every day. So busy they rarely had chances to meet. Because she knew her father was busy dealing with the mess left by that incident. But she didn't know that to bring down Zhu Ying construction, old Jin was already deeply in debt. He prepared to try the job old Zhao introduced. Although there was a terrifying person there, the money was good. Old Jin worried about what might happen after going there, so he asked old Chen to take good care of Minji. He also asked him to keep his situation secret, afraid his daughter would worry. But old Jin never expected Minji had overheard everything. After hanging up the phone, he hesitated for a long time in front of the building. He quickly composed himself and prepared to go up for the interview. Unexpectedly, upon opening the door, he saw a bare white bottom. In that moment, old Jin was confused. He had imagined many possibilities but never expected such a meeting. The man, seeing another interview candidate, quickly put on his shirt. Recently, all the candidates have been useless, all waste. Not one was useful. Maybe they've never experienced war. Then he turned to look at old Jin at the door. "Did you bring your resume?" This left the still stunned old Jin even more confused. Does this big guy have some special fetish? Even during the interview, the other party still hadn't put on pants. He said, "Do you want to make money?" The embarrassed old Jin said he had a daughter and could do anything. Old Kuei was very satisfied hearing this. "Ah, uncle, don't you have a name?" He only heard him quietly say his surname was Jin. Unexpectedly, old Kuei said furiously, voice so small, "Don't you want to work? Get out." Of course, old Jin wouldn't put up with this. Could he really not find any other work besides this? Actually, before coming, old Jin was somewhat repulsed by this place. But remembering old Zhao saying, "Don't look down on it being just an HR firm. This is a place even government agencies dare not mess with. Think about how to resolve the mess you created. Think more about your daughter." Thinking of his daughter, old Jin, who had already walked downstairs, hesitate. With determination, he returned to face old Kuei. "I've read your resume, quite interesting. H Country Special Forces White Mountain Unit background. But what's this about attempted assassination of a leader?" Faced with his doubt, old Jin's expression darkened. "Whether it's fake or not, why don't you try and find out?" Hearing this, old Kuei wasn't angry, not bad. "I like the steadiness of middle-aged men. Try punching me." Faced with such an unreasonable request, old Jin naturally obliged, finally directly kicking him into the wall. At this point, old Kuei wanted to say something, but found old Jin had gotten carried away. The words he was about to say had to be swallowed back, as old Jin's fists kept coming at his face. He laughed pathologically, continuously praising old Jin. "Old Zhao is really reliable, actually sending me such a beast." Then he easily caught old Jin's fist. "You're not fighting seriously enough. Are you going easy on me because you think I'm old?" And with one punch sent old Jin flying several meters. Then immediately threw several punches at him, demanding old Jin use full strength, even mocking what he had learned at White Mountain. However, the fighting commotion was so big the building shook downstairs, but they were used to it. Because upstairs was like this every day, they heard the person upstairs was the landlord. This made Xiao Pan, who came to visit, unable to stand it. He rushed up wanting to help his friend. Unexpectedly, old Kuei directly tore down the iron door, intending to throw it at old Jin, scaring Xiao Pan half to death before he could throw the door. Old Jin directly blocked it with his foot and took the chance to give him a roundhouse kick. Then old Jin asked while fighting if he could use weapons. He seemed to enjoy it and said, "Of course you can." At this point, old Jin, wanting to end the fight, quickly found his weak point, punched towards his abdomen, following with another punch. Looking at old Kuei's pathetic state, he said, "I won't use weapons. I don't want to kill during an interview." The previously arrogant fatty was immediately scared so badly he wet himself, just because the other party would use him as the protection target for the second interview. When Li Do Kuei heard old Jin's mockery, his fighting power suddenly soared. One punch sent old Jin flying, saying, "Who are you going to kill? You should understand my strength after fighting with me for so long, or were you just bluffing?" Then gave him another hit, which old Jin managed to dodge. "You probably don't know what White Tiger HR really is. We're not just an ordinary labor company. As long as you can pay, we can help you solve any problem. And most importantly, our rule is to get paid before starting work." With a loud crash, old Jin was heavily punched next to Xiao Pan. Old Kuei's battle desire seemed to have been aroused by old Jin, continuously launching crazy attacks at old Jin, scaring Xiao Pan trembling aside. In short, as long as you have the ability, you can easily earn billions here in 1 month. As the dust settled, old Kuei couldn't find old Jin. only to see old Jin instantly appear behind him, saying, "Are there any other benefits?" Old Kwai said, "There's insurance and bonuses and we help pay your taxes." Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, he was rewarded with a big slap. "I like these benefits." Old Kwai, with his head smashed into the wall, mumbled, "So do you want to join the company?" But old Jin seemed somewhat disdainful of this boss, who only knew how to fight. Hearing this, old Kwai suddenly gathered strength, directly pulled his head along with the wall out. "What did you say? You think we only need fighters here?" Finally completely smashed the wall stuck on his head. "Very good, you passed your first interview. Second interview, protecting the client, starts now. We also have many security jobs in our business. Let's use this guy as the protection target. If I were to hit him with one punch, he might really die, so be serious." Watching old Kwai's incoming fist, Xiaopan thought he was done for. A warm flow involuntarily rushed from his lower body, continuously calling out to old Jin, "Uncle, please save me." However, when old Kwai's fist was just 0.01 centimeters from Xiaopan's face, the fist missed his head and hit the wall beside. Old Kwai looked at the wire on his arm. "Is this your weapon? Didn't you say you wouldn't use any?" Old Jin said, "Protecting someone is different. I'm tired of not being able to protect the people I want to protect." Old Kwai, who had been kicked down, wanted to get up and continue fighting with old Jin, but found he was already surrounded by his wires. "This is CQC's silver wire." Just as old Jin was about to tighten the wires, old Kwai quickly asked him to stop, because the furniture in the room was all newly bought. Some were precious items given by high-level leaders. With old Kwai's painful wailing, "You pass. Quick stop," old Jin said. "It's okay to leave a hole in the wall, right?" Just as old Kwai kept complaining about old Jin, a man suddenly appeared beside Xiaopan, startling him. Another interview candidate? This time the commotion was quite big, then walked straight in, ignoring Xiaopan's dissuasion. "Boss, let's stop here. Just received a new mission. It's about the former vice premier's granddaughter." Then the two discussed the mission situation. Former economic vice premier An Seon-hyo, his granddaughter suddenly disappeared. She's a high school student, often caused trouble at school and was forced to transfer many times. Finally had to transfer to a township. Most importantly, she's been missing for over a month now, strangely sending texts to her parents saying she's fine but won't answer calls, only communicates through text. Hearing this, old Kwai roughly understood the mission, saying, "Let the new guy handle it. That uncle, he's one of us now, much stronger than you. Position will be department head." Old Chul was somewhat surprised. "Directly department head." Old Kwai said, "If you have objections, you can go spar with him. No need, destroyed all your things yet you don't kill him and give him department head position. Obviously a monster." While at this time old Jin was still immersed in his daughter's text, unable to snap out, old Kwai assigned the mission of finding An Seon-hyo's granddaughter to old Jin. But before doing this, becoming a teacher there would be the best choice. And arriving at the school when old Jin just finished his self-introduction, the class bully gave him a warning. "Teacher, you look very weak. In our school, whether teachers or whoever, all rankings are determined by fighting." Then showed off his little fist to old Jin. Hearing this, old Jin was amused, smiling in agreement. "Alright, anything that can be solved with fists isn't a problem." While on old Kwai's side, old Chul said curiously, "Why didn't you use full strength during the interview?" Hearing this, old Kwai said, "Haha, are you jealous?" Old Chul said he wasn't, just curious. Then old Kwai smiled and said, "The reason is simple. If I fought seriously with him and such good talent ran away, what would we do? Most importantly, I saw his resume. He was at the peak in his circle. With just a little polishing, he could become White Tiger HR's ace." Old Chul said, "So you mean he could complete this mission more perfectly than me?" Seeing old Chul's expression, old Kwai laughed. "Haha, why are you showing such an unhappy face?" Old Chul said this was just how he looked. Actually, old Kwai's reason for giving this mission to old Jin was because he felt this time's case wasn't just a simple disappearance. Wanting new people to integrate quickly, they need to taste some hardship. While on Sintai's side, seeing old Jin so arrogant, immediately swung his fist at him, but was easily dodged by old Jin. He found it hard to believe he missed. Then saw old Jin suddenly get close. Fixing his collar, "Wear your clothes properly. You suddenly swinging at me gave me quite a shock." At this time, old Jin also noticed his shoelaces were loose, squatted down to tie them, just happened to dodge another student's sneak attack from behind. Only poor Zintai suffered. "Damn it, I'm wearing slippers, where's the shoelaces?" Then kicked at old Jin together with his companion. Unexpectedly, he secretly grabbed both their ankles. With a force, the two started flying in the air, looking at the two convulsing on the ground. Old Jin asked innocently, "Why did you all suddenly fall down?" Shintai immediately became angry and started cursing, called his classmates to attack together, while old Jin, seeing they were still children, didn't use much force, just used some small tricks to deal with these presumptuous kids. All cleaned up, looking at the suddenly messy classroom, old Jin couldn't help but sigh. Rushing up all at once, "You're quite enthusiastic." The fallen students were speechless, somehow ending up on the ground. Then old Jin said, "Since you're all seated, let's start class." Soon the students tidied up the classroom. Old Jin also took out a history book and began teaching. At this time, some still defiant students discussed how strange old Jin was. That guy's expression while fighting was too calm, as if possessed by something. "Just thinking about it makes me angry. I wasn't hurt by him, but was hit by you stupid chair by mistake. You've lost your title as teacher killer." This directly left Shintai speechless, secretly deciding to get revenge on old Jin. He called the senior brothers to get revenge on the new teacher while he was using the bathroom, because people are most vulnerable when they're relaxed. They also learned from the juniors that old Jin was somewhat strange, so they could only only use such underhanded methods to ambush him. However, they still underestimated old Jin's prowess. Meanwhile, An Seon-hyo listened to his subordinate's report, learning that White Tiger HR had started acting, but questioned if they were reliable. But then heard his subordinate say, "That's Lee Do-kwai's company." This made him realize, getting old makes one forgetful. Then asked if there was any news, feeling disappointed upon learning there wasn't, getting so worried just because his daughter ran away. Then told his subordinate to contact Lee Do-kwai, he'd go see him in a few days. Then said, "Prepare, continue playing ball," but this ball was placed on a bound and gagged man's mouth. "Director Jin, you really disappoint me. We've worked together for so many years. How could you touch truth you can't handle? Have you forgotten what kind of person I am? How much do you know? Does the child's father know too?" But the man could only mumble and tremble. Then only a scream was heard, "This person should be killed." While on old Jin's side, 3 people were beaten, standing obediently before old Jin, apologizing constantly, saying, "As long as we 3 people are around, your teaching life will definitely be undisturbed." While old Jin didn't care, saying he came here just to find someone. Then secretly whispered in Jang Donying's ear, "Don't you guys not want that? I can help you." This struck Jang Donying. His face was full of disbelief, said, "Really?" Old Jin confidently said, "Don't look at me like this, I'm an expert in this area." Then Jang Donying told his companions what he just said. The 3 immediately knelt down and said, "Leave what you need done to us, we'll do our utmost." "Teacher, no, big brother." Then this scene appeared in school, teachers coming, everyone get out of the way. This made old Jin somewhat speechless, a bit too high profile. Actually, what he whispered in Jang Donying's ear earlier was, "You're already 21, military service age, right? Have you done the military check? You probably don't want to serve, right? I can help you. I know someone who refused military service, he can help you a lot." Then discussed with Xiao Huang, who was also of age. While 18 years old Shintai said, "What's the big deal?" Jang Donying roared, "Shut up. Do you know the fear of receiving military check notice right when you turn 20? This was why the 3 immediately knelt and accepted old Jin as their big brother. The leader Jang Donying asked old Jin what they needed to do, and old Jin, having successfully tricked the 3, smiled, saying, "What needs to be done is simple. Just help me find a girl." The man wanted to turn 3 young men into women, scared them thinking he wanted to castrate them. While old Jin was curious, "Why are you making those expressions? I mean, if you were girls wanting to hide for a month, where would you go?" This finally made the 3 breathe a sigh of relief, then started rambling. Jang Donying said, "If I am a girl, of course I would live with his boyfriend. Heh. The other 2 agreed, "Our school is chaotic. This happens often." This made old Jin fall into deep thought, then took out the girl's photo, telling the 3 she transferred here a month ago. "What you need to do is investigate all traces of her life here, and most importantly, is her boyfriend. Understand?" The 3 quickly agreed, but their eyes showed panic when hearing the latter part. Old Jin saw this but didn't inquire further, just told him to return to class. He knew even if he asked more, the 3 wouldn't tell him useful information. After the 3 respectfully escorted old Jin to the classroom, Jiang Donying and Xiao Huang looked at each other, immediately turned and ran wildly, Shintai following closely. Jiang Donying asked Xiao Huang while running, "The person in that photo is Junshin's girlfriend, right? Damn, let's avoid this first. I don't want to get involved with him and end up dead." The other 2 agreed. Just as Xing Tai was complaining, a voice drifted to his ear. "Was it really that serious? Could have gotten you all killed?" Thinking it was one of his companions, Xing Tai explained, "Don't you remember? Brother Jun Chang once took 3 lives just to unify our territory." Old Jin was curious, "Is he mentally unstable?" Xing Tai replied, "Yeah, that's why we absolutely can't get involved with him." But just as he was about to describe what happened when that person got out of prison, he turned his head and froze. When did this guy appear beside him? In an instant, the 3 of them had fresh bruises on their faces as they knelt before old Jin to apologize. They explained that they didn't really want to run away, they just didn't want to get involved with brother Jun Chang. Old Jin seemed unconcerned and asked, "Tell me, is this Jun Chang guy really that scary?" Jiang Donying whispered in old Jin's ear, "He's a madman, impossible to reason with, and he's actually killed people." Hearing this, old Jin sighed. "Between him and me, who are you more afraid of?" Without hesitation, Jiang Donying said, "Brother Jun Chang, of course. He's much scarier than you. Teacher, please let us go. We don't want to die, and we don't want to know how to avoid military service." After hearing this, old Jin just walked over to a stone statue, while Jiang Donying kept begging old Jin to let them go. When old Jin crushed the stone book, they were so shocked their jaws dropped. This subordinate shows no mercy when he gets serious. Even his own uncle wasn't spared from his blade. When his underling told him someone was cheating at gambling in his establishment, despite the man's endless pleading, Jun Chang didn't hesitate to split his head open. "Are you trying to corrupt the atmosphere in my place?" Then he turned and ordered his subordinates to gather everyone. He instructed them to grab the cheater, saying he would deal with him personally. When the cheater quickly shouted, "Stop! I'm your uncle, Jun Chang, your uncle." But he remained expressionless as he took the knife from his underling. Placing it against the man's hand, he said, "Uncle, what would you like me to do?" Then came the man's pig-like screams. Jun Chang warned him not to come back to cheat again, or next time it wouldn't be just one finger. Right after, a guy with yellow hair hurriedly tried to help the man to the hospital. But unexpectedly, Jun Chang called him back. He grabbed the yellow-haired guy's hand. "Trying to slip away? You're working with him, aren't you?" The yellow-haired guy immediately denied it in terror, but Jun Chang didn't believe him and had his subordinates search him. Sure enough, his suspicion was right. They were working together. Then he angrily ordered his subordinates to bring him an axe. "Damn it, I hate traitors more than anything. You think I'm easy to fool?" This scared the yellow-haired guy so badly he desperately begging for mercy. But Jun Chang ignored him. calling for his subordinates to hold the guy's hand steady. Just as the axe was about to come down, one of his subordinates rushed in frantically, interrupting them, saying someone was here to see him. Jun Chang thought it was the police, but surprisingly, he said it was younger brothers from school, coming to ask about some school matters. This left Jun Chang speechless. Are they crazy? Tell him to get lost. But old Jin and his group had already entered. Zhang Donyang gathered his courage and announced who he was. He even said, "We're here to ask you something, and you'd better tell us honestly." This left Jun Chang's men stunned. "You little brats, have you lost your minds? Don't you know where this is?" But Zhang Donyang suddenly started laughing. This enraged the fat guy, who raised his fist to punch him, but he was instantly blocked by old Jin from behind. With just one move, he slammed the 300-pound fat man to the ground. The other underlings were left dumbfounded. Zhang Donyang successfully breathed a sigh of relief. Old Jin stood there with a grim expression. Everyone was curious about where this bespectacled uncle came from. Then old Jin spoke. "Sorry to disturb you all. I'm here looking for someone." He then took out a girl's photo. "Would the boyfriend of this girl please step forward? Hurry up, I'll count to 3. Don't blame me for being rough if you don't come out." The pink-haired guy who was previously hospitalized by old Jin had been discharged. The entrance was crowded with underlings who came to pick him up. He was still swearing to get revenge on the 2 uncles who beat him up. Sheng Hao hadn't finished making his threats. Then he was interrupted by a man in a Taoist robe from the crowd. When Sheng Hao saw the man's face, he instantly bristled. Old Cheng held up a phone and said, "So you were here." Then he handed him the phone. "Here, that uncle from that day wants to talk to you." The underlings around him, not knowing old Cheng's capabilities, kept taunting him, but they didn't notice their boss staring at the phone in terror. He immediately burst into tears and agreed to do something for old Jin. It turned out old Jin never counted on these high school students. He had specifically called for the pink-haired Sheng Hao. He should be the most suitable person to deal with that guy. When old Jin counted to 3, not only was there no response from the other side, they even had their men swing steel pipes at him, but they were sent flying by Xingmin behind him with one punch. He looked at Jun Cheng and his subordinates provocatively. "Is that all?" Seeing this, old Jin smiled and said, "Looks like you're not going to cooperate. What should we do next?" He analyzed. "This place looks like a gambling den, no iron gates, and the escape routes are primitive. This might work in the countryside, but in the city, any random police officer could shut this whole place down." Junchen's underling immediately stepped forward to confront him. "Who are you?" He was instantly knocked down by Sheng Hao. "We're here on behalf of Uncle to deal with you guys." Then he called for them to come at him all at once. Without old Jin even having to move, they were all down in an instant. Seeing this, Jun Cheng was about to slip away, but Sheng Hao blocked him and said, "Don't think about running. I've blocked all the exits. Just thinking about how I had to come to this backwater place because of you makes me angry." Before he could finish, Jun Cheng swung an axe at him, but Sheng Hao dodged them all while constantly mocking him. He caught Jun Cheng during a gap in his axe swings and sent him flying with one punch. He didn't forget to insult his family too. This instantly enraged Jun Cheng. Being too arrogant always leads to trouble. Sheng Hao couldn't dodge in time, and the axe was about to land on his head. Fortunately, old Jin intervened in time and knocked Jun Cheng away. He quickly asked with concern, "Are you okay? Rest if you're hurt. We've pretty much pushed them to their limit." At this time, Sheng Hao suddenly feel that this uncle who had previously beaten him to a pulp was really cool. Seeing the situation turning bad, Jun Cheng immediately ran towards the exit. Zhang Donyang kept shouting from behind, "He's getting away, catch him." He charged forward like an army of thousands, making Jun Cheng run for his life. Old Jin was curious, "Is this enough?" Sheng Hao explained, "Don't worry, guys like him won't reveal their hideout even if beaten half to death. It's better to let him think he escaped by luck. He'll naturally return to his hideout." Sure enough, when Jun Cheng returned home panting, he immediately told the woman to get his wallet. When she didn't respond and asked what was wrong, Jun Cheng angrily pushed her away. Seeing this, Da Ying said angrily, "What's wrong with you?" Jun Cheng glared at her maliciously, "Shut up. Because of you, people came to mess up my gambling den." Just as Da Ying was about to inquire further, a group of people barged in, leaving both of them stunned. Then Jun Cheng broke into a cold sweat and collapsed to the ground. "How'd you find this place?" Zhang Haozhong said, "Did you look down on me because you thought I was just a country bumpkin? Did you think I couldn't find you when you were hiding at your girlfriend's place?" Then he suddenly grabbed Jun Cheng's hair and put a knife to his throat, saying fiercely, "Are you going to pay up or not? You borrowed 1 billion and agreed to return 2 billion, but then you disappeared. Now with interest, it's 3.5 billion. When are you going to pay? Or do you look down on me because I'm a country bumpkin and don't plan to pay at all?" Before Jun Cheng could explain, he called his subordinates. "Give our young master Jun Cheng a good massage. This bastard looks down on us. If my eyes were fine, you wouldn't dare look down on me, would you?" Just as Jun Cheng was begging for mercy, footsteps suddenly came from the doorway. Old Jin walked in directly with his people. "Excuse me, everyone. We're looking for someone." Zhang Haozhong said, "Are these guys the backup you called?" Jun Cheng quickly denied it. At this moment, old Jin noticed Da Ying sitting on the ground. "Finally found you, Miss Da Ying." Then he took Da Ying's hand. "Come with me, your parents are looking for you." Hearing this, Da Ying immediately tried to pull away from old Jin's hand, saying she wouldn't leave. "If you want to take me back, take my boyfriend too. Otherwise, I'd rather die than go." But old Jin just smiled and said that wasn't possible. Because, before coming, old Kuai had warned him that when the granddaughter of such a family runs away, it probably wasn't an ordinary case. You need to be extra careful. I know An Xian Hyo has done many bad things in private, so Director Jin, just do as much work as you're paid for, understand? This led to old Jin not wanting to get too involved. But Zhang Haozhong wasn't happy about this. "Uncle, who are you? Where did you come from? What's wrong with you? Don't you understand the current situation? Xing, teach him a lesson. The underling who received the order rushed at old Jin with a dagger. Seeing this, old Jin kicked down the door, blocking the underling's dagger. Before he could react, he was kicked flying away. Zhang Haozhang quickly dodged. Oh, this guy's got skills. Looks like he's a trained fighter. Who sent you? This even confused old Jin. Whitehead? No, White Tiger. No, from White Tiger Mountain. That's not right either. What was it called? But Sheng Hao, looking at old Jin's back, had an idea. He thought he might be able to win if he attacked now. He used to be a boss controlling his own territory, but was instantly destroyed by two uncles that day. Sheng Hao couldn't accept this outcome. He had wanted revenge, but was led around by old Jin, which shattered his self-esteem. Sheng Hao, who had been thinking about revenge, thought this was the best chance. One of his feet was stuck in the door. Maybe he could kill him now. He probably can't fight well in this state. But he soon realized how childish his thoughts were. He didn't expect old Jin to be such a strong fighter, even with his foot stuck in the door. This instantly refreshed Sheng Hao's perception of old Jin. Just as old Jin's knee sent a subordinate flying, the fallen dagger gave Sheng Hao new thoughts. He struggled with whether to pick up the knife and fight old Jin to the death, but remembering his iron fists, he instantly chickened out. Can't be impulsive, need to be careful. Meanwhile, old Jin's battle was nearing its end, as he kicked away another subordinate, but he found that Da Ying was now being held hostage by Zhang Haozhang. Old Jin only hesitated for a second, then launched a powerful kick. The doorframe stuck on his foot was shattered. Then he looked back at Sheng Hao. Good thing you didn't act on your thoughts. Otherwise, I would have been very disappointed. This confused Sheng Hao. Could he read minds? His life really was unlucky, but he still tried to defend himself. Brother, your words really hurt me, but that kick was amazing. A runaway girl reuniting with her parents. Should be a touching scene, but why was she so unhappy? On the way there, Da Ying had asked old Jin a question. Uncle, do you know what's the leading cause of death among teenagers in H country? Do you know who the biggest killer is? But old Jin didn't respond to her. He just wanted to complete the task quickly and go find his daughter. But Da Ying continued talking to herself. It's family. Suicide is the #1 cause of death among teenagers. I hate my family. But old Jin couldn't listen anymore and told her to shut up, saying he didn't want to get involved. Before leaving, Da Ying's father kept thanking old Jin and said, "We're all in politics. We don't want outsiders to know about this." Old Jin said, "Your worry is unnecessary. We're the trustworthy White Tiger Human Resources after all." As soon as he returned, old Kuei warmly welcomed old Jin for successfully completing his first mission. He even threw a 3-person party for him. But the money scattered on the floor surprised old Jin. "Is the commission for this mission so generous?" Old Kuei smiled and said, "Part of these are from my bet with old Chul about whether your first mission would take a month." Old Jin was speech and said, "Just give me the next mission." Seeing old Jin being so dull, old Kuei was speechless. "Let me think about the next mission. Haha, seems like there isn't one. Go home and wait for news. Take 3 days off to rest well, and deal with the things afterward." Meanwhile, Da Ying was being continuously questioned by her parents about why she ran away. But she remained silent. She stared intently at her mother who tried to stroke her. But the next moment she acted sweet and cute. "I'm sorry, I won't do this again." However, Da Ying said this just to lower their guard. Then she suddenly bit her mother's ear. Why did Da Ying do such a heartless thing? Her father quickly stopped the car. Da Ying just left a reluctant look before taking the chance to get out. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'll definitely be killed if I go home." Then without even looking at her mother who was writhing in pain, she quickly ran away. Meanwhile, old Jin was thinking in the car that something felt off about this mission. The payment for finding someone was too high, and Da Ying's father repeatedly emphasizing confidentiality seemed a bit forced. Was it really just about saving face, or for the child's future? Forget it. Don't think about it. Don't get too involved. Back at school, old Jin immediately called Minji after getting out of the car. He told her about his recent situation, but only mentioned that he was working as a temporary teacher. Unexpectedly, Zhang Donying had arranged people to welcome old Jin, all calling him Big Brother in unison. This made Minji doubt if it was true or not. "Dad, what do you teach? Physical education?" Old Jin immediately said he specialized in history, and that it would end today as he was preparing to go back. This left the three, including Zhang Donying, stunned. "Big Brother has been smiling at us all the way here, right?" The three rushed toward old Jin, seeking hugs, thinking he had changed his characteristic. They didn't know that only Minji could make someone like old Jin act that way. Forced to hang up the phone, he immediately glared at them darkly. "Do you need something?" This brought them back to their initial feeling, thinking old Jin was about to deal with someone again. At this moment, Xiao Huang whispered in old Jin's ear about Da Ying. "Big Brother, I was scared when you caught Da Ying. She's a pathological liar." Hearing this, old Jin froze. A man would take any commission for money, although this commission gave him an uneasy feeling. Old Kuei had helped An Xion Hyo find many people before, but without exception, all of those people were killed. Although taking that old guy's commission made him somewhat uneasy. The money was too good to refuse, and besides, we're not the ones killing organs. We're just helping him find people. This shocked old Chul could this time also, but old Kuei suddenly interrupted him. "That's his own granddaughter. It shouldn't come to that. Old Chul, we just do what we're paid for. The people was not killed by us. And Director Jin needs to taste some bitterness. I'm really looking forward to seeing how much our Director Jin will awaken because of this." After learning that Da Ying had a mental illness, old Jin immediately ordered Zhang Donying to bring him her life record book. This made the two rather curious, but when they saw old Jin's expression after reading the record book, it made them break into a cold sweat. This is bad. Something big is going to happen. Looking at this clean record book, old Jin knew it had been tampered with by that family. But having 2 homeroom teachers within a month meant something must have happened to make them take action. Based on past experience, this usually happens when someone learns something they shouldn't know. Meanwhile, Da Ying had run back to find Juncheng. Juncheng said, "Why did you come back? Get lost, bitch." It's all because of you that I'm so unlucky. But Da-Ying wasn't angry, because she had nowhere else to go. Juncheng had no choice but to let her in. The reason Da-Ying became like this was because she discovered something that day. She used buying reference books as an excuse to trick her mother's bank card from her, thinking she wouldn't have to worry about pocket money anymore. Unexpectedly, after binding the card, she instinctively wanted to check the balance and discovered hotel room charges from an unfamiliar hotel. This made Da-Ying suspect if her mother was having an affair, but looking at her mother made her think it impossible. It must have been for a gathering. But a few days later, she found her mother went to that hotel again, and it was at 3 in the afternoon. Da-Ying was torn about whether to tell her father, but it would break his heart. She couldn't tell her grandfather either. If he knew, he would definitely cause a huge scene. Finally, she approached Director Jin, begging him to investigate and follow her mother. Unexpectedly, this implicated him, and he was fired by her grandfather a few days later. This made Da-Ying more certain about her mother's affair. To cover up the truth, her grandfather had Director Jin driven away. She suddenly felt her mother was both hateful and disgusting. After that, Da-Ying started going down the wrong path, hanging around with delinquents everywhere. Whenever she thought about that incident, she would vent her anger everywhere until she was forced to transfer schools several times. The exhausted Da-Ying finally told everything to her homeroom teacher, hoping to seek help from them. But the homeroom teacher was soon forced to stop working, and the next teacher's situation was the same. This made her determined to find the truth herself. She tricked her mother's phone to share to her own phone, but only found photos of food taken on the day of the hotel stay. Couldn't find any other clues. Then her grandfather suddenly came to find her, wanting to know why she had been so rebellious lately. Asked if something had happened, saying he would do his best to help, but Da-Ying hesitated. She didn't know whether to tell her grandfather. Once she told him he might kill her mother and her lover, but her grandfather's continuous words of comfort made her not want to hide it anymore. Da-Ying cried and told her grandfather that her mother was having an affair, and told him about her recent investigation. She didn't know what to do. Hearing this, An Seon-hyo was shocked. She even showed him the hotel records and dining photos, just as Da-Ying was cursing her mother for being shameless. An Seon-hyo told her to lower her voice. Do you know who that person is? Learning that she didn't know, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. Da-Ying, listen well now, don't let this affect you. Grandfather will handle this matter privately. Then he hugged Da-Ying and kept comforting her. This made her regret not telling her grandfather earlier. But Da-Ying suddenly noticed something wrong with the photos on the phone. She kept zooming in on the phone photos, horrified to discover that the adulterer was actually her grandfather. This made her start trembling. Her heart felt like it was about to explode, beating wildly. She didn't know if her grandfather had seen it just now. Suddenly, her grandfather's voice came from beside her ear. Did you see? Da-Ying's pupils instantly dilated, thinking it's over. But what her grandfather said next pointed to the VIP card in the photo. See that card? With VIP card, it'll be much easier to investigate. This made her instantly breathe a sigh of relief. But after the tense nerves relaxed, she couldn't help but want to vomit. Maybe it was because she found her grandfather and mother too disgusting. But her grandfather's next words terrified her. Da-Ying, don't be too sad. I'll handle this shameful matter. Absolutely won't let others know. And she understood that her grandfather's way of resolving this matter was to make those who knew disappear forever. Actually, 20 years ago, An Seon-hyo should have been exposed for keeping women outside. This was also an unprecedented scandal in H country. Facing reporters' various questions, he could only smile and respond, "We'll give everyone a satisfactory answer about this matter soon." But as soon as he returned to his office, he was met with his superior's fury. "You fool, didn't I tell you to handle the women around you properly? You're the next party representative. This affair with women has caused such a stir. Can you take responsibility if there's a problem with this general election?" But when he heard An Seon-hyo quietly said he had fallen in love with one of his mistresses, he couldn't help but curse again. "You fool, are you treating politics like a joke?" His superior said, now thinking back, "I really regret cultivating you when I saw how clever you were. Tell me, don't say you don't have a plan to deal with this." An Seon-hyo said he would dispose of all the women, but this wouldn't be enough to satisfy the media. "And to put a perfect end to this storm, I will have the mistress I fell in love with marry my son. This way, all the photos of me being secretly photographed with women and everything I did will make sense. Anyway, the people of H country will soon forget. They will only believe this perfect lie mixed with 30% truth. I will handle everything well, please trust me." Hearing this, his superior couldn't help but laugh. "You really are a political talent. I wasn't wrong about you. But you must keep this secret until you take it to your grave, understand?" An Seon-hyo expressionlessly nodded in agreement. "Don't worry, I will make everyone who knows this secret disappear." Then he stared maliciously at the superior's departing figure. Poor superior. Didn't hear that everyone in An Seon-hyo's mouth included him too. Can something still be called a secret when a second person knows about it? For the sake of his political career and the woman he loved, he would do anything, whether it was enemies or his subordinate of over 20 years. Even if his family, he wouldn't show any mercy. On the other side, Juncheng cursed his girlfriend with an impatient face, calling her a bitch for daring to run back to him. He didn't believe for a second that she would die if she went home. He simply thought Da-Ying was a mentally ill liar and threatened to make her die even faster. Da-Ying curled up in the corner, watching Juncheng search for a baseball bat in terror. She truly had nowhere left to turn. No one was willing to help her and no one would protect her. She desperately hoped someone would come save her. At that moment, Old Chul called Old Jin and informed him of the truth about Da-Ying's escape. He told Old Jin to stop meddling and emphasized that this was a direct order from the director. Any subsequent problems had nothing to do with White Tiger Human Resources. With Without a commission, White Tiger Human Resources absolutely could not take action. Old Jin replied in a deep voice that he understood. Sheng Hao noticed something was off with Old Jin and carefully asked if he was okay. Old Jin remained silent, recalling what Da Ying had said earlier. The girl had asked Old Jin if he would do anything for money. She also had something to ask of him. She begged Old Jin that when he took on similar commissions in the future, he could take time to listen to the students' voices, not to assume from the start that they were just being willful runaways. Perhaps he would discover something different. Maybe they really were in danger, which was why they chose to run away from home. Old Jin suddenly stood up. Sheng Hao asked, "Where are you going? Didn't they just say we can't take action without a commission?" Old Jin nodded faintly, saying he heard that. But he had already received a commission from Da Ying, so that's why he was taking action. The commission was to definitely find out the reason for running away from home, though the deposit would arrive later. On the other side, Juncheng irritably slapped Da Ying across the face. He cursed at her for being a useless woman. It was all because of her that his life was so miserable. The people her family sent made everything chaotic. Not only did it make Zhang Haozhong suspicious of him, but he also had to pay their medical fees. Zhang Haozhong's call came through like a death knell. Juncheng nervously pressed the answer button. Zhang Haozhong warned him that the debt was getting bigger and bigger, and continuing to hide would lead to big trouble. Counting the debt plus medical fees, the total with interest was 550 million. He suggested Juncheng find a way to sell organs to pay back the money, but he only had one kidney left, and selling a kidney would only get 8 million. What about the remaining 500 million? Seeing that Juncheng couldn't pay, Zhang Haozhong took the opportunity to coax him into doing business together. Juncheng seemed to sense a great business opportunity. Without waiting for Juncheng to answer, he simply assumed he agreed and hung up the phone. Juncheng suddenly asked Da Ying how long they had been dating. Learning that they had been together for 33 days, he suddenly expressed remorse for not treating her well during those 33 days. He had only left her with bad memories. Da Ying had just let down her guard and comforted him, saying he wasn't that bad. Then she was knocked unconscious by Juncheng's sudden heavy blow. Juncheng looked coldly at Da Ying as she was about to pass out. He said, "Your family is rich anyway. I can use you to exchange for money." Da Ying struggled desperately but to no avail. Old Jin and the other two finally arrived, but they were one step too late. They searched all over Juncheng's place but didn't find anyone. But Old Jin was certain Da Ying had been there. After all, this was her boyfriend's home. Someone speculated that Da Ying and Juncheng went out for coffee together, but their relationship didn't look good. As they hesitated whether to wait, Old Jin discovered a single sneaker on the ground. He had seen this shoe on Da Ying's feet before. He immediately sensed something was wrong. There were clearly signs of resistance nearby. This must be a kidnapping. On the other side, Juncheng called Da Ying's home. He pretended to be polite as he greeted Da Ying's mother, but a man's voice came through the phone. It was Da Ying's grandfather. Juncheng mistook him for Da Ying's father. He disguised himself as Da Ying's friend, lying that Da Ying was sick and urgently needed medical fees. He needed 1 billion. Seeing no response from the other end, Juncheng threatened viciously, "Do you want your daughter to lose a finger? We're already at our wits' end. We'll do anything. You must wire us the money within a day. If you still don't believe us, we can send you photos for confirmation." But An Seon-hyo was dismissive, believing they were staging this themselves. He mocked their crude threatening tactics. He firmly stated he wouldn't give any money. Juncheng panicked and asked if he should hang up. Zhang Haozhong pulled out a knife and held it to his neck. He ordered him to keep making things up. If they were discovered, they would all die. If he still didn't believe them, they would just send a finger directly and tell them to put Da Ying's mother on the phone. Juncheng said it would be better to have her father on the phone, since he heard her mother was having an affair. The reason Da Ying ran away from home in the first place was because of her mother's illicit relationship with her grandfather. Hearing this, Zhang Haozhong thought the family dynamics were too dramatic. Then he curiously asked how Juncheng knew all this. He revealed it was what Da Ying had said. She also said she was being hunted by her family. Hearing this, An Seon-hyo immediately adjusted his tone and apologized. He would send the money right away, and they could discuss it when they met. He told Juncheng to set a location and time and text him. After hanging up, Juncheng was ecstatic. The other side finally faced reality. Zhang Haozhong urged him to hurry and prepare. An Seon-hyo called his assistant in a deep voice. His eyes were sharp with killing intent as he said, "Prepare to mobilize." At that moment, No Man's Land and KSM assembled in full force. The subordinates whispered among themselves, curious about who Old Jin was on the phone with. On the other end of the call, he admitted he would come help. That day, Old Park suddenly proposed a strange plan to him. They hadn't agreed yet, and didn't understand why a high school student kidnapping case would require his involvement. Old Jin had no time to explain further, only emphasizing that the situation was definitely not simple. Hearing this, Nan director readily agreed to set out immediately. He reassured Old Jin not to worry. Those kidnappers were only domestic level. Only by killing one's comrades could one see daylight again. The rules were brutal. This was AKL, a transnational mercenary group, and Nan director was an honorably retired AKL soldier. Hearing this, Nan director directly asked Old Park about his purpose. Old Park informed him they were assembling a new team. The new team was called Ares, and its members were all battle-hardened elites. This team could be called an invincible squad. Old Park solemnly extended an invitation to Nan director, hoping he would join. He pointed out that as a mercenary, he was endlessly entangled in karmic retribution. If he was willing to join, they could help him escape this predicament and even delete his bad records. Nan director fell into deep thought. Old Park emphasized this wasn't persuasion. Rather, it was his final means of maintaining respect. He hoped he would cherish it. Under the pressure, Nan director finally voiced his concern. He worried he couldn't get along with Old Jin. He knew deeply the harm he had caused to Old Jin's daughter. Such a premeditated evil act was enough to destroy a complete family. He certainly couldn't obtain Old Jin's forgiveness. Just as he was contemplating this, Old Park's phone suddenly rang. Listening to the call, Old Park proactively asked if the other party needed manpower. He said he had someone the other party knew who who was also very capable. As he spoke, he edited detailed information and sent it over. Nan director didn't understand what he was doing. Old Park said, "This is to help lighten your burden. My friend found a new job and needs help. I've already arranged it. This is your screening assessment. Former mortal enemies now having to join forces on the same front. Just thinking about it is interesting." Nan director originally thought the mission would be difficult, but unexpectedly it was just finding a high school student. Old Park explained he invited him because his abilities could help them. As soon as they met, the subordinates found Nan director unpleasant, thinking he was very strange. Buzzcut quickly interrupted them, saying the phone was already unlocked. They were ready to go. On the other side, hearing the target was a 1 billion ransom, Juncheng's lackey was stunned. Juncheng didn't care though. Da Ying's family was so rich, exchanging for 1 billion was simple. If they dared to pull any tricks, he would directly detonate the bomb and blow them all up. He impatiently urged his lackey to prepare quickly. If he could get the 1 billion ransom, the benefits for them would be substantial. September 12th, 4 o'clock and 25 p.m., Yangsan intersection. The bodyguard team had arrived at the designated location 15 minutes early. The bodyguard holding the ransom asked where exactly they should go. The team leader ordered them to stay alert and not act rashly or expose their position. The other party was minors, who had resorted to this for money. They might act unexpectedly. They might also be disguised and waiting nearby to secretly take the ransom when they weren't paying attention. So they had to imagine all possible scenarios and stay vigilant. Just as the man finished confirming, 3 motorcycles rushed up from behind at high speed. He only reacted when the 3 approached, but it was too late. A baseball bat struck him hard. The next second, he was hit by another motorcycle. The ransom in his hand flew out. The bodyguard team immediately fell into chaos. Just as they were at a loss, Juncheng had already grabbed the ransom. Discovering the ransom was taken, they immediately called for the support team to mobilize and surround them, but it was already too late. Juncheng looked at the 1 billion ransom with wild joy. He felt a bright future beckoning to him. At the intersection, he immediately turned in the opposite direction, abandoning his lackeys behind. Listening to the angry roars of his lackeys behind him, Juncheng scoffed at how foolish they were. He had no intention of sharing the money with them. He couldn't help fantasizing about erasing his past records and starting a new life, leaving this place. Just then, Sheng Hao suddenly appeared. His guess was right. Following Juncheng would definitely lead to new discoveries. Sheng Hao provocatively told Juncheng he forgot to take his girlfriend's phone. Juncheng was shocked and asked, "How did you find me?" Sheng Hao said, "Unlocking it was a piece of cake for me. I saw the location on the couple's app and came over." Juncheng fled in panic. To shake off Sheng Hao, he turned into an alley. Sheng Hao couldn't help but feel sorry for him, because taking that route would only make things worse. Sure enough, the next second old Jin descended from above. Then with a flying kick, he knocked Juncheng off his bike. Old Jin didn't like wasting words. He directly demanded to know Da Ying's whereabouts. Juncheng was so scared he kept begging for mercy. "I don't know exactly where Da Ying is either. I only know she was taken by Zhang Haozhong. He's planning to sell Da Ying overseas while I get the ransom." At the docks, Zhang Haozhong had been waiting for a long time and was gradually losing patience. At this moment, the Yakuza members arrived fashionably late. Not only did they show no remorse on their faces, they even said arriving 5 minutes late was courtesy toward H country's people. Listening to these R country people's words, Zhang Haozhong was extremely displeased. He quickly urged them to confirm the goods. The Yakuza members suddenly sensed something was off and vigilantly looked toward one spot. It turned out Juncheng, in order to save his life, had spilled all of Zhang Haozhong's plans. Everyone was shocked, but fortunately they had prepared early. They had sent their people over there. They had already arrived at the scene now. Nan director slowly walked onto the dock with a powerful presence. He stated to everyone that he came to terminate this transaction. Before the operation, Old Jin and Nan director had already figured out a strategy. They unanimously agreed to split into 2 groups. Old Jin would take the 3 whose skills weren't mature enough to closely watch Juncheng and force him to reveal the plan. Nan director would quietly follow Zhang Haozhong and adapt based on the situation. As soon as he arrived, he encountered Taku, a Yakuza member from the Kyoto Association. Taku arrogantly told Zhang Haozhong to step aside. He wanted to see Nan director's true strength. It turned out he could tell Nan director was a master and wanted to spar with him. As soon as he swung a punch, Nan director nimbly dodged it. Seeing this, Taku used a high kick to create distance. Nan director had to block with both hands. Taku became increasingly excited. It had been a long time since he met such an opponent. Taku's moves were reckless and crude, yet didn't lack attacking power. He must have experienced many battles. He definitely wasn't an ordinary Yakuza member. The only weakness was that his skills weren't refined enough. Nan director said coldly, "You look like you've been in plenty of fights, but you're not enough to handle me." He could see Taku's openings clearly. Nan director's punches were extremely fast, and Taku quickly fell into a disadvantage. After that round of probing, he had already figured out Taku's capabilities. In his view, that level only deserved 1 star. After subduing Taku, Nan director demanded to know Da Ying's whereabouts. His eyes scanned the surroundings and quickly discovered Da Ying. He softly reassured Da Ying to relax. Now that he was here, everything would be fine. As they prepared to leave, Taku suddenly laughed lowly with an eerie tone. The boss had said long ago that doing business with the Sea country's people required backup plans. As he finished speaking, a yellow-haired man stepped forward. Nan director stared at that badge, his heart sinking. He felt a newcomer was no simple matter. Then people wearing the same badge emerged from behind him. These 3 were all executives of the Kyoto Association. Taku sneered. For such a big transaction, how could the Kyoto Association's executives not mobilize? Not only that, they also sent people to the 1 billion transaction site. At the transaction site, Juncheng was scared by Old Jin and quickly said he hadn't planned to run off with the money. Sei and Ryusei arrived at the scene, saying, just as the boss said, "You can't trust Sea country's people." They received word that the deal was broken. Kill everyone at the scene and bring back the 1 billion cash. The 2 rubbed their fists together, eager to start. And here, Taku estimated that Sei and Ryusei had already reached the scene. The slicked hair man proudly mentioned their Bushido spirit to Nan director. That was a faith they bet their lives on, absolutely not allowing mission failure, because they all held a resolve to die. Taku also got excited, mocking that mere Chinese people wouldn't understand this noble faith, but no one expected that the slicked hair man would actually stab his knife into Taku's abdomen. He regretfully said to Taku, "You should have stood further back, then I could have pierced the enemy as well. Now I've only disabled the enemy's one arm. Such a pity. But at least it's better than being held hostage and becoming a liability. This is the Bushido of sacrificing for the Kyoto Association." He cried, tears streaming down his face, as if truly thanking Taku for his sacrifice. He immediately turned and barked at his subordinates. "What are you standing there for? Taku died for Bushido. His sacrifice can't be in vain. We absolutely cannot forgive the enemy who killed Taku." Looking at the slicked hair man's appearance, Nan director realized this was a very unusual opponent. He wouldn't be easy to deal with. At the transaction site, Sheng Hao couldn't understand what these our country people were doing. The next second, a cold gleam flashed past, and Sheng Hao broke out in a cold sweat. The other party had actually aimed for his eyeball. Ryusei looked regretful that he was dodged by this H country's people. Looking at their crazed expressions, Sheng Hao's heart turned cold. These two were not normal people at all. Looking at their expressions, Sheng Hao instantly understood they were lunatics. These people were already accustomed to killing, even enjoying the pleasure of killing. Sheng Hao felt somewhat timid. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. Even if he could hit them 100 times, they only needed one knife to finish him. This was an extremely unfair match. Just then, old Jin stepped forward. Sheng Hao finally reacted. They still had old Jin. Sai and Ryusei also noticed this H country's uncle and immediately charged forward with their knives. With a muffled thud, Sei fell to the ground. Ryusei looked utterly shocked, unable to believe he was this strong. Sei, mouth full of blood, urged Ryusei to run quickly. When masked madmen met a truly ruthless character, realizing death was near, they would change from arrogant lunatics back to ordinary people. Old Jin didn't care at all about the distance between them, didn't even assume an attack stance. Ryusei was full of doubt, thinking, is this confidence a mistake or distraction? But the next second he understood this was proof of absolute strength. The Kyoto Association was the largest Yakuza organization, with human trafficking as its core business. The organization had a clear hierarchy. The general director didn't fight, with executives and action generals below. The first type of action generals charged to the front lines, they were expendable personnel. The second type was the executive group, each leading teams and wearing corresponding badges. Even as executives of the same rank, there were obvious differences in combat ability among members. Ordinary executives wore white badges, executives with outstanding strength wore black badges. The creator of this system was the first generation general director, Saki Genji. He constantly emphasized demanding subordinates to continuously improve the organization's combat power. If the organization was fully prepared, they could expand their business territory to H country, but they had to be careful when trading with H country's people and be prepared to file a report at any time. In his experience, H country harbored many unexpectedly formidable masters. At this moment, Ryusei was beaten into a pulp by old Jin but still talked tough. He claimed he would never reveal any organizational intelligence. Old Jin didn't care. He was confident he could get it out himself. He lifted his foot and brutally stomped on Ryusei on the ground again and again. He knew all the targets were gathered at Zhang Haozhong's location. They had already sent people there. On Nan director's side, Nan director and the slicked hair man fought to a draw. The subordinates were stunned. They couldn't believe this person could fight the executives to a standstill. Such agile speed and precise movements. Nan director could tell he was definitely not a simple Yakuza member. Was he from the self-defense forces or an overseas mercenary? Finally, Nan director caught the opponent's opening at the moment he threw a punch, but he didn't expect the buzz-cut fatty to sneak attack from the side. Nan director dodged at lightning speed. He was displeased that the opponent was actually cheating, 2 against 1. Just as he was about to subdue the slicked hair man, a sudden heavy punch sent him flying. Sparks flew at the moment the punch landed. Just as he was about to get up, another punch hammered him back down. Then the crew-cut fatty unleashed a beating on Nan director. He could tell Nan director was using military-exclusive combat techniques. He didn't understand why a soldier would appear here. In the moment of distraction, Nan director forcefully got up and counterattacked. One kick sent the fatty flying. He couldn't help but sigh that fighting with only his right hand was indeed somewhat strained. Nan director was still thinking about whether this counted as a master or not. Soon the slicked hair man swung his sword again. Nan director immediately switched to CQC combat techniques. His attacks became more precise and fierce, every move targeting the opponent's vital points. Suddenly someone shouted to stop, and everyone instantly froze. This yellow-haired guy saw through his fighting style and immediately identified him as being from AKL. But why would AKL people come to a place like this? Nan director was secretly surprised that he hadn't noticed this person approaching. He was certain the person before him was the strongest here. One sentence could control the entire situation. Daiki explained he had no ill intentions, saying he was also from AKL. He urged him not to be vigilant and to lower his guard and talk properly. He could tell Nan director's current condition wasn't good and asked if there was someone among the hostages he had to rescue. Nan director kept his lips tightly closed, uncertain of this person's purpose. Seeing his silence, Daiki was certain his guess was correct. He looked over the hostages with interest, curious about who was worth AKL deploying a master for. Daiki casually grabbed someone and asked, "Is it this person?" Nan director could tell Daiki was testing him. He remained expressionless. This our country's yellow hair was just bluffing. As long as he continued to remain unmoved, it would be fine. Seeing no reaction from him, Daiki could tell the person he wanted wasn't this one. Then, without hesitation, he directly stabbed that person to death. It didn't matter if it wasn't the target, he would eliminate them slowly. Daiki continued observing each one. The slicked hair man was also merciless, urging Nan director to quickly confess trust the forces and gangs behind him. Whether the people for organ trafficking lived or died didn't matter. This wasn't a loss for them at all. Another knife fell and another hostage went down. Daiki said, this person wasn't the target either. Nan director kept telling himself to stay calm, because the opponent was also a top AKL master. He absolutely couldn't let them see through his thoughts. He had to maintain his composure. If they discovered Da Ying was the person he was looking for, all efforts would be wasted. However, in just that instant of emotional change, Daiki noticed. He sneered and asked with certainty if it was this woman. Daiki scoffed, you can't even hide your expression. AKL has really changed. Nan director's heart raced. This guy was also from AKL, and he was very familiar with him. He panicked, not knowing what method to use to suppress him. What if he accidentally hurt the hostages during the suppression? Nan director was anxious and didn't know what to do. This was truly the worst situation he had ever encountered. He had to think of a perfect solution. Soon he called for a stop, telling Daiki not to waste any more effort. He said his thoughts becoming complicated had nothing to do with this woman. Actually, he didn't want to use this method, but he was already at his wit's end. Daiki didn't believe his words at all. Nan director gritted his teeth and lifted his pant leg. Daiki wondered what that thing was. Nan director stated this was his answer. On the other side, old Jin rode his motorcycle with Sheng Hao and Xiao Huang, racing toward the docks. Sheng Hao was sweating with anxiety. They didn't even know which specific port it was. The Yakuza members wouldn't reveal it. So Jun Cheng knew nothing about it either. The information they currently had was that they were at a port, but this place was surrounded by sea on all sides. There was more than one port. Finding Da Yang and Nan director was simply too difficult. He regretted for a moment that they should have interrogated Jun Cheng more. If they couldn't get it out of him, taking the money would have been good too. But old Jin disagreed, because staying there would only lead to more trouble. At this moment, Jun Cheng was covered in injuries, cursing as he moved his body. Gasping for breath, he just wanted to get his hands on the money first. An Sion Hyo's assistant found Jun Cheng and immediately reported to his master that the person was found. An Sion Hyo ordered him killed directly. He said he would arrive at the scene soon. After dealing with it, the assistant saw the miserable death scene of the two Yakuza members, his heart tightening. He reported again that the situation seemed more complex than imagined. He stated bluntly that their current manpower was definitely not enough. Hearing this, An Sion Hyo's face darkened. He complained that old KJWI's people were doing things half-heartedly this time. Although they had previously agreed to trust them, he still had key personnel stay nearby on standby. Old Koi grinned cheekily, saying the after-sales service had arrived. He tried to contact old Jin but found the other party was on a call. At this moment, old Jin hung up the phone and said he had locked onto the location. Sheng Hao and Xiao Huang looked confused, curious how he knew the location. Old Jin said he asked a trustworthy friend. He said that person was absolutely trustworthy. But Sheng Hao and Xiao Huang were curious about how that friend knew Zhang Haozhong's location. A few days ago, Old Park brought out an ankle monitor to give to Nan director. He proudly told him this was a symbol of honor. It was a 24-hour tracking satellite GPS. Made with high specifications, it needed regular charging, and if damaged, it would immediately send an alert. Old Park looked proud, saying this was his daughter's innovative design. Nan director tried to speak several times but was interrupted. He felt speechless. There was no way to communicate with him. Old Park was still introducing the ankle monitor's survival functions. At that time, Nan director still didn't know on what occasion he would use this thing. If that day ever came, it would definitely be the worst day of his life. Here, Daiki stared at the thing on Nan director's ankle monitor. A subordinate explained in a low voice, this is the electronic ankle monitor that H country forces sexual offenders to wear. Seeing this, Nan director bit the bullet and lied, saying he was a criminal, not here to rescue anyone. Daiki questioned what his unusual expression earlier was about and told him to explain clearly. Nan director said this woman was his type. She looked like someone from his past. He knew in his heart this lie was absurd, but he just hoped to buy more time. Daiki couldn't help muttering, this woman looks quite young. A subordinate beside him added, the ankle monitor is a symbol of scum in H country. Daiki fell into thought, unable to distinguish whether this was true or false. But truth didn't matter. This situation was quite interesting. Daiki stared at Nan director, questioning why he only mentioned this now. Daiki considered whether to believe his words. Nan director assumed a fighting stance and said, now is not the time to kill people. I'm being tracked, and by very dangerous people. The subordinates outside still didn't understand the situation and couldn't help muttering about why Sei and Ryusei hadn't arrived yet. At this moment, Old Jin's group had already arrived at Zhongshan Port Dock 1. A moment later, Daiki said, defeating all organization members alone, even the executives couldn't match you. You indeed have some ability, truly impressive. Only when he was fighting just now, he deliberately looked at Nan director's ankle shackle. That wasn't the style of a criminal's shackle. He questioned in confusion, why exactly did you pretend to be a criminal to deliberately stall for time? Nan director answered, because I'm from AKL, a mercenary who gives everything for the mission. Being able to use every means to complete the objective is the top priority. Daiki praised him as worthy of being AKL's rising star. Very spirited. He took the opportunity to probe which faction he was currently under. If he didn't have one, he was willing to recruit him. Nan director coldly refused, because someone had already extended an invitation to him first. That unwavering look in his eyes made Daiki secretly regret missing such talent. Although he also appreciated the man's determination, he was also executing a mission, so he couldn't possibly let him go. Being able to meet here was also an honor. Before his words ended, he drew his sword. Nan director was already prepared to receive the attack, but the opponent's speed far exceeded his reaction speed. That unbelievably fast sword-drawing speed shocked Nan director. Daiki withdrew his hand, stating he hadn't cut very heavily, so he wouldn't die here. But he still didn't understand what kind of girl was worth deploying a master like him. He even began to eagerly anticipate what other figures would appear next. Nan director now had only one thought in his heart, this guy is too strong. He even felt he might pose a significant threat to that man. At this moment, Sheng Hao and Xiao Huang finally arrived at the location Old Jin indicated. The number of opponents far exceeded their expectations. Only the scene was chaotic, with people urgently shouting to hurry and move things. Looking at the densely packed ships before them left them both shocked. Each ship had personnel stationed on it. Searching would be no easy task. Currently, the most suspicious was that largest ferry. But Old Jin suddenly proposed splitting up. Xiang Hao didn't understand why. Old Jin said, "The situation ahead will be very dangerous. You two go back first. You've worked hard." Old Jin's unusual words scared them both badly. Ignoring the calls of the two behind him, Old Jin walked alone toward that largest ferry. Xiang Hao really didn't understand why Old Jin was suddenly so reckless. What if the other party took the opportunity to escape? Xiao Huang said he understood the big brother's intention. When police go to crime scenes, they sound their sirens. On one hand, they hope criminals will hear and stop in time. Even if it might prompt criminals to flee, it can prioritize protecting victims' safety. Big brother's current action was like a police car sounding its siren to the other party. Seeing this unexpected intruder suddenly enter, the small-time thugs shouted harshly to drive him away. Before they finished speaking, they were knocked down by Old Jin's punch. Everyone present didn't escape Old Jin's attacks. His movements were efficient, his techniques dazzling. Soon, the first few subordinates who surrounded him were dealt with cleanly by Old Jin. Inside the cabin, Nan Director was stripped and hung up by Daiki. Faintly hearing sounds outside, a subordinate said, "Could it be H country's police arrived?" But Daiki thought it was completely impossible. But strangely, they couldn't contact SA and Raisei at all either. They suspected the two had met with misfortune and suggested leaving this place first. Seeing everyone's unease, Daiki decided to go check it out himself. Opening the door, he encountered a shocking scene. A man was single-handedly fighting against many, his strength formidable. The arriving subordinates didn't understand the situation, thinking it was just one C country's person making things so difficult for them. They roared with killing intent as they charged toward Old Jin, but Old Jin merely swung the rope in his hand, and small-time thugs fell one after another. At this moment, Daiki pulled a sneak attack again, swinging his sword fiercely. But Old Jin easily dodged it by stepping aside. The two of them fought back and forth for several rounds, evenly matched. During the standoff, Daiki asked him, "Are you the companion of that person from AKL?" However, this entrance was too flashy. Could it be a special rescue signal? What touching loyalty. But he should be close to death now. I deliberately left him half alive and didn't destroy the ankle monitor, just to see who would come. I didn't expect the one to fall into the trap would be you, an uncle about to retire. How disappointing. Old Jin directly asked him back, "Do you think your trap really works? The ones who truly fell into the trap should be them. You're the strongest here, yet you dared to come out alone," leaving Nan Director inside. Meanwhile, Nan Director also skillfully locked the knife-wielding man's neck with his legs. The man struggled as his neck was choked. Soon the man collapsed on the ground from suffocation, and those around didn't dare approach. Nan Director successfully burned through the rope on his hands, using the high temperature of the red wire from the ankle monitor. The underlings instantly panicked and took Da Ying hostage, warning him not to move, otherwise they would hurt the hostage. Nan Director used CQC techniques and instantly subdued everyone at the scene. Outside, Old Jin continued to taunt. His skills and judgment are both excellent. I really don't understand why you would leave him inside the cabin. And I haven't retired yet. The efficiency of the mercenary industry is far from what the outside world imagines. They're harder to control than soldiers, often accompanied by brutal acts like looting. Plus, with high hiring costs and international legal constraints, their position is awkward. Even the convention doesn't recognize their combatant status. They don't even get basic treatment when captured. Yet people still flock to it for one core reason. That is, they're strong enough. Strength is the absolute guarantee for mission completion. This is the ironclad proof of the strong. The long-haired man angrily rushed forward, shouting that he would kill Nan Director. Unfortunately, the skill gap was too wide. Even 2 against 1, they were easily defeated. After dealing with all the small fries at the scene, Nan Director tore off the tape on Da Ying's face, signaling it was time to leave. He would take her away. Before he could finish speaking, Da Ying screamed in terror, because she believed the lies Nan Director made up, thinking he was really a pervert, screaming for this sex offender to get away. In panic, Da Ying claimed she was a high school student one moment, then changed her words saying she was underage, desperately arguing she wasn't his type, even blurting out she was a man. Nan Director was utterly helpless. Today was truly the unluckiest day. He wanted to explain this misunderstanding to her, but she became even more afraid, threatening to bite her tongue. Nan Director tried hard to persuade her to calm down first. This was his first time encountering such a situation. At this moment, an impatient voice rang out. "Why are you so noisy? Who was this person?" that even Nan Director showed a look of terror. At the port, Old Jin used leverage to twist off Daiki's fingers. Looking at his 2 severed pinky fingers, Daiki suspected he did it on purpose. It turned out there was a rule for leaving the Yakuza organization, which was to cut off the pinky finger. Old Jin's tone was provocative. Now who exactly has retired? Daiki was completely enraged. He dared to play him. Old Jin used the wire in his hand and quickly blocked all his attacks. Turning back with a flying kick, he sent Daiki flying hard. This time he used full force, hitting Daiki until he coughed up blood. Old Jin pursued relentlessly. The moment he fell, the force from his foot actually broke through the ground. Who knew he dodged it, swinging his blade toward Old Jin's neck. Old Jin tilted his head to dodge, only sustaining a minor injury. Daiki also had to admit that although Old Jin was at retirement age, he was still very very formidable. Daiki was still confident he would use full force to defeat him. This wasn't a battle between ordinary people, but an ultimate confrontation between masters. A 1-second difference could determine life or death. Victory or defeat was decided in an instant. At this time, in two different worlds completely divided by a piece of paper, Daiki used his usual CQC close combat technique, just waiting for his opponent to step into his attack range. Old Jin walked in without hesitation. Daiki immediately locked onto his target, certain one strike could finish Old Jin. He swung what he thought was the most lethal blow with all his might. In the end, the blade only damaged the opponent's glasses, causing no substantial harm. Daiki was first shocked, then laughed wildly. He angrily denounced, "You're too arrogant, you dare to play me. Not only breaking my blade, but also stealing my sunglasses. In the name of an AKL retired soldier of honor, I will." Before he could finish, Old Jin asked in confusion, "The sea country you mentioned, is it the south or the north?" Daiki knew he was being played again. Roaring, he was about to rush forward to take Old Jin's life. A familiar voice from the deck stopped him. The fatty angrily scolded Daiki, "You failed at your task. It's just transporting sea country people. How did you make such a mess?" Daiki, who was just arrogant, was now afraid. He quickly apologized and promised to handle it immediately. Then the fatty on the deck actually lifted Nan Director with one hand, questioning, "Why are there flies buzzing around? Can you handle things properly or not?" Daiki immediately apologized humbly. Before he finished speaking, he was knocked down by Old Jin's impatient punch. He angrily said to the fatty, "Big fly, who exactly are you?" This person was Kyoto Association's strongest force, Deputy General Manager Fujimori Yuki. 5 minutes ago, Fujimori Yuki was woken up by the commotion Nan Director made. As soon as he appeared, he subdued Nan Director with just one hand. Then he looked around for Daiki, wanting to figure out what was going on. Nan Director struggled unwillingly in his hand, trying to use his legs to strangle on this fatty. Unexpectedly, this angered him. He tightened his grip, and Nan Director moaned in pain. Fujimori Yuki frowned irritably, questioning whether he was from Z country. But Nan Director had already fainted. His hands dropped down, completely stopped struggling. Da Ying was scared out of her wits by the scene before her, screaming uncontrollably. 5 minutes later, looking at Old Jin at the dock, Fujimori Yuki wondered who he was talking to. This person seemed very angry, but he couldn't understand sea country language, didn't know what he was saying. A subordinate nearby notified, "We received news, Interpol has intervened, we can't delay any longer, and we've already discovered traces of SA and Risei inland." Hearing this, he said irritably, "Overseas business trips are really troublesome, always entangled in a bunch of broken matters." With that, he disgustedly threw the person in his hand into the sea. Fujimori Yuki ordered, "Begin the operation." The subordinate received the instruction, immediately commanded Kyoto Association to prepare to set sail. Fujimori Yuki specifically instructed, "Don't forget to show the remaining sea country people the wonders of the Yakuza way. The Shanjin group stays behind to handle the aftermath. Everyone else prepare to set sail." This action enraged Old Jin. He couldn't tolerate it anymore. He took out his dagger and with extreme speed dealt with a group of small fries rushing toward him, then bit the dagger and dove into the sea to save people. Finding the unconscious Nan Director, Old Jin quickly went forward, trying to swim up with him. 3 Yakuza members immediately approached him from behind. On shore, Shanjun ordered his men to find heavy objects to hang on themselves, must catch Old Jin. This was a suicide attack by Yakuza members. Even death must complete the mission. The Yakuza members shouted they would never let this sea country person go. However, the next second he was stabbed by Old Jin. More and more Yakuza members died under Old Jin's blade. Shanjun was still frantically urging his subordinates to continue jumping down. "Don't stop, today they must catch this sea country person." Suddenly, the sea surface turned a glaring blood red. Shanjun wasn't sure whose blood it was for a moment, asking nervously for the result. A subordinate exclaimed something was floating up. He leaned in to look. What floated up seemed to be a person. Suddenly, something suddenly knocked him down. Shanjun looked at Old Jin emerging from the water in terror, saying, "What kind of monster is this? How could they possibly still be alive?" Shanjun anxiously called for support. They must kill him. At this moment, Xiao Huang suddenly drove over at high speed, crashing heavily into Shanjun. The subordinates were shocked and exclaimed, "Where did these people come from?" Xingtai and Hangman arrived on motorcycles, swinging baseball bats and knocking down a bunch of small fries. They screamed miserably, completely unable to figure out where these people came from. At this time, Old Jin was struggling to climb ashore while holding Nan Director. Seeing this, Xiao Huang extended his hand to help Old Jin, urgently calling for him to come up quickly. Taking Nan Director from Old Jin's hands, he joked that this electronic ankle monitor was really cool. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came. Everyone's hearts sank. They were done for. The ship sailed away. What should they do? Old Jin suppressed his anger and anxiety, saying, "What else can we do? We can only pray everything is safe." On the cabin, someone was directing the operation, telling them to hurry up, speed must be fast. Living people should be fed medicine to make them unconscious first. Dead people all put in ice. Fujimori Yuki instructed them to report immediately after processing. Behind him, Sheng Hao and Xiaoying were running around anxiously on the ship. They had just sneaked on board, didn't expect the ship to leave. Looking at everyone on the deck, they had no idea what to do, felt completely doomed. Xiaoying suggested they should get off the ship quickly. He became more and more hysterical, couldn't help but wail, "I don't want to die young." Before he finished speaking, he noticed Sheng Hao had walked away. Xiaoying asked him in confusion what he was doing. Sheng Hao didn't answer, just stared intently at the gun on the table. Countless thoughts surged in his mind. He turned and asked Xiaoying, "Do you want to be recognized by Big Brother? Since we can't beat him, and there's no way to get rid of him, we might as well get his recognition instead." He proposed, "How about we hijack this ship together?" Sheng Hao was certain Big Brother didn't expect the ship to suddenly sail away. This was a golden opportunity. Xiaoying watched him load the gun cleanly and efficiently, couldn't help but be afraid. Sheng Hao told Xiaoying to follow follow behind him, the hijacking and piloting would be left to him. Xiaoying asked in confusion if he knew how to operate a ship. Shang Hao said confidently, "I know how to ride a motorcycle, that's enough." Xiaoying tried to stop Shang Hao, thinking this wouldn't work. Unexpectedly, Fujimori Yuki pushed the door open at this moment. The two didn't have time to think, hastily found places to hide, not daring to breathe. Fujimori Yuki got stuck in the doorway, unable to move. He complained the ship was too small. Every time he had to turn sideways, his chest got stuck. A subordinate quickly flattered him, promising to prepare a larger ship next time. Fujimori Yuki instructed the subordinate to wake him when they reached shore and to handle that little girl as he said. Shang Hao was so scared he was incoherent, constantly encouraging himself to shoot. Xiaoying was afraid, wanted him to stop, but neither dared make a sound. He felt they were doomed this time. At this moment, Fujimori Yuki was disturbed by noisy sounds. He asked about the situation in confusion. The subordinate stammered in fear. "There's a small boat docked next to us. Don't know when this boat appeared, but the anchor has already been raised." Fujimori asked in confusion if it was the Coast Guard. The subordinate denied it, saying it was just an empty fishing boat. It seemed someone had infiltrated the ship. Fujimori ordered a quick search. He suspected it was the sea country person from earlier. Suddenly, screams came from behind. Fujimori inquired what exactly happened. Those two people fell in a pool of blood before they could answer. Subordinate shouted in terror that someone was being attacked, and keenly sensed the attacker was highly skilled, not an ordinary person. Continuous screams came from the lower cabin. Fujimori Yuki impatiently ordered everyone to quiet down. As Yakuza members, making such a fuss over such a small matter was simply disgraceful. What was there to fear? That small boat didn't seem to have many people either. He told everyone to step aside, declaring he would personally handle this matter next. He excitedly expressed it had been a long time since things were this interesting. He hummed a tune as he walked in. Looking at the dense wires on the ground, he praised the opponent's thorough preparation, but daring to be so blatant. There must be other tricks. Suddenly, Old Jin took him by surprise, attacking from above. Unexpectedly, the opponent reacted extremely fast, directly sending him flying hard. Fujimori Yuki said with a contemptuous look, "Is this all the strength you have? Since you could beat Daiki and board this ship, you should also be from special forces. Do you need me to make you the same as Daiki and the others?" Fujimori recalled how back then the AKL people came at him together. That was somewhat interesting. But in the end, they all died. Only Daiki survived. But he wouldn't let Old Jin go, simply because he was from sea country. Before Fujimori finished speaking, Old Jin's wire had already wrapped around his wrist. Old Jin pulled hard, taking advantage of his unstable center to launch a fierce attack. His knee heavily struck Fujimori Yuki's face, immediately followed by a turning flying kick. But unexpectedly, Fujimori could still counterattack. Yet he still couldn't match Old Jin. Old Jin was faster. One punch made his nose bleed profusely. The subordinates were uneasy, torn about whether to go down and help. But if they went down, they would only be affected by Fujimori Yuki's attacks, purely dying in vain. Just wait a bit longer. Once the ship entered their territorial waters, they'd be safe. And they firmly believed the deputy general manager was powerful. There was no way he could lose. At this moment, Fujimori was at a disadvantage. His eyes finally became sharp. His punching speed was faster than before. He taunted, "If you have the ability, just keep stalling for time like this, because continuing to stall would only be more advantageous to them." Once the ship entered their territorial waters, a large number of armed personnel would immediately respond. No matter how strong Old Jin was, he couldn't match the power of firearms. Guns had extremely high cost effectiveness. Firearms could solve all disputes, gaps, and trust issues. Fujimori was about to make his move. A gunshot rang out, the situation instantly reversed. Xiaoying burst into the ship's bridge with a gun, warning them not to move. Next, they would occupy this ship. He nervously asked Shang Hao, "Are you really reliable at operating the ship?" Shang Hao looked at the control panel with a blank face, randomly pressed down on a lever. The ship suddenly tilted. Everyone panicked. Seawater poured directly into the hull. Xiaoying was scared out of his wits, hastily telling Shang Hao to think of a solution. Fujimori Yuki also lost his balance due to the ship tilting. Old Jin took the opportunity to kick again. Unexpectedly, Fujimori forcibly restrained him. Old Jin immediately raised his leg to strangle his neck, struggling to press him down. He also agreed that guns had high cost effectiveness, but those people really didn't listen to advice. Clearly told them the safest method, but they chose the most dangerous approach. And now the game should end. Xiaoying roared, advising Shang Hao not to press randomly anymore. He knew Shang Hao wanted to turn back, but now the ship was about to flip over. A strong sense of weightlessness hit. Xiaoying screamed, feeling he was going to fall into the sea. Kyoto Association subordinates told their companions to hold on to the railing. They had to find a way to stop the ship from moving. The people receiving them on the opposite ship were dumbfounded. What happened to the deputy general manager's ship? Shang Hao roared with red eyes. "Damn it, where's the throttle? Is it this one?" He tried to push this lever up. A strange mechanical sound rang out. His face was blank, not knowing what happened. He asked Xiaoying in confusion if he heard that strange sound. Xiaoying realized what happened, screamed frantically for him to pull up the deck. Seawater was madly pouring into the hull. On the other side, Old Jin pulled the thin wire tight, strangling Fujimori's neck. The wire was almost embedded in the flesh, yet Fujimori still broke free. Fujimori got up and slammed Old Jin hard to the ground. His tone was mocking. "To cut off my head, you'd at least need to bring an axe. Just look at the thickness of my neck. Such a thin wire, how could it possibly pose a threat to me?" He was certain Old Jin had no chance of winning. His tone was sarcastic. "There's simply no hope of defeating me." Unexpectedly, Old Jin kicked back at Fujimori's fist, pushed hard. Old Jin swung a punch fiercely, with astonishing force. Even Fujimori couldn't help but be surprised. This strike actually hurt more than he imagined. He was completely enraged, swung his fist, but was nimbly dodged by Old Jin. And Old Jin's moves were faster than before, specifically attacking Fujimori's vital points. Taking advantage of Fujimori's stumbling, Old Jin flashed behind him. He tightly hugged Fujimori's waist. Using the momentum, he slammed him hard to the ground. Fujimori was thrown in severe pain. This was the first time he was suppressed to this degree. What humiliated him even more was that his opponent was someone from H country whom he looked down upon. Fujimori had once ordered the elimination of all Yakuza members who were R country expatriates, not leaving a single one, killing all regardless of gender. Someone said he was violating agreements, couldn't kill ordinary people like this, couldn't exterminate them completely, just because they were R country expatriates. Fujimori didn't care and mocked. C country people don't know their place yet dare to provoke. This is the characteristic of C country people. After dealing with the first R country expatriate who caused trouble, he grinned sinisterly and announced, "The game begins. Hurry up and run. I won't spare women and children either. You all run freely, the farther the better. If by the time I count to 3 everyone still can't escape, you're completely dead." His thoughts returned to the present. Fujimori was slammed out hard by old Jin again. This time what was attacked was still the neck. Seeing old Jin rushing toward him again, he immediately got up, but was grabbed by both feet by old Jin. Old Jin struggled to swing Fujimori up. Using the rotational momentum, he threw Fujimori far away. Only at this moment did Fujimori have to admit he had misjudged earlier. At first he only took old Jin as a small poisonous scorpion, although poisonous but not to be feared. But as the fight continued, he gradually realized he was trending toward disadvantage. Old Jin once again wrapped the wire around his ankle, then swung him out hard. Fujimori suddenly awakened. This wasn't fighting at all, it was a hunting method. In this life and death confrontation, he had long become the prey being hunted. In the end, Kyoto Association's deputy general manager Fujimori Yuki was defeated miserably before old Jin. Old Jin said coldly, "Locking the neck is the foundation of hunting." At the port, An Seon-hyo and his assistant were waiting for them to return. An Seon-hyo's face was gloomy, beginning to question whether old Ko-Wai was really reliable. Zhang Haozhong was beaten so badly he couldn't speak a complete sentence. Old Ko-Wai hastily came forward to smooth things over, saying, "It's because I didn't do well with the new recruit training that things became more and more troublesome. Over time and after sales service combined, much profit was lost. Old Jin really is a disobedient person. Old Jin must be taught a lesson." At this time, Dai Ying was locked in the cold freezer, curled up in the corner shivering. She really couldn't understand how things evolved to this point. What would her future be like? This question puzzled her endlessly. Just now she had also been trying to save herself, but the door just wouldn't open no matter what. She couldn't help but fear she would end up with the same result as these corpses. Hoped someone would come save her. In the silence, footsteps gradually approaching made Dai Ying's nerves instantly tense. The cabin door was slowly pushed open. A familiar figure appeared at the door. Seeing clearly the person was old Jin, Dai Ying cried tears of joy. She threw herself into old Jin's arms regardless of everything, crying her heart out. Old Jin tightly pulled Dai Ying and ran wildly outward. Dai Ying just wanted to ask him what to do now. Suddenly, piercing gunfire rang out outside. Several Yakuza members brought guns, shooting frantically toward the driver's cab. Xiao Ying was so anxious he was incoherent, didn't know what to do. Sheng Hao was also extremely anxious, didn't know how to make the ship zigzag forward. He felt as long as he could slightly zigzag forward, he could shake them off. Just then, old Jin appeared, dealing with the Yakuza member closest to him. Another companion saw old Jin was still alive, immediately realized the deputy general manager lost. Before he could react, he was kicked flying by old Jin. Old Jin smoothly seized his gun. He held the gun and successively dealt with a group of subordinates who rushed over. Sheng Hao watched dumbfounded, looked at this middle-aged man with hidden skills with new respect. So the middle-aged uncle was this cool when he got serious. Xiao Ying suddenly shouted that he discovered land. That was H country. The two instantly ignited with hope, excitedly crying while hugging. But Xiao Ying suddenly discovered the key to the problem. Asked Sheng Hao if he knew how to stop the ship. Only then did Sheng Hao discover the control panel somehow started smoking. Seeing this, old Jin immediately shouted danger, telling the two to dodge, just in case. He asked them to put on life jackets quickly. He instructed while trying to control the out-of-control ship, but it was futile. The ship careened out of control toward the port. Zhao Ying and Dai Ying had long been scared speechless. Old Jin tried his utmost to control the direction. Seeing the ship heading straight to crash onto shore, everyone was exceptionally calm. Old Kolbiwai calmly drank his soda, his tone teasing, "Look at him, making such a big mess on his first mission." The assistant immediately blocked in front of An Seon-hyo, worried he might get hurt. Old Kwai continued to sigh at the spectacular scene. But the ship was broken. Old Jin would have to pay for it. Such bad luck on the first mission. The ship finally got stuck and stopped. Old Kwai questioned old Jin, "Why didn't you answer the phone? How exactly did you handle things?" Old Jin apologized lightly, saying, "I was busy, so I didn't get the call." "What does the director need me for?" The director said in confusion. "Don't you know? If there's no commission, you can't act easily. Is it because it's your first mission? So you forgot the rules?" Seeing old Jin didn't respond, he was somewhat dissatisfied, saying, "What's going on here? Why don't you answer? Are you resisting me?" But old Jin still remained silent. Suddenly, Sheng Hao screamed in shock, signaling him to look behind. That guy Fujimori Yuki was actually still alive. Fujimori Yuki looked at old Jin with hatred. Seeing this face again, Sheng Hao was still scared and trembling all over. Old Kwai turned around displeased and made eye contact with Fujimori. Fujimori said in confusion, "Who are you? Are you that sea country person's subordinate?" Before he finished speaking, he was dealt a fierce blow by old Kwai. On the spot, he breathed his last. This was old Kwai's method of maintaining order. Daring to interrupt his speech, really didn't know how to read the situation. situation. The director turned his head and questioned old Jin again. Are you clear about the rule of no action without commission? Old Jin recalled Da Ying's reminder again. If receiving similar commissions again, must listen to the student's voice before making judgment. Don't assume from the start she's willfully running away from home. Perhaps there are other hidden circumstances. Old Jin finally said, I'm clear about the rules, but I really can't just stand by and watch. At this stage, compared to money, I value inner conviction and principles more. Old KJY laughed lightly after hearing this. In his view, money was his only conviction. A beggar is the king of the streets. This phrase applies to those from the bottom of society who can still reach the pinnacle. Although such situations are quite rare, there are still ruthless characters who can kill their way from the bottom directly to the top of the underworld. That was old KWY. Old Jin could clearly feel old KYY's aura was very different from during the interview. His presence now became very dangerous. Old KY very impatiently asked old Jin one last time, do you choose money? Or do you choose conviction? Old Jin's eyes were determined as he said, sorry, I still choose. Before he finished speaking, old Kabawai fiercely threw a punch at old Jin, bursting with overwhelming, destructive power. Old Kabawai seemed to really want to teach this disobedient subordinate a lesson. Consecutive attacks, plus his unbelievable speed. Old Jin could only try his best to defend. Just when old KWI exerted his strength to throw the final punch, wanting to finish old Jin finally found an opportunity to counterattack, stealing old KWI's tie. He wrapped old Koi's tie around his wrist, then pulled hard to drag him down. The instant he fell, old Jin quickly stepped forward, delivered a barrage to old KWI's face, swinging several punches in succession. But the damage to him didn't seem very high. Old KWI finally got impatient, tore apart the tie, binding him with bare hands. Mocked that old Jin still didn't understand this industry. Since doing this line of work, one can't be easily swayed by others' emotional cards, only money is reliable. Old Jin said, can this principle be applied to a student's life? Seeing he still wouldn't listen, old KBY was too lazy to persuade him anymore. Better to let him suffer a bit first before they could communicate properly. Men don't need to be persuaded with words, it's more practical to have a fight. While the two were fighting intensely, An Seon-hyo took the opportunity to order his assistant to bring Da-ying back. The assistant immediately called bodyguards saying, the media has started asking about the situation. Bring the person back quickly. At this moment, Sheng Hao suddenly appeared, knocking down those two bodyguards, said, without old Jin's order, no one can randomly take Da-ying away. While he was talking tough, a man in sunglasses attacked from behind extremely fast. Fortunately, Sheng Hao blocked it all. The man in sunglasses didn't expect his opponent was actually a high school student, instantly lowered his guard. Sheng Hao was on full alert, didn't know what this opponent's background was. He initially thought this guy did taekwondo or boxing, but after a few moves he felt something was wrong. This guy clearly knew everything. He was a mixed martial artist. Just as he was preparing his next move, a bodyguard who had been knocked down earlier crashed into the man in sunglasses. Xiao Ying held an iron rod, standing in front of Da-ying, roared for these bodyguards to get lost. This momentum really intimidated some bodyguards. They didn't dare step forward. Seeing Grandpa, Da-ying's emotions instantly spiraled out of control. She hysterically shouted, questioning why Grandpa was having an affair with Mom. Her voice was so loud everyone present could hear. An Seon-hyo, who was on the phone, instantly froze in place. The person on the other end of the phone seemed to have heard too, also somewhat incredulous. Da-ying continued to question, you clearly knew you couldn't do this. Just because I accidentally found out Grandpa's secret, I have to be silenced. If that's the case, I might as well make this secret public. You can't possibly kill everyone, can you? How many times did you think this method could work? An Seon-hyo said with a cold tone. Things have come to this point, I can only see it through to the end. Your friends, and everyone here, even you. Since things had already developed to this point, I could only carry it through to the end. At this moment, Jin Xiaocheng appeared with members of the Blue Dragon Credit Agency. Jin Xiaocheng said with a disdainful look, is this all the people there are? Suddenly he noticed old Kui and said, how come no one told me that the Earth King was here too? An Seon-hyo threatened. At this point, you're not going to flee at the last minute, are you? Jin Xiaocheng replied with a smile. I took the money, so naturally I'll do the job. I've wanted to fight the Earth King for a long time anyway. After all, he's a legendary figure. Old Kowai said in confusion. What's the situation now? Are you going to kill us all together? I came here specifically for after-sales service, and I haven't even charged extra service fees yet. An Seon-hyo interrupted. Your fees are too expensive. This time sealing mouths will probably be difficult. So I spent time cultivating a batch of experts in various fields who are better than you. I'm announcing the end of our contract after all. Compared to hush money, the cost of killing you is lower. Old KWI sneered continuously and said, breach of contract requires payment of liquidated damages. Old Jin heard this and mocked. Is this the director's belief? The director's belief was money. Therefore, he had seen many dirty things. Currently, old Jin didn't quite understand the importance of money yet. However, he was very clear that if things continued like this, both of their beliefs would become useless. Old Kowai reminded old Jin, the matter between us isn't finished yet. Old Jin thought so too, and instructed him to definitely not get injured. The duel was about to begin. Jin Xiaocheng wasn't quite clear about the relationship between the two of them and asked, is the person next to the Earth King his employee? The lackey beside him said the two of them had just been fighting. Jin Xiaocheng said with disdain, it seems he still doesn't understand the situation. This line of work isn't as simple as fighting. It's clearly a dangerous business of taking money to hunt lives. He actively went forward to strike up a conversation conversation with old KWI and introduced his own identity. Before he finished speaking, old KWI directly started fighting. Right in front of Jin Xiaocheng, he cleaned up these little lackeys in just a few moves. He said angrily, "Someone actually dares to steal my business. I'll have to see just how capable you all are." Saying this, old Koyu got up ready to give Jin Xiaocheng a blow. Seeing this, the other party remained calm and calmly ordered his subordinates to prepare the stun guns. He shook his head with feigned regret and said, "How long are you planning to solve things with fists? Although I don't know how good you are at fighting. Fighting and warfare are not on the same level. You ignorant fools." While Jin Xiaocheng was still lecturing, old Jin's eyes and hands were quick, using silk thread to wrap around old Kui's hand. Then he pulled him away from the range of the stun guns. He reminded old Kawai that although these were only stun guns, he still needed to be a bit careful. Old Kawai didn't care at all and said bluntly that this level was nothing at all. As soon as he finished speaking, those few gun-wielding lackeys immediately aimed at him and fired. Unexpectedly, when he was hit by the stun guns, his expression didn't change at all. He even seemed to enjoy it. They panicked completely. What on earth was going on? They exclaimed in shock that the stun guns had no effect on him. In the chaos, no one dared to go forward. This man's strength was terrifyingly powerful. It seemed nothing had any effect on him. They couldn't imagine at all a scene where this man would lose to anyone. With a few punches from old KJDY, these few lackeys fell to the ground one after another. The remaining few fired their guns shouting, "This person is simply a monster." But they discovered bullets had no effect on him at all and urgently called for someone to get anesthetic guns. Then they surrounded him, using human wave tactics. Facing the encirclement, old KWI still didn't panic, smiling broadly, joking that so many people would make him shy. Seeing this, old Jin quickly joined the battle, the silk thread in his hands wrapped around several people's necks like venomous snakes. With a forceful pull, the silk thread cut through several people's necks like a blade. By now, old Jin finally understood why the director was called a fighting genius. However, he was more curious about how much the director valued money. Old Kowiwai said proudly, "See that? We also have warfare experts on our side, by the way. How much money did you guys take?" Jin Xiaocheng laughed mockingly. Still curious about this at a time like this, "Are you afraid others don't know you're from the streets?" He clamored about personally, demonstrating real strength. Old Kubawai only felt he was shallow and swung a punch at him. Jin Xiaocheng was directly punched into a pit, the impact sound accompanied by sparks flying. Jin Xiaocheng couldn't believe how anyone could have such great strength. The huge impact sound left An Seonhyo stunned. Cold sweat seeped from his forehead due to fear. This sound was actually comparable to cannon fire. How could hitting someone produce this kind of sound? It was simply astonishing. Old Koalai's power was beyond reach. Whoever dared to be this person's enemy would only end up with their souls scattered in the end. Old Koalai turned to An Seonhyo and said, "After cooperating for so many years, you've truly hurt my feelings today. You even found such a rookie to be my opponent. Since that's the case, however much you gave Jin Xiaocheng, you'll pay me 20 times that as liquidated damages." An Seonhyo was shocked that he wanted so much. Old Kobawai continued, "The hush money for you and your daughter-in-law's secret is 30 times the commission fee." But An Seonhyo simply couldn't come up with that much. He could never gather that much money in his lifetime. Old KJBY sneered and said, "You go ask your family for money. I must receive this money. If needed, I can also help transfer assets. Dozens of Gangnam properties, trust shares, companies established in family members' names, and family members' death insurance benefits. All of these are acceptable. I said long ago that having me take action personally would be more expensive." Saying this, he was about to take action to control him, preventing him from escaping. Old Jin suddenly reached out to stop him, reminding him that Miss Da Ying was still at the scene. They should talk about work matters somewhere else. Then he questioned An Seonhyo extremely unhappily about how he could make things turn out like this. Did he really want to kill his own granddaughter? Old Kowai said dissatisfied, "We're talking about money here. How can you interrupt me so casually?" Old Jin believed they shouldn't mention death insurance benefits in front of the victim. The surrounding atmosphere was oppressive to the extreme. No one dared to approach even half a step. A phone rang. Sheng Hao picked up a call from Hingman. Hingman said he was taking Nan Director to the hospital. Nan Director had collapsed for some reason. And now there was also a small problem, which was that Nan Director's colleague had suddenly shown up. Old Park arrived looking confused, still clutching a commemorative t-shirt in his hand. He had originally come to deliver a gift commemorating the first mission. But why was he lying here sleeping? Old Jin and old KDDY were still arguing. The assistant took the opportunity to quietly hold Da Ying hostage. Xiao Ying's face was pressed to the ground by the other party. No matter how he struggled, the other party wouldn't let go. The assistant coldly notified Da Ying, "Things have gotten too big. I'm afraid we can't protect you anymore." Seeing this, An Seonhyo called out to old KDDY, saying he would pay the liquidated damages and would be responsible for the hush money to the end. He only begged him not to meddle, and definitely not to ruin his important matter. Just then, Da Ying's parents rushed over, nervously calling for their daughter. They were blocked by bodyguards, so they could only question An Seonhyo about what he wanted to do to his own granddaughter. But the situation had long since spiraled out of control. An Seonhyo couldn't turn back. Then he coldly ordered the assistant to take action. The knife tip gradually approached. Da Ying cried and shouted for her father to save her. Seeing this, old Jin immediately rushed forward and violently flung away the deranged assistant. Before Da Ying, who had escaped danger, could catch her breath, she immediately warned old Jin to watch out behind him. Unexpectedly, old KWI actually turned around to block old Jin instead. Old Jin retreated for a distance before barely stabilizing his form. Old KWI said extremely dissatisfied, "You get off work early today, stop meddling." He had already said to just stay put and there would be money, and it was dozens of times the commission fee. But old Jin still charged forward with determined eyes. Old KBY became completely enraged. Watching the two duel, An Seonhyo felt at ease. As long as old KBY was there, things still had room for negotiation. As long as he gave money, people like old KDY would do anything. This was how he had climbed up step by step back then. He absolutely wouldn't allow himself to fall like this. He hadn't been smug for long when a sharp knife suddenly stabbed into his body from behind. Everyone was shocked into stunned silence by this turn of events. An Seon-hyo also froze in place, equally incredulous. Da-ying couldn't believe her mother would go to such lengths. The woman shed tears, but her eyes were full of determination. She didn't understand why this scumbag before her eyes could ruin her entire life and still fantasize about dying peacefully of old age. She used to be young and beautiful. An Seon-hyo falsely praised her beauty and then approached her. Immediately after, the two had a relationship. She knew full well their relationship wasn't normal and wanted to end it. Using fear of her parents finding out as a reason, she proposed to An Seon-hyo to end this relationship. An Seon-hyo didn't answer, but suddenly asked about her parents' occupation. Soon, a carefully planned drunk driving accident occurred. A car drove straight into a fruit store in broad daylight. Her parents died on the spot. Afterward, he even cruelly mocked her that she would never again eat the fruit her parents sold. He most hated information being leaked, so he had to solve all potential threats in advance. An Seon-hyo stared at her unwillingly and said, "I was clearly very good to you." The woman interrupted, "Don't beautify the memory. I've lived worse than death every day these years." Back then, An Seon-hyo, to protect himself, falsely claimed to love her, but forced her to marry his son. The woman questioned hysterically, "Wasn't ruining my life enough for you? Now you won't even spare my daughter." She roared while continuously stabbing at An Seon-hyo, venting years of resentment. Da-ying cried and shouted, trying to stop her mother, but she had long since been consumed by hatred. Da-ying's father stared blankly at this scene. The image of his father introducing his wife to him back then flashed through his mind, saying the two of them were a perfect match, and hurriedly helping them plan the wedding. He had even thanked his father at the wedding back then, but all of this was his father's design. His father had even specifically instructed him that she liked to eat fruit. Actually, he had known what kind of person his father was since childhood. The day his mother committed suicide, he saw his father's true face for the first time. Because his father had always had affairs, his mother finally couldn't bear it and chose suicide. The funeral hall was filled with crying, but at such a young age he stared blankly at all this. Reporters pressed for the truth about his mother's death. His father framed the murderer as his political enemy. He even didn't hesitate to slander his mother's reputation, saying his mother had a simple personality and was seduced and wanted to abandon him, trying to exchange for the other party to change their mind. He portrayed himself as a victim, crying and repenting in front of the media. An Seon-hyo was this kind of person, skilled at using the dead to make a case. Once he deemed someone had no value, he would strike mercilessly without hesitation. For profit, he wouldn't even spare his own family. So death oro always surrounded him. In this environment, his entire childhood goal was to become useful to his father. At the same time, he also developed the habit of avoidance, pretending not to know about the relationship between his father and his own wife, pretending not to see the two of them being intimate downstairs at home, working hard to be a well-behaved son, obeying his every word. But even so, he still lived in endless fear, clearly knowing everything, he could only compromise. But now, he encountered something he couldn't avoid for the first time. He watched as his wife stabbed his father until he vomited blood. Old Kolwi saw this and worried immensely. She was going to kill his cash cow, then he ordered Old Jin to stop her. He absolutely couldn't let his cash cow die. Old Jin didn't move, but instead reached out to block Old KWI. Old Kwi was a bit confused and said, "I didn't tell you to block me, but to block her." Old Jin begged the director to please not interfere for now. Da-ying's father stopped his wife. He choked up an apology. "It's all because I'm worthless. I shouldn't have kept pretending to be blind. I know it's too late, but I still want to make amends." But his heart was still panicking, terribly. He looked at his father with tears and said, "Even though our meeting wasn't beautiful, she's now my family. I beg you to stop." This was the first time he mustered courage to oppose his father. Even if he was laughed at for being foolish, he accepted it, standing up for them. This was what a qualified father should do. He stated bluntly he was willing to take full responsibility for this matter. He had known about their relationship all along, but he was different from his father. He would protect his family to the end. This was the first time he fulfilled the responsibility of being head of the household. An Seon-hyo trembled with anger. Before he could speak, he completely collapsed. Everyone rushed forward. Seeing he had no breath or heartbeat, they hurriedly searched for the nearest hospital. The man comforted his wife not to be afraid. He would definitely take responsibility to the end. Then he apologized to his daughter Da-ying. "I'm sorry, only now am I acting like a father. I'm sorry." Old Kui was extremely anxious and pushed Old Jin aside. He rushed to An Seon-hyo's side, shouting frantically, "My money! Give me the money before you die!" Everyone thought this incident would end with An Seon-hyo's death, with his son and Jongyeon shouldering all the crimes. Unexpectedly, An Seon-hyo was miraculously revived, but the doctor said the possibility of him regaining consciousness was almost none. His organs were severely damaged. Even if he woke up, it would be very difficult to take care of himself. Da-ying remarked, "This might be the most suitable ending for grandfather. Dying just like that would be too easy on him. A person like him deserved divine retribution." Da-ying thanked Old Jin through her tears for everything he had done, and also thanked his friends for helping. Thanks to their intervention, the matter was smoothly resolved. When An Seon-hyo was about to die, it was Old Park who arrived at the scene with a doctor in time. Old Park had Aries check on An Seon-hyo's condition. Aries said, "As long as I keep him alive, breathing is enough, right?" Old Park nodded and said, "Just save him, otherwise it will cause trouble for my friend." And Jongyeon still felt amazed that he could be saved even like this. He had already prepared to go to prison in his father's place. Thanks to Old Jin, he didn't have to bear the crime of murder. Now he could finally stay by his family's side. He sincerely expressed gratitude to Old Jin. Old Jin said he only did what should be done, and thanked them for settling the final payment promptly, saying if they encountered other problems in the future, they were welcome to contact him anytime. He smiled and recommended White Tiger Human Resources to them, saying White Tiger Human Resources was definitely trustworthy. Back at the company, old KWI convened a disciplinary meeting, and the subject of discipline was old Jin. Old Chul accused old Jin of violating the contract, not obeying superior orders, which had reached the standard for severe punishment, but he saved the client, ensuring they smoothly received the penalty fees and additional charges. In summary, he wanted lenient punishment, only a salary reduction. But old Koi thought the punishment couldn't be lenient. The company had company rules, they couldn't be so capricious. Old Chul said, if you have such ideas, why don't you leave the company? You don't need to come anymore. He was fired. Suddenly, air raid great unclean sounded. The door was violently pounded open. Aries members burst in. Old Park mocked, a commander who doesn't recognize talent can never win. You haven't even met the most basic condition of a team. Old Jin said in shock, how did you get here? Old Park felt it wasn't worth it for him. He thought old Jin's new job was so great, he didn't expect it to be like this. He stared at old KWI and asked, is my friend really fired? Then I'm taking him away. Old Park told old Jin to leave with them, to come to Aries. Old Kiwi's face was full of displeasure, scolding them for having no business ethics. How dare they poach someone else's employee directly on their turf? Old Park raised his eyebrows and said, talent in the industry is scarce to begin with, and I just seem to hear the word fired. The two confronted each other. Old Jin tried to interject, but was interrupted by old Kui, who said righteously he never said fired. Old Chul immediately echoed that what old Koyoi just said was to work hard on the business going forward. Old Koyoi said, you must have heard wrong. White Tiger Human Resources is an international enterprise, different from the military hierarchy. Aries immediately showed disdain, mocking in a foreign language that they didn't understand globalization. This arrogance was truly laughable. Old KWI couldn't understand foreign languages at all. Old Chul tactfully translated, saying the other party seemed to really dislike them, accusing them of being a bunch of ungrateful people, probably because of the vice premier's treatment matter. Aries couldn't bear it anymore and inquired whether they could kill them. Just kill them and then take him away. Old Park shook his head and refused. They're my friends' colleagues. We need to show gentlemanly demeanor. Old KWI was already displeased to the extreme and said, do you think you can really kill all of White Tiger Human Resources just because you decide to? This was simply a joke. Old Chul smoothly pulled out his baton. Before old KWI finished speaking, old Chul's baton was dismantled into several pieces by Aries. Old Chul's face was full of shock. The baton broke right after he pulled it out. The other party's reaction speed was too fast. Immediately after, Aries disassembled everything at the scene at extremely high speed and viciously broke old KJY's fingers. The action was ruthless. Aries sighed with regret. Guns aren't legal in H country. What a pity. Should have let you see how guns are disassembled to dampen your arrogance. Most ordinary thugs would be afraid and walk away when they see us. Suddenly, a steel pen stabbed straight at Aries' eyeball. Young Chul said furiously, who's a thug? He used to be a police officer. He could tolerate other things, but this absolutely not. Old Kui smiled and told him to endure for now. Zhen Yuchun walked forward. What should be done? She said in a teasing tone. Too bad you're going to lose. Then she inquired whether to start dealing with them. Old Park was about to agree. Old Kui gritted his teeth and said, making my turf a complete mess. You're going to take responsibility. Might as well all come at once. I don't want to bully you either. Then he signaled his subordinates to pull down the iron gate and close shop. No business today. They actually dared to poach his employee right in front of him. They were really tired of living. Old Jin hurriedly stopped them. Everyone stop appropriately. Don't cause any more disturbance. He apologized to old KWI, saying he mixed too much personal emotion into his tasks. He would reflect properly. Then turning to old Park, he said he had already clearly refused to join Aries. To take care of Minji, he wanted to stay somewhere closer to his daughter. Old Park was a bit embarrassed, but could only let him be. Seeing old Jin and old Park talking, old Chul took the opportunity to inquire how old KWI planned to handle this. Old KWI said, old Jin is a rare talent. I'm willing to give him another chance. Old Chul also didn't expect old Jin could actually be so flexible and accommodating. Old KWI saw very clearly that when a man was willing to back down, it must be to protect something important. For men of this age, what they wanted to protect was all about the same. Family was their lifelong weakness. Minji returned home. Seeing old Cheng, she was a bit surprised and asked, why is uncle here? The next second, old Jin came out from the kitchen carrying soup and said, Minji's back. Minji said happily again, Dad, did you finish your work? Didn't you say the business trip would take some time? Old Jin said with a smile, it's already finished. Before he finished speaking, Minji threw herself into his arms. She urgently asked if Dad was injured. This scene made old Cheng envious on the side. After dinner, Minji considerately let Dad rest. She proactively took on the household chores. Old Jin was coaxed by his daughter until his smile couldn't close, showing off to old Cheng, my daughter told me to rest. Old Cheng gritted his teeth and teased old Jin for smiling so broadly. Then he asked about the handling process of that company matter. It turned out old KWI had old Jin temporarily suspended. Resolving the matter was certainly important, but the company was a strict social hierarchy. He couldn't allow him to act recklessly just because he cared for him. Next time absolutely wouldn't allow this again. Old Jin didn't want to say more. Old Park was helpless. Suddenly Minji said she was going out. Old Jin was surprised she was going out so late. Minji said she joined a film appreciation club and was going to watch a movie with someone. She came back just to get her wallet. Old Jin didn't understand and said, your relationship seems quite good. Minji said with a smile, the senior is indeed very kind. Upon hearing this, old Jin's face immediately darkened. Minji hadn't noticed yet and kept saying she and the senior had similar interests. He knew a lot about movies. Afraid old Jin would misunderstand, she specifically explained that the senior wasn't a weirdo, but unexpectedly the senior actually came directly to the door because Minji Minji didn't answer the phone, he was a bit worried. Only then did Minji realize she had accidentally put her phone on silent mode. The senior saw old Jin and the other person and asked, "Who are these two? Your father?" Upon learning it was Minji's father and uncle, the senior immediately greeted them politely, saying, "My name is Jungtae Yang, I'm Minji's senior." He was just pondering whether to call them uncle or great uncle. When Jungtae Yang blurted out great uncle, old Jin's expression instantly became even gloomier. Old Chang hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Who calls someone great uncle right off the bat, quickly apologized to him. Jungtae Yang said he was young and didn't know the rules, that's why he called wrong. But old Jin completely ignored him. Old Chang could clearly feel old Jin had surpassed the limit of anger. It turned out Minji had just transferred to Jungho High School 2 months ago, and at a club activity, she saw Jungtae Yang introducing a movie on the podium. She accidentally fell in love, and that word great uncle made old Jin's killing intent surge. Old Chang sighed that he didn't care enough about Minji. He didn't even know she was interested in movies. The current old Jin couldn't listen to anything. His mind was full of the word great uncle. He felt the other party came with ill intentions, calculating whether he should eliminate Jungtae Yang. Old Chang hurriedly advised, "Calm down, there's nothing wrong with friends watching a movie together. Who would kill someone just because they were called great uncle once?" After learning the situation, old Park on the other end of the phone said indignantly, "Of course he should be killed, and he can't die too easily. Should be chopped up and fed to dogs." Old Chang speechlessly covered the receiver and advised old Jin, "Minji is almost an adult. She'll definitely have many things she's curious about. Are you going to deny them all? Parents don't have the right to interfere with children's futures. Since we chose to bring them into this world, we should let them experience life more. Give the right to choose back to the children. This is what a parent should do." Old Jin remembered when he enrolled Minji in cram school in the past. Minji thought it was too expensive. Better to buy some autumn clothes for dad. This child had always been very well behaved. Old Jin was somewhat moved. At the critical moment, old Park angrily rebuked old Chang. "You don't know the situation. Don't give random advice. A person who only has sons, of course, doesn't understand the love and protection for daughters. Having a daughter, of course, requires constant vigilance about whether there are annoying flies around her." He reminded old Jin, "First you need to figure out what kind of person that kid is, what his purpose is in approaching Minji, how they met, how much planning he has for the future, whether he has moral values. All these need to be understood." On the other side, the film Minji and Jungtae Yang chose was Unexpected Kiss. Old Jin hid in the shadows secretly observing, "Nothing should happen, right?" Minji's heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. She didn't expect she could watch a movie alone with senior Tae Yang. Minji felt it was great fortune. Jungtae Yang transferred in at the same time as her, causing a huge sensation from the start. Although she didn't understand why such a popular figure would join the film club, she fell in love with him at first sight. Jungtae Yang called Minji back to her senses, reminding her the movie was about to start. But Minji actually couldn't focus on it at all. Her attention was entirely on Jungtae Yang. In the corner, old Jin stared deadly at the two of them. After the movie ended, Jungtae Yang and Minji discussed the plot, and casually inquired whether she needed to go to cram school afterward. Learning she didn't need to, he smoothly invited her to walk around nearby. They laughed and talked at a beverage shop, went to take photo stickers together, and even went to grab plushies. Soon it got dark. Jungtae Yang suddenly hesitated to speak. He had something he wanted to say to her. Minji instantly panicked, not expecting the relationship to progress so quickly. Just as she mentally prepared herself, Jungtae Yang asked, "That's your father, right? He's been staring at us the whole time." Minji turned around both shocked and embarrassed. "Dad, how are you here? Could it be you were worried about me and followed us all the way?" Old Jin pretended to be calm and lied that he came to the area to handle some business, but was interrupted by Jungtae Yang, who formally greeted old Jin, "Great uncle." "Hello, I'm Jungtae Yang." Old Jin got even angrier and said, "How are you calling me great uncle again?" Minji hurriedly pacified him. Hearing this, Jungtae Yang quickly apologized. Old Jin looked at his daughter, couldn't help but sigh. The child had grown so big without him noticing. The formerly small and cute her had now become graceful and elegant. Perhaps it really was time to let her go. Old Jin finally compromised and suggested sending Jungtae Yang home. Jungtae Yang cautiously changed his address to call old Jin uncle and thanked him for sending him home. He just didn't understand why told Minji to get off first, leaving him alone in the car. Old Jin's tone was serious, saying if he did anything improper before Minji came of age, he would make him disappear from this world, chop him into pieces, half to feed fish and half to feed dogs. After all, his daughter was his precious treasure he raised desperately. He wouldn't allow anyone to hurt her. Jungtae Yang couldn't help but laugh at this, which made the already vigilant old Jin even more on guard. Jungtae Yang thought old Jin's reaction was too funny. He said, "You really can't stay calm when it comes to your daughter." At those words, a truck viciously rammed into old Jin's car. Old Jin could only desperately steady the steering wheel. Jungtae Yang's tone became arrogant. "It seems quite a few people harbor resentment toward you. They even sent them out. Someone wants to see you. Please come with me." Old Jin's heart sank. Another car was driving toward them head on. On the other side, no matter how many times old Chen called, he couldn't get through to old Jin's phone. Minji said, "Dad personally drove my classmate home. He said he'd be back home soon, no need to worry." And at this time, old Jin's car had already been crashed into deformity. A black-clothed bald man opened the car door. After confirming old Jin's identity, he injected him with a drug. Someone inquired how to deal with young Tae Yang. The leader asked about his condition. After learning he wasn't dead, he had his subordinates wake him up. Intense pain struck. Jung Tae Yang screamed awake. Just as he regained consciousness, he was viciously kicked by the leader, who said, "You didn't execute the mission properly. The plan was for you to get close to old Jin's daughter and extract intelligence. Now everything's messed up." Someone beside urged him to set off quickly. Time was up. He said to Jung Tae Yang, "Just you wait." Then they abandoned Jung Tae Yang, got in the car and prepared to depart, but he was choked by the lurking old Jin. He was extremely shocked. This guy was actually still conscious. Seeing everything was cleaned up, a voice came from behind advising him, Stop here. We even designed a car accident scenario for you. Can't you obediently come with us? Exactly what will make you peacefully come with us. At those words, 3 gun muzzles aimed at old Jin. The men in black threatened him, to be honest. They didn't want to cause trouble in a foreign country. Immediately after, several gunshots rang out, and the car compartment immediately fell quiet. And on old Chang's side, because he couldn't contact old Jin, he couldn't sit still. He keenly sensed something was wrong and decided to go out and look, but his intuition told him he couldn't leave Minji alone at home. He had a bad premonition. Suddenly, the doorbell rang at the entrance. Old Chang cautiously inquired. Outside came the voice of a delivery person. Only then did Minji remember she had just ordered a late-night snack. So old Chang told the delivery person to leave the food at the door. After waiting a while with no sound, he opened the door to get the food. Opening the door, he saw the delivery person hadn't left. He looked extremely nervous, stammering that the delivery fee wasn't enough before he finished speaking. The next second, a cold flash passed. The delivery person was instantly killed. Several hidden men in black immediately rushed forward. Taking advantage of the moment when old Chang was closing the door, a man in black blocked it from shutting and signaled for the others to go grab Minji first. Before he could finish speaking, he was violently shoved away, and the door slammed shut. Old Chang warned Minji, "Don't go back to that club anymore. These people who showed up at the door are clearly dangerous. Go inside and stay there. Lock the door." The man in black lost his patience and ordered his team to break down the door. Soon they smashed through and forced their way in. Old Chang asked curiously, "You're even using a battering ram. Who exactly are you people? We're just an ordinary family. Something of this caliber shouldn't be necessary for our door." The man in black sneered. They had already investigated his identity as an ITF Taekwondo athlete. They knew his advantage had always been his long legs. Then he ordered his subordinates to charge in with electric batons. They had already figured out his weakness and prepared a targeted attack. As long as they restricted his legs, they could take him down easily. Old Chang flipped to dodge the pincer attack from 2 men, but fighting multiple opponents was hard to manage, and caught off guard, an electric baton pressed hard against his waist. Electric current surged through his body, and old Chang convulsed in pain. Seeing him fall to the ground, the man in black roared and rushed forward. 3 electric batons attacked simultaneously. Old Chang had no power to resist. Kay was extremely pleased. They had finally subdued him. Old Chang struggled to speak, but Kay sneered and told them to increase the voltage. Kay said, "Don't worry, when you wake up, it'll all be over. Both you and your friend's daughter won't escape this fate." Just then, a man in black shouted excitedly, "We found her!" Kay immediately told him to bring her back. But Baldy encountered a problem. Minji was locked in a fortress-like bathroom. This was built by old Chang, supposedly unbreakable even by a nuclear blast, made of the same material as the Taekwondo van. Kay was somewhat incredulous. Then his subordinate reported in panic, "All our people attacking Target D have lost contact." Hearing this, Kay exploded in rage. "I clearly told you not to go there. Why did you run over?" After clearing out the men in black, old Park sneered mockingly, "You guys are too weak. You dared to provoke me without even understanding the situation, betting your entire lives. If you dare challenge me, you must have the determination to die. I won't let you off just because you're naive." Kay was furious. He had clearly warned those monitoring to keep their distance, that this person was dangerous. His subordinate hastily explained. The situation suddenly got complicated, which caused communication problems. Kay was extremely angry, blaming Jay for being too hasty and messing everything up. While Kay was trying to salvage the situation, old Chang slowly stood up. Old Chang panted heavily. The long-missed electric shock made him mentally aroused. He sneered, praising them for their thorough preparation. As soon as he finished speaking, a familiar fierceness flashed in old Chang's eyes. His old personality was becoming hard to suppress. People often use this thugs to describe violent people. Their tempers are explosive to an unbearable degree. If they want to improve, they must undergo training. Personality is a person's independent foundation, while training is later cultivation, constantly correcting one's mindset to develop a kind character. Once you lose yourself, you'll become a monster again. Old Chang looked at the men in black lying all over the ground. What should he do now? His old personality had accidentally come out, and if his master knew, he'd definitely be angry. Fortunately, he could still control it. Kay charged over with a dagger, shouting, "I'm going to kill you!" Old Chang frowned in disgust at such crude language, and knocked Kay down with a single punch. Kay was shocked. None of their attacks had succeeded. All their attacks were neutralized. What kind of technique was this so powerful? What they didn't know was that this was Kyokushin karate palm deflection. Old Chang stared at the fallen Kay and said, "I'm keeping you alive only to get information. Don't think for a second I can't kill you. So you'd better come clean while I'm still in a good mood. Who exactly are you people? And who sent you here?" Kay trembled in fear, thinking, does this guy have a split personality? Old Chang continued threatening, "Do I need to break your neck or gouge out your eyes before you'll talk?" Kay was terrified, trembling as he was about to confess. Suddenly he was shot in the head, silenced. A series of gunshots pierced the air and old Chang quickly dodged. On the other side, a man in black reported, all of Group B were instantly killed. They seemed to have encountered a formidable opponent. Scarface immediately ordered them dealt with. He hadn't wanted to cause trouble in Country H, but now he had no choice. Soon a group of men in black approached old Jin's house with gasoline. They poured gasoline at the entrance and lit it. Flames ignited instantly, consuming everything. The fire spread, completely blocking the entrance. Old Chang grabbed Minji and jumped out the window decisively. Behind them, the fire grew fiercer, thick smoke billowing. On the hillside, men in black watched the fire closely. Scarface inquired about Group A's situation. His subordinate responded, advancing very smoothly. They had put full effort into Group A from the start, because that was the most important part. Absolutely no mistakes allowed. Someone suggested observing first, but Scarface rebuked them. "Have you forgotten the purpose of this mission? Although Target A is important, We can't let his daughter go either. We must capture her alive. At the fire scene, the blaze grew larger. Surrounding people cried out about the fire and hurried to call 119 for help. Minji's voice trembled with fear, but old Cheng comforted her. It's a blessing in disguise that no one was injured. Does that transfer student senior of yours have any unusual behaviors? Minji shook her head, saying she didn't know, only that he had just transferred. She hadn't had a chance to talk with him deeply yet. She only remembered him saying today that he transferred because of his father. He said he wanted to gain his father's recognition. Old Cheng had just started to reflect when Old Park's call came through. Old Park shouted urgently on the phone, demanding to know if Minji was safe. Old Cheng said in a low voice that both had successfully escaped the fire, and Minji was right beside him. Old Park breathed a sigh of relief, then said he had just finished dealing with the enemies. Only these people were too tight-lipped. They all committed suicide before he could interrogate them. Old Cheng immediately understood these people must have received special training since childhood. Old Park said he would do counter-tracking and would have results within 10 minutes. They'd contact again then. Minji anxiously asked if there was any news about her dad. She hadn't been able to reach him and didn't know where he was. The more Minji spoke, the more panicked she became. Dad had never been like this before. She worried something had happened to him. She stamped her feet anxiously. Old Cheng burst out laughing. Old Park also laughed on the other end of the phone. Minji was really filial. Minji was somewhat confused. Old Park teased with a smile. Young people's thoughts are so amusing. Minji, are you worried about old Jin? Even after seeing his skills, you're still not reassured? Minji was at a loss for words. Seeing this, old Cheng stopped teasing her. He advised her not to worry, though he didn't know the father Minji saw. Old Jin's reputation in the industry was quite renowned. Minji didn't know in what aspect. Old Cheng paused, then said old Jin was famously crazy, not someone easily defeated. On the other side, men in black escorted old Jin to a secluded area and gave him another injection. Along the way, they argued constantly. Who knows how much time passed before old Jin fully regained consciousness. A damp, musty smell filled his nostrils. He guessed it must be some kind of underground passage. His hands and feet were tightly bound, and he didn't know how serious his shoulder wound was. But fortunately, he could still hold on. Old Jin held his breath to identify sounds, roughly confirming there were 7 opponents total. He just needed to wait for the right moment to take them all down at once. After reaching their destination, someone comforted his companion. Once we deliver him to the client, our mission is complete. Stop complaining. But the other person was unconvinced. He questioned, who's been constantly criticizing Jay the whole way? Jay must have thought the timing was right to act. He didn't know when the target discovered us either. That man saw Jay's expression wasn't good and immediately said unhappily, what's with that look? He handed old Jin over to his companion. He questioned Jay unhappily, do you have some opinion? Should I ruin that handsome face of yours while your father isn't around? I'm quite good at performing cosmetic surgery on others. Jay retorted sarcastically, you show off most what you lack. This doesn't eliminate your inferiority complex, it just makes people look down on you more. He was enraged, and others quickly tried to mediate, urging both sides to calm down and focus on the mission. Suddenly old Jin opened his eyes, locking gazes with the person carrying him. A violent scuffle ensued. Old Jin's legs were wrapped around that person's shoulders. With a fierce twist, he instantly broke the person's neck. Then he quickly pulled out a dagger and cut the ropes. They were immediately alerted. They rushed forward with guns trying to subdue old Jin, but were killed by him as soon as they approached. Soon they finally reacted and opened fire. Old Jin dodged with quick reflexes. The men in black exchanged glances and carefully approached the corner where old Jin was hiding, but they found it already empty. There was no one on the other side either. As everyone was puzzled, old Jin leaped down from the ceiling, landing a devastating blow on his opponent. Jung Tae-yang hadn't even reacted when his hand was unexpectedly shot. The two behind him were also shot in succession. Old Jin asked Jung Tae-yang coldly, who's your mastermind? Is it a person or an organization? Suddenly he looked up and caught sight of a passage sign reading Bongam-dong Restricted Area. This was actually North H country's largest political prison, Bongam-dong. Just then, footsteps sounded behind him, and a familiar voice came. I wondered why there kept being gunshots. Turns out it's you reckless fool. Old Jin didn't immediately recognize who stood before him. The other person teased, haven't seen me in so long, are you crying tears of joy? On the other side, old Cheng and old Park investigated and confirmed it was North H country's forces, speculating it was related to the past Special Operations Bureau incident. Old Cheng asked if word had spread on the black market. Old Park wasn't sure either. The only thing certain was that this opponent had planned for a long time and prepared thoroughly. This must be revenge, otherwise none of this made sense. Old Park immediately thought of someone. If this was revenge, only that person had such capability. In Bongam-dong, old Baek pretended to be moved, saying he was so touched. Back then he had ordered Lin Yu-jin to commit suicide to prove her loyalty, but ended up getting shot himself instead. He'd also tried to prevent Minji's birth back then. Unfortunately, old Cheng arrived in time to save her. He deeply regretted his foolishness back then. Old Baek raised his gun at old Jin. He said, let me shoot you first. Minji, who had learned the news beside old Cheng, asked worriedly, the people who took dad were really sent by North Country? Then what do we do now? What action should we take? Old Cheng outwardly comforted Minji, but inwardly knew the situation was critical. He decided to leave this matter to old Park, while he stayed to protect Minji. Though Minji had concerns, she could only follow old Cheng's arrangement. Old Cheng said he wouldn't just sit and wait. He would try to contact North H country experts. They had dealt with North H country for years and were very experienced. A phone rang, and everyone was startled. A subordinate complained that someone didn't know the rules and dared bring a phone in, but he was slapped hard by Kang Guk Cheol. Kang Guk Cheol rebuked angrily, that's my phone! After the call connected, old Cheng frankly stated the problem, also saying the opponent was an extreme lunatic. On the other side, old Baek said mockingly to old Jin, number 73. No wait, it should be number 66 now, I heard everyone calls you that. Old Jin protected his shoulder wound but didn't respond. Old Baek continued talking talking to himself. You must be very confused why I'm keeping you alive. Because this is revenge I've been preparing for a long time. I don't want you to die too easily. Since the day my comrade betrayed me, I thought every day about how to take revenge, pondering how to make you suffer more than I have. Finally, I thought of a method. That is your daughter. I'm going to dismember your daughter right before your eyes. Only that can satisfy my hatred. Before he finished speaking, Old Jin instantly flew into a rage, landing a vicious punch at Old Baek. Then his fists rained down on Old Baek like hailstones, followed by an elbow strike with full force. Jung Tae-yang rushed forward worriedly, but was stopped by Old Baek. He grew more excited, saying, "That's right, exactly. Number 66, you really haven't changed at all." He missed the old Jin from back then, struggling futilely, as if trapped in a quagmire unable to advance or retreat. He wanted to see how long Old Jin could struggle, what he could do. Would he hope for reinforcements to arrive, or pray his daughter wouldn't be captured? The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. After all, the more you struggle in a swamp, the deeper you sink. Suddenly Old Baek went mad, shouting over and over, "Number 66, number 66, your fate will be more miserable than anyone's. If you can escape, go ahead and run. If you want to be a coward, hide well. But you will definitely exhaust all efforts only to fail." Guilt and despair intertwined, slowly devouring his sanity. How long would this painful emotion last? Could death bring release? Thought of giving up kept emerging. This was Old Baek's first layer of revenge. On Minji and Old Cheng's side, the situation looked quite bad. A large group of men in black approached with electric batons. A man in black stepped forward, threatening them to drop their weapons. They had heard that Old Cheng would undergo a personality change after being shocked, and warned their companions to approach carefully. After all, their target was that girl. Approach slowly, don't rush. Minji was terrified, but Old Park was too far away and would need some time to arrive. And the North H country expert Old Cheng had just mentioned didn't have the best attitude during their call. Minji was somewhat breaking down, and Old Cheng quickly comforted her to trust him. Suddenly, Minji shouted a warning. Old Cheng reacted quickly, kicking away Baldy, who was trying to close in. He definitely wouldn't let Minji suffer any harm. Seeing this, the men in black wanted to rush forward in the chaos, a whirlwind triple kick. Those self-important men in black who had just rushed forward were quickly all beaten down by Old Cheng. Then Old Cheng grabbed Minji and quickly climbed onto the taekwondo van, shaking off that group of men in black. The group chased forward in frustration, shouting, "We absolutely can't let them escape, catch them!" On this side, Old Baek was confident, certain that Old Cheng and the others must be pursued very closely. The subordinates he trained were all rather special. They had strong execution and would definitely bite their targets relentlessly. And Old Park's side had already been divided and surrounded. The situation was extremely favorable for them. Old Baek looked at Old Jin's resentful expression and revealed a sickly smile. He said, "Your expression is really wonderful." But Old Jin's words made him freeze. It turned out Old Jin had long anticipated this situation. After the Special Operations Bureau incident broke out, he knew they would track him down. He just hadn't expected this to be their first revenge plan. This was the so-called long-planned revenge. Too bad they miscalculated. Old Cheng would definitely not sit and wait. Seeing they couldn't catch Old Cheng and Minji, they decided to disregard the gunshots and end this quickly. Try to aim at limbs when shooting. Keep them alive to bring back for interrogation. As long as they were alive, it was fine. It seems like they said it wouldn't matter if the man died. Before he finished speaking, Scarface suddenly froze. Then he fell directly to the ground. His companion was puzzled, then saw a silver needle in the back of his neck. He urgently shouted for everyone to stop moving and be alert for anything unusual around them. There seemed to be something here. The men in black charging ahead fell one after another. The man was so terrified he could barely stand. Crisp footsteps sounded behind him, but he was completely rigid and didn't dare turn around. The next second, several silver needles flew precisely toward his head. Therefore, Old Jin coldly warned Old Baek to be careful. That person's abilities were not to be underestimated. Then, a calm inquiry sounded, confirming if this was the target location. After receiving confirmation, he was glad he had caught the most critical moment. Including Minji, everyone in the underground parking lot instantly tensed up. Zhen Yuchun chuckled. "You won't live much longer anyway." The man in black demanded in terror who she was. Zhen Yuchun said, "Seeing as you won't live much longer, I'll tell you. My name is Zhen Yuchun. You can also call me Kuroda Yuki. I'm from Aries." In Country H, the word ninja sounds very rare, but that's not actually the case. They just operate in secret. They do all the dirty work that can't see the light. Assassination, disrupting enemy camps, intelligence agents, undercover operatives, spies, that's all them. They even have a romantic nickname, Flowers of Secret Operations. The oldest veteran in this organization was Zhen Yuchun. Looking at the person before her with 4 silver needles stuck in them, Zhen Yuchun felt it was quite a pity to die so easily like this. Seems like she was getting old and couldn't control her strength well. Seeing this, the remaining few rushed forward with knives, but before they could get close, they were taken down cleanly by Nan Director. After dealing with them, Nan Director said coldly, "Show some respect, that's an elderly person." Then he turned to ask if handling the scene to this extent was acceptable. Everything followed Zhen Yuchun's instructions. They left only that one guy alone. Nan Director pretended to ask if they should just kill the other person. That guy was terrified, thinking, he actually wants to kill me. The next second, a long needle pierced his abdomen, and he immediately played dead. Zhen Yuchun coldly reminded him to stop pretending. She knew what she was doing, and had avoided all his vital points. She had already observed him. which was why she deliberately spared his life. The reason was simple. This guy looked like the most cowardly one. The more cowardly someone is, the easier it is to extract information from them. Her gaze was sharp as she demanded to know which organization he came from. Seeing this, Nan director reassured them that Minji was safe now, and they should leave this place. Afraid of misunderstanding, he specifically explained, this operation was personally assigned by the captain. I really didn't want to come, but I had no choice. Hearing this, Old Chang asked Nan director about Old Park's situation and learned he was currently preparing to infiltrate North H country. At this moment, Old Park recalled what Old Jin had said before. Back then, his expression was grave as he said, this Special Operations Bureau incident has blown up big. Once those people detect my existence, they'll definitely swarm over. I'll try to avoid battle as much as possible, but who knows how long I can hide. When they come looking, that's the final opportunity. A perfect chance to sever that karmic tie with North H country. So he entrusted Old Park with something. Therefore, Old Park also realized the seriousness of this incident. He planned to settle all accounts at once. And what Old Jin worried about most was his daughter's safety. That's why he handed the protection task to them. Then Nan director signaled for everyone to depart, but was suddenly stopped by Zhen Yuchun. Zhen Yuchun said there was a small problem. Though she had extracted Old Jin's exact location, it was in Bangam-dong. Things were taking an increasingly bad turn. And at this moment, Old Baek was somewhat surprised to learn Old Jin had also prepared. He chuckled. After all this time, you indeed couldn't still be in your previous state. In that case, I can let you go. Seeing no response from the other party, he asked softly again, didn't you hear me? He impatiently told Old Jin to try escaping and see, urging him to leave quickly. Before he changed his mind, get lost now. Old Jin immediately turned to leave. Zheng Taeyang was uneasy and wanted to chase, but was stopped by Old Baek. Old Baek said, it's fine, nothing in this world goes as we wish. No matter how thoroughly we prepare, it can't overcome the unpredictability of life. I want you to properly taste this feeling. Does number 66 really think I don't know what he's thinking? He had already laid an inescapable net. Even with wings, he couldn't fly out of his grasp. Number 66 would soon become a rabid dog charging around wildly. On the other side, Zhen Yuchun also slowly told everyone about Bangam-dong's terrifying nature. It's a labyrinth. That place has a notorious reputation. Once you step in, don't think about getting out. With just one person's strength, it's absolutely impossible to escape from there. Bangam-dong was initially used to imprison political criminals. The core purpose was to destroy prisoners' minds, to drive people insane. Once caught and sent there was absolutely no hope of escape. She speculated Old Jin should soon realize something was wrong. Old Jin looked at the corpses all over the ground, and a chill instantly spread. This North H country's largest political prison, Bangam-dong, thousands of people starve to death here every year. So this place was also called a cage. Zhen Yuchun heard that place's labyrinth structure changed periodically, making it very difficult to escape. Hearing this, Old Chang asked, can really no one get out of that labyrinth? Even the managers have no way? Zhen Yuchun said, the managers should know how to get out, like having a labyrinth map or special markers. Hearing this, Old Chang breathed a sigh of relief. That's good then. Zhen Yuchun asked, puzzled, why is that? Old Chang said, I specifically contacted someone who knows North H country's intelligence inside and out. At this moment, helicopters roared in, and armored convoys also set out grandly. A subordinate reported loudly, the target location has been confirmed at Bangam-dong, and we've obtained the latest labyrinth map. Hearing this, Kang Guk-cheol sneered, those North H country's bastards are absolutely insane. The Special Task Force Special Operations Team had also assembled. Kang Guk-cheol was furious. These people entering and leaving South H country at will was one thing, but they dared covet his prey. He absolutely couldn't let this go and let them run rampant. Today he must capture this group of detestable spies in one fell swoop. But it's worth emphasizing that he wasn't here to lend a helping hand. This scum, inflicting searches, kidnappings, imprisonment, violence, and other acts on civilians, even killing superiors yet still remaining in position, only because the Special Operations Bureau never served people, but the supreme nation. In the military world, how could there be a commander who made soldiers surrender their weapons? Because of these words of his, the corrupt and lax Special Operations Bureau inexplicably united. Therefore, in such a closed organization, not only was he not dismissed, he was even promoted. And before this, Kang Guk-cheol had already taken notice of Old Jin. Kang Guk-cheol determined he had powerful backing, otherwise they couldn't fail to uncover his identity. Who exactly was this guy? How could they not trace even a single clue? Add to that this incident. Which figure from North H country's side dared to operate so blatantly in South H country's territory? Suddenly, a knock sounded. A subordinate respectfully reported everything was ready. 4 teams total, all on standby and ready to move out at any time. Kang Guk-cheol responded in a low voice. Personal disputes weren't important to him. National security was the top priority. He stepped forward to depart. Protecting national security, this was his mission. In Bangam-dong, Old Jin had also heard rumors about this place. This prison was specifically built to drive prisoners insane. Beneath Bangam-dong lay a man-eating labyrinth. This labyrinth's structure would also periodically change, with deadly traps hidden within. An axe suddenly swung toward Old Jin. Old Jin reacted extremely fast, dodging to the side and narrowly avoiding the fatal blow. 2 men pursued murderously. They were the cannibal residents, Lee Jong-gyul and Cho Cheol-gu. The 2 coveted Old Jin's flesh, recognizing he was from South H country. South H country's people and foreigners had different meat quality. Old Jin's eyes vigilantly vigilantly watched the two before him. He remembered this prison housed cannibal residents. When pushed to extremes, people abandon everything, choosing only to survive. Such horrific scenes were like hell itself. Prison guards turned a blind eye to prisoners' suffering, because this made the place more like hell. Even though screams filled their ears, guards remained unmoved, because this had nothing to do with them. Sensing someone had intruded, more and more cannibal residents appeared. Seeing it was a man, they complained that men's meat was tougher, not as good as women's. These lost souls had personally created another layer of purgatory. One of them impatiently charged forward with an axe, clamoring to eat Old Jin first. Old Jin knocked him to the ground with one punch. The other cannibal residents watched dumbfounded. Old Jin said coldly, "Perfect. I didn't expect prey to deliver themselves. To him, whether hell or desperate straits, these people were the best helpers to show him the way." His tone was urgent as he demanded they quickly tell him where the exit was. The people opposite looked panicked. How could they possibly know where the exit was? Old Jin's eyes turned cold as he said, "If you don't know, hurry up and find it." Outside, Jung Tae-yang said somewhat worried, "Is this really okay, father? What if the hostage we finally caught escapes?" Old Baek reassured him not to worry. His 20-year revenge plan couldn't possibly end so easily. He was more worried Old Jin might die by accident, letting his years of waiting come to nothing. The years of struggling in deep tunnels, he had always looked forward to this day, relying on firm will to endure 20 years, all for this moment of revenge. When he first heard news of Old Jin's death, his heart felt empty. Fortunately, Old Jin was still alive, so he could take revenge today. Now the time was about right. He was certain Old Jin had already encountered them. Old Jin was fighting with the cannibal residents when suddenly a woman's scream came from the distance. What was that sound? Then a man angrily cursed her for not being obedient, really asking for a beating. They didn't understand why Old Baek spared her life, even instructing them to revive her and continue beating her. He even cut out her tongue to make her voiceless. Seeing the woman was angry, he told his companion to go out first. He'd deal with her himself. That person turned around, but locked eyes with Old Jin. He exclaimed in shock, "How did a prisoner get here?" He sternly questioned Old Jin, but the other party never responded. Old Baek was already prepared to watch the show. Jung Tae-yang was still worried, asking if they could wrap things up smoothly after revenge. And at this moment, Old Jin couldn't believe what he was seeing. A person who should least appear here. Lin Yu-jin. Sweet moments from when they were in love flooded his mind, and he was in agony. He was full of confusion. Why would they reunite under such circumstances? He had always kept Lin Yu-jin deep in his heart, wanting to see her again even in death, but he couldn't accept this at all. Why would she appear here? For revenge. Old Baek had waited over 20 years. Every day he frantically imagined Old Jin's breakdown, wishing he could witness it immediately, even wanting to savor such a scene carefully. But he decided to hold back and not go over. If he were at the scene, revenge would end there. He didn't want to let Old Jin off like that. He wanted Old Jin to also experience the taste of someone he thought long dead betraying him. Old Jin demanded in breakdown why she would appear here. He had tied his entire life to memories with her, thinking of her day and night, but she remained silent. Old Jin finally couldn't hold back, hysterically demanding Lin Yu-jin answer his questions. Since when did she decide to hide things from him? Was it planned since Minji's birth? Was Old Zhao also her accomplice? The more Old Jin spoke, the more emotionally broken he became, demanding to know if she knew how old Minji was now. Their daughter was already in high school, had joined the film club and was especially interested in acting. He didn't know if their daughter was influenced by her, this mother. She'd been gone too long, he hadn't even thought about this much. Complex emotions intertwined in his heart, feeling both disgust and simultaneously relieved. The next second, Yujin's whimpering sounds made his breath stop abruptly. Only then did Old Jin realize her condition was truly terrible. Her entire body bore traces of torture, especially the sight of her severed tongue was too jarring. Old Jin couldn't help but tear up. The defeated prison guard was furious but dared not speak, and couldn't help but secretly open his eyes to peek at the situation. He thought to himself, who exactly is this guy? However, the moment their eyes met, the guard was so frightened he immediately closed his eyes and played dead. He screamed internally, it's over, it's over. I made eye contact with him. Seeing no movement, he nervously opened his eyes again to peek. He saw Old Jin standing right in front of him. The guard was terrified. He immediately dropped to his knees to apologize, incoherently explaining that cutting her tongue wasn't done by him. She was already like this when he arrived. Old Jin coldly interrupted his nonsense and told him to answer questions honestly. The guard trembled, thinking he was asking for an exit, and prepared to give him a map. Old Jin coldly denied it. What he wanted to know was Old Baek's whereabouts. At this moment, Old Baek was holding a meeting with the guards, his tone hiding a sinister smile. He said he had let an interesting fellow into the Bongam Dong, and he warned everyone not to kill Old Jin. If the situation became dire, they could shoot to avoid vital areas. There was also his previous mention of Old Jin's next move. Before this, he and Jung Tae-yang had speculated about Old Jin's next action. At the time, Jung Tae-yang hesitantly guessed, he's an unpredictable person. Most likely he'll escape with that woman. Old Baek scoffed and mocked. No, he won't. Old Jin will definitely be consumed by rage. He'll charge at me like a mad dog seeking revenge. This is the Old Jin I know. His woman had her tongue cut off. How could he possibly keep his composure? So Old Jin will definitely come for me. Besides that, I've also prepared a dozen or so revenge schemes for him. He eagerly anticipated seeing that guy's breakdown. The scene switched to the present. Old Baek gave the order, and everyone sprang into action. They immediately received their orders and went to carry them out. Then he turned to instruct Jung Tae-yang to continue tracking Old Jin's location. He speculated that Old Jin might already be nearby, After all, he was impatient by nature. Jung Tae-yang's face darkened as he reported something was wrong. At this moment, old Jin was changing clothes. He had long seen through this as old Baek's trap. He knew well that old Baek wanted him to lose his rationality and rush forward to fight desperately with him. He gently reassured Yujin not to worry too much. The things she worried about wouldn't happen. This time, he would protect her. Jung Tae-yang informed old Baek the tracker showed no movement, and there was no sign of old Jin coming this way. He speculated old Jin might have discovered the tracker, so he stripped off his clothes and escaped. At this moment, a subordinate also burst through the door in panic to report the tracker on that woman had also been destroyed. The informants they sent had also lost contact. What on earth was going on? Old Baek's plan was completely in disarray. Jung Tae-yang urgently proposed activating protective measures. Old Baek muttered to himself in disbelief, repeatedly pondering where the leak was, unwilling to believe old Jin could just leave like this. He had planned this revenge for 20 years. It wouldn't fall through like this. The alarm sounded. Everyone entered emergency protection mode, prepared for battle. The warden urged, "Close all entrances and exits. Quickly, if we don't catch that man, we're finished." However, he didn't notice old Jin brushing past him. The warden continued shouting, "He was injected with deadly poison. He can't hold out much longer." Old Jin already knew these people had injected him with deadly poison. He knew clearly he couldn't hold on much longer. At the same time, he also knew this war had long been predetermined, unavoidable. He reassured Yujin again, saying old Baek's tricks were nothing to fear. Suddenly, old Jin was stopped by a guard who questioned why he was defying the protection order. Old Jin imitated a North H country's accent and asked if old Baek was inside, saying he had urgent business with him. He neither wanted to cater to old Baek's trap nor flee in disgrace. He only wanted to find old Baek and end this lingering karmic debt. Before this, old Jin suppressed his worries and settled Lin Yujin safely. He felt old Baek had prepared quite a lot, but he simply didn't want to cooperate with old Baek. He instructed Lin Yujin to wait where she was. He would go resolve all this. He would personally end this karmic debt. Hearing old Jin's North H country's accent, the guard looked confused, not understanding what he was saying. Suddenly, he stared at old Jin's face and hesitated for a moment. He felt old Jin's face was somewhat unfamiliar. He seemed not to have seen him before. Suddenly, fighting sounds rang out, alarming the guards around them. They turned to find their officer lying on the ground. The guards angrily rushed forward to teach old Jin a lesson, but were all taken down in just a few moves. Old Jin opened the door, vigilantly observing the situation inside. Several guards were already waiting with guns, staring at him with fierce eyes, but there was no one at the desk behind them. Old Jin wondered to himself, questioning where old Baek was. On the other side, several gunshots left old Baek and Jung Tae-yang unclear about the situation outside. They wondered how old Jin had suddenly disappeared. At this moment, someone discovered he was in the intelligence room to the north. Jung Tae-yang decided to go out and take a look. They didn't know that old Jin had single-handedly taken down several armed guards. In his eyes, these small fries were no match at all. Suddenly, gunfire came from behind. He quickly rolled to dodge. Jung Tae-yang saw him hiding under the desk. He signaled the guard beside him to go check if he was dead. However, that person had barely taken 2 steps before he was shot and fell. Old Jin used the desk as cover, firing several consecutive shots with his gun. Jung Tae-yang saw the situation was bad and didn't dare linger in battle, wanting to quickly escape. He fired several shots but didn't hit his target. With few bullets left in the gun, he became anxious. Hearing the sound of an empty gun from the other side, Jung Tae-yang got an idea. He stepped out and shouted, "Number 66, looks like you're out of bullets too." He threw down his gun and called for old Jin to come out, wanting to have a fair and square match with him. Seeing this, old Jin also stopped hiding. Jung Tae-yang glanced at the gun in his hand and suddenly froze. Jung Tae-yang realized in shock he'd been deceived. He finally understood old Jin had long seen he had no bullets, so he pretended to also be out of bullets. The next second, old Jin shoved the gun into Jung Tae-yang's mouth. He remembered Minji saying before that she and Jung Tae-yang had no relationship, just that she cared a bit about this senior. He remembered this was the person his daughter liked, and a trace of guilt arose in his heart. But this was a life or death struggle. The gunshot rang out, ending this brief standoff. Hearing the sound, Lin Yujin struggled to get up. Someone seemed to be coming from across from her. After killing Jung Tae-yang, old Jin staggered outside. Suddenly, someone discovered his whereabouts and chased after him. That person shouted to open fire but was hit hard in the head. Immediately after, old Jin quickly fired his gun, but his hand trembled uncontrollably. The toxin had already controlled his nerves. Old Jin repeated silently in his heart, "I can't stay here. I must return to Minji's side. This matter must be resolved by him personally." Raising his head again, a group of black-clad men suddenly appeared surrounding him. The black-clad men inquired about Jay's whereabouts. Someone guessed Jay must already be dead. The black-clad man felt it was too bad Jay didn't die at his hands. He had long been annoyed by the fact that Jay spent all his time holed up in a corner watching movies. At this moment, old Jin gradually lost control of himself and smiled helplessly. The black-clad man speculated his mind was no longer clear. The drug's effects had kicked in. To last this long was truly impressive. Old Jin's vision gradually blurred. He could only barely make out a person's silhouette. The black-clad man breathed a sigh of relief but was attracted by sudden footsteps. He saw Old Park walking into the Bongam-dong with 2 men. Old Park smiled and teased old Jin. He had said long ago to be careful of people surrounding his daughter. Modern society had too many dangerous lunatics. Sensing dangerous vibes, the Bongam-dong's internal personnel quickly entered combat readiness. Old Park continued, "Old Jin, as a father with a daughter you must always be vigilant." Old Park turned to ask the laundromat owner, "Don't you agree?" The owner nodded and said, "That's right, you're correct." Old Park said, "It's about time. Let's go together." An hour ago, Kanguk Cheo led the special service to depart. G1 and G2 double confirmed no abnormalities. A subordinate solemnly reported to Kanguk Cheo that all personnel were ready with nothing unusual. Hearing this, Kanguk Cheo ordered everyone could begin invading North H country. They planned to use tunnels number 667, 59, and 47 as passages. The final destination was the Bungam Dong, dispatching Baekdu Mountain Group 2, the 17-pointed star. Kanguk Cheo reassured everyone not to worry about follow-up issues. After all, North H country had provoked them first. In this regard, they had the upper hand. Although ordinary people didn't understand, the North-South Shadow War had long been routine for them. As long as they kept a low profile and didn't make a fuss, there wouldn't be any problems. At this moment, a roaring sound suddenly came from above. Kanguk Cheo was shocked. Who had unauthorized called in a helicopter? The fuselage bore Special Operations Bureau markings. It was Special Operations Bureau's helicopter, but this wasn't part of their deployment at all. Aries questioned Old Park, "Is it okay to steal someone's helicopter like this?" Old Park said dismissively, "We're going to provide support. Isn't that right? My comrade." He sighed, somewhat nostalgic for the old days of providing support. The helicopter sped away from Kanguk Cheo's convoy, flying straight into North H country's airspace. The Special Operations Bureau people panicked. The helicopter had entered North H country's airspace, and they'd have to take the blame. And they discovered the system had been hacked, with records of accessing Bangam-dong. Kanguk Cheo angrily cursed out whoever stole the helicopter. Was that guy going for a frontal assault? At this moment, Old Park had already received the transmitted Bangam-dong map. He officially set off toward the Bangam-dong. Arriving at the Bangam-dong, a group of black-clad thugs surrounded the three of them. Old Park was somewhat disdainful. They were pressed for time and had no time to waste with these people. Better to speed things up and resolve it directly. As his words fell, the Bangam-dong's top floor was suddenly bombed. The black-clad men cursed furiously. What the hell? How did they get in? Before he could finish speaking, a hand seized the opportunity to grab his head and swiftly snapped his neck. He had no time to scream before falling straight to the ground. Another person saw this and angrily swung out an electric baton. The laundromat owner easily dodged. His movements were so fast they left after images, making the opponent dizzy. Catching him off guard, the laundromat owner used his slipper as insulation to grab the electric baton barehanded. Then he kicked down the black-clad man. His comrades saw him fall and all roared as they rushed forward to surround him. At this moment, Old Park walked to Old Jin's side. Old Jin was somewhat worried, asking where they got their helicopter. Old Park smiled confidently, saying he had his ways. He told Old Jin to detoxify first, and he'd slowly explain everything later. Old Jin glanced at the laundromat owner, puzzled as he asked who he was. Old Park said he was an old comrade in arms, like Old Jin, a father with a daughter. Back when Old Park had desperately begged him to help, the laundromat owner had said bluntly he couldn't help much. Now he just wanted to peacefully raise his daughter. This made Old Park extremely anxious, saying even serving as tactical advisor would be fine. The laundromat owner still refused. "I've already retired, and my daughter can't lose her father," Old Park said angrily. "Have you forgotten what you once said? Where's the person who would do anything to protect his family? And you understand Old Jin best. How hard it is to raise a daughter alone. He really has his difficulties. Please lend a hand." Touched by these words, the laundromat owner remembered the pain of losing his wife. Finally, he relented. "I'll help this one time. Next time I absolutely won't agree." At this moment, watching the black-clad thugs swarming forward, the laundromat owner sighed. The long-unused method for winning multi-person combat was finally going to be used again. The black-clad men clamored to capture him. Just as they were about to speak, they were punched flying by Old Park, instantly falling unconscious. Old Park asked, "What's the first point of multi-person combat victory method?" "The most basic point is, absolutely never expose your back." The two were perfectly in sync. It had been so long since they'd heard this phrase. They stood back-to-back in defensive stance, coordinating perfectly, beating that group of small fries to pulp. At this moment, Old Bake waited for Old Jin as expected. "Number 66, as expected you'd return to the maze to find me." He told Old Jin to sit down first. Before the duel, he wanted to have a good talk. Old Jin was about to refuse when Old Bake interrupted. "Sit down." He was actually holding Lin Yu Jin hostage. Old Bake sneered. "Did you think I couldn't find you just by removing the tracker? Arrogant fool." His tone intensified as he commanded Old Jin to sit down again. Old Jin firmly refused. He would no longer be manipulated by Old Bake. Old Bake sighed. "How did you become so bad at reading the room?" As he spoke, he loaded the gun in his hand. Without mercy, he fired a shot at Lin Yu Jin's temple. Old Jin was shocked, unable to believe Yu Jin had died before his eyes like this. Old Bake said, with feigned regret, "I clearly warned you. Don't make me repeat myself, you bastard." Old Bake pointed at Old Jin's nose and cursed. "It was your stupidity that killed Lin Yu Jin." Old Jin was completely enraged, wishing he could kill the man before him. He completely ignored Old Jin's fury and warned Old Jin again, saying, "If you dare ignore my words again, your daughter's life won't be spared either. The Republic soldiers have successfully captured your daughter." Old Bake held up his phone for him to see clearly. Both Minji and Old Cheng had been captured. He questioned what Old Bake wanted, but Old Bake was too lazy to waste more words with him. He would only give one more chance. Then he commanded Old Jin again to sit down and talk with him. He kicked the stool to Old Jin's feet, telling Old Jin to pick it up and sit properly. He impatiently urged Old Jin to hurry up. Old Jin silently looked toward Lin Yu Jin on the side. Old Bake said impatiently, "She's really dead. You witnessed it with your own eyes but still won't believe it?" Then Old Bake, in his deranged madness raised his gun again, firing several more shots at Lin Yujin's corpse. Old Baek sneered, "I've met countless people in my lifetime, but I've never seen anyone as thick-skinned as you. Not only did you betray the country and flee, you also colluded with a woman to shoot your superior. After kidnapping the South faction's leader, you still fantasized about getting away clean, wanting to live anonymously forever. Simply delusional. I absolutely won't allow it. I've bet my entire fortune to ensure you never have peace for the rest of your life, until you draw your last breath." Watching Old Jin's gritted teeth, Old Baek was thrilled. This was the expression he'd been waiting for. Just witnessed his wife die before his eyes, now having to worry about his daughter's safety. Old Baek couldn't wait to savor this expression of suppressed rage and despair a moment longer. Old Baek took out his phone and waved it in front of Old Jin. He told Old Jin that sending out the report would bring freedom. Just use his phone to send number 66 is dead, and everything would end there. But in that case, Old Jin's daughter would have to die. Of course, there was another method. Old Baek threw out a second option. Old Jin could choose suicide, trading his life for his daughter's, let his daughter die, or sacrifice himself to save his daughter's life. He frantically urged Old Jin to choose quickly. For revenge, Old Baek had spent a long time finding a woman who met the requirements. This woman's build and appearance were very similar to Lin Yujin's, but he still wasn't satisfied. He wanted this woman to get plastic surgery, and her build needed a few days of starvation to match. Hearing this, the woman immediately said she wouldn't do it. They only mentioned acting, never mentioned anything else. But Old Baek directly ordered someone to cut off her tongue. He didn't need acting skills, but a woman who looked near death. Then they obtained Minji's photo. Old Baek told his subordinates to properly composite the photo and not leave any flaws, and instructed them to regularly dye this woman's hair after the plastic surgery, because Lin Yujin had signature blue-black long hair. Since they were pretending, they had to do it thoroughly, couldn't leave any trace. Old Baek was certain Old Jin would definitely choose to end himself. After all, in a father's eyes, protecting his daughter was most important. He couldn't wait to see Old Jin make his choice, to see him walk toward death. He wanted the moment Old Jin committed suicide to reveal the entire truth. He couldn't wait to see what expression Old Jin would have when, after ending his own life, he learned it was all fake. Old Jin looked at the software on the phone, knowing this was indeed the Republic's internal software. As long as he sent news of his death, the Republic would truly believe he was dead. He had already made his choice. Neither he nor his daughter would die. Old Baek was completely stunned, even doubting if he'd heard wrong. Old Jin said coldly, "I won't be manipulated by you anymore." Old Jin's fist was about to land on his face, but Old Baek still didn't understand what Old Jin was saying. His heart sank. Could Old Jin know he was lying? He frantically pondered which part had been exposed, how Old Jin knew the photo was fake. Suddenly, Old Baek noticed Old Jin's palm. Wait, what was that on his hand? It turned out just now, after Ares had given Old Jin the antidote. He'd instructed Old Jin this medicine could only temporarily delay the toxicity. This drug's effects wouldn't last long, at most about 15 minutes or so. Old Jin said softly, 15 minutes is enough for me. Suddenly, Ares noticed something and asked to see his palm. He thought Old Jin's hand had gotten contaminated with other poison. It was just hair dye. Old Jin remembered having touched Lin Yujin's hair before. He had actually discovered long ago that all this was a lie woven by Old Baek. When he touched that woman's hair earlier, his hand had gotten stained with hair dye. Even knowing it was all lies, he still couldn't help wanting to believe. Even knowing the woman before him was an imposter, he still instinctively wanted to protect her, because it made him feel as if Yujin was still there. Old Jin threw a fierce punch, knocking Old Baek to the ground. Now he had to pull himself together. He had to return to reality. Old Jin sneered, thanks to Old Baek's carelessness. His performance in this charade had been worthwhile. He coldly told Old Baek to stand up. They had to settle things between them. Only then could he personally sever this karmic debt. Seeing Old Baek get beaten, the guard hastily rushed forward wanting to fight back, but was instantly taken down by Old Jin. Old Baek quickly got up and threw a fierce punch at Old Jin, which he barely dodged. Old Baek sneered, "As you requested, let's settle accounts properly." As his words fell, Old Baek immediately flew up to kick him hard. Old Jin quickly reacted and raised his leg to block. Who knew Old Baek would seize the opportunity to grab Old Jin's hair, while his movements were restricted, pounding him viciously. Then another fierce punch to the face. Old Jin was beaten until he spat blood. Old Baek said smugly, "How's that? Although I'm getting old and my movements aren't as nimble as before, but to personally get revenge on you, I've been training persistently every day." Before he finished speaking, the intolerant Old Jin interrupted his words with a fist. He punched Old Baek's face again and again, finally using all his strength to strike hard at Old Baek's heart. Old Baek couldn't avoid this familiar move. Old Jin mocked coldly, "I know what you want to say to me, but we two were never the type who could chat casually. I really don't want to hear your nonsense anymore. Come at me." This moment today was exchanged by countless springs and autumns. Old Baek had lain unconscious. He didn't know exactly how many years he'd lain there, only knew that during those years of struggling to survive, he seemed trapped in an endless snowy field. But when he returned, everything had already changed, and the first thing he did upon awakening was to inquire about those traitors' whereabouts. He found out about Lin Yujin's death from difficult childbirth and the birthplace of her child. Hope for revenge ignited in Old Baek's eyes. This meant number 66 was still alive. From that day on, Old Baek's life existed only for revenge. He pestered day after day. He vowed to make his enemy taste the defeat he once suffered. After taking a punch from Old Jin, Old Baek barely steadied himself. He gathered strength and swung a right hook, pounding hard at Old Jin's face. Old Jin showed no weakness, immediately returning a swift uppercut. The two grappled together, fighting fiercely. Suddenly, Old Jin sensed something wrong. Why did Old Baek suddenly change his attitude? How could he suddenly become like someone driven to desperation? Old Baek crazed and clamored. He wanted to perish together with Old Jin. This was his last desperate struggle. Although the photo just now was fake, he would soon make it reality. His plan only seemed hastily made, but what they saw wasn't the plan's full picture. His ultimate goal was to make old Jin trap himself in a cocoon. On Minji's side, two men claiming to be police said they'd received a report call. Minji immediately relaxed and frantically called to the police for help. The next second, a cold gun barrel aimed at Minji's forehead. The man confirmed the target was someone on the walkie-talkie. One girl, one old man, and two men. After confirmation, he immediately ordered to open fire. It turned out they were the South factions. Resident Spy Group, Room 7. Old Chang saw this and hastily threw Minji down, narrowly dodging that shot. Nan director sensed the situation seemed somewhat bad. Their position was exposed faster than anticipated. Immediately after, the South faction's Room 9 spy group also arrived on scene. The man in the coat sneered, "What day is it today that we're all urgently mobilized?" Then he said to his subordinates, "No need to say more, just kill everyone directly." Old Bake smugly told Old Jin the situation. He'd summoned all the South faction spies, and he also promised to clean up the mess, letting them open fire and kill. Old Jin angrily rebuked Old Bake, "You're insane if a war accidentally breaks out." But Old Bake laughed even more maniacally. Would opening fire in South H country trigger a war? How would those South H countries' elites who only care about eating, drinking, and playing allow a war to break out? But Old Jin said, "You misunderstood my meaning. If a war accidentally breaks out, that guy would definitely be very happy." At this moment, the guy Old Jin mentioned had already arrived at Minji's location. The struck man in the coat screamed continuously. He furiously questioned who had ruined their plans. Kang Guk-cheo mocked, "Idiots. Infiltrating South H country as spies wasn't enough. You actually dared to open fire. Looks like I really need to find time to properly deal with you guys." It turned out those unafraid of war weren't just Old Bake and his people, but also Kang Guk-cheo. Old Jin warned Old Bake to prepare himself. This person coming next would definitely make him very unhappy. On this side, Kang Guk-cheo cursed loudly, "You actually dare ignore the law." Then he shouted loudly, "The messenger of hell has arrived." Only then did the other side react, unable to believe the Special Operations Bureau would appear here. The man in the red hat shouted they'd been trapped. Before he finished speaking, he was already shot. Kang Guk-cheo sternly called out, "Don't move. I'm arresting you for suspected violation of national security law." The other side immediately became furious, wanting to draw weapons to resist. Before they could pull the trigger, something was thrown to the ground. Immediately after, a huge sound made them instantly lose control. They screamed, questioning what it was. Kang Guk-cheo's tone was mocking, "This is called a sonic bomb. Although it has no lethal power, it's perfect for suppressing you." In this chaos, Old Chang took the opportunity to escape with Minji. Old Chang comforted Minji to endure it. It turned out Kang Guk-cheo and Old Chang had history. Back in the day, the two had even fought, and Old Chang had beaten Kang Guk-cheo. Kang Guk-cheo stared at Old Chang's retreating figure. He absolutely wouldn't let him go. Don't think about escaping from his hands. He ordered his subordinates to immediately chase after them. If the other side resisted, just shoot directly, then use capturing spies as the excuse, and take this opportunity to find out who was helping Old Jin. At this moment, the underground parking garage lights suddenly flickered, instantly falling into eerie dimness. Before everyone could react, the next second a silver needle pierced through a subordinate's throat. They instantly panicked, shouting to turn on night vision goggles. Kang Guk-cheo couldn't help but shout, "Bastard, who is it this time?" Zhen Yuchun sighed lightly. Things were getting more and more complicated. She had wanted to relocate quickly. Nan director softly reassured, "Actually, our action speed was already very fast. At least we bought escape time for Old Chang." Old Chang instructed Minji to hold tight. Then he floored the gas pedal and rapidly fled the scene. Special Operations Bureau members confirmed the position, shouting loudly they'd spotted the two escapees. Unfortunately, they were still a step too slow. The car had already driven out. Kang Guk-cheo immediately ordered to open fire, absolutely couldn't let them escape. Zhen Yuchun saw this and also prepared to leave, but was intercepted on the spot by the 17-pointed star, who said, "You caused public panic. We can't let you leave. We are the Special Operations Bureau, Special Intelligence Agent 17-pointed star." The 17-pointed star was about to make a request, but Zhen Yuchun interrupted in confusion. "I don't understand what you mean. You don't need to introduce yourselves. Young people nowadays learn techniques from movies. The principle of intelligence is to pretend to understand when you don't. I'm going to make the 17-pointed star disappear from here." In the Bongam-dong, Old Bake completely broke down, furiously rebuking Old Jin for destroying all his plans. Unable to believe his schemes had all been seen through, Old Bake was so angry he became incoherent. Old Jin was too lazy for nonsense and directly pounded hard at his face. Consecutive heavy punches left him completely unable to speak. Then he turned and delivered a flying kick, viciously sending Old Bake flying. Old Bake collapsed on the ground, saying in disbelief, "This grudge is far from over." Old Bake pointed at his scar, questioning if Old Jin still remembered. This scar came from Old Jin's hand, a mark he could never erase. Since then, he'd lived in hell every day. Old Jin knew Old Bake's team had fallen apart after disbanding, but for him, that too had been a very important mission. He had to protect the people and things he cherished, and there was no such thing as an indelible wound in this world. People living in this world rely on small joys to forget great pain and keep themselves alive. Old Jin sternly ordered Old Bake to stand up. They should thoroughly settle all grudges, and Old Bake, for revenge, had single-handedly shouldered all the blame. He had concerns, so he didn't report to the party, worried it would trigger unnecessary trouble. Suddenly, Old Bake's heart ached severely. Old Jin's previous heavy punch finally took effect. He cursed Old Jin through gritted teeth, forcing himself to stand, shouting as he charged at Old Jin, roaring for him to pay the price. Old Jin showed no mercy, delivering another fierce punch to his chest. Old Bake immediately coughed blood and fell. Old Jin declared everything was over. The karmic debt between them ended here. At this moment, a guard said in panic that Old Bake's heartbeat seemed to have stopped. All the current circumstances were exactly as Old Bake had predicted. That person sighed lightly. "In the end, we still reached this step." Then he ordered to execute Old Bake's last wishes. No one expected that Old Bake had kept this final card up his sleeve.